Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see what if Deku was in Pokemon World and had Harem movie. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is Izuku in Pokemon World by HarshaJirou. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Izuku's POV. Why? Just why? Why can't anyone say, you can be a hero even if you are quirkless? I hung on to life to hear someone say that to me. My mother died 6 years ago when I was 11 years old. I was bullied by childhood best friend just because I am quirkless. I then climb over the fence onto the wall on the other side and sit there waiting for KACC. Wait, he doesn't deserve that name. He told me to take a swan dive of the roof and I still respect him. Fuck that. I write a letter as I remove my shoes and place them on the roof with the letter beneath the shoes. My last hope to live was All Might, who I thought would say I can be a hero, but nope. Even he tells me the same damn reason, that I am fucking quirkless. I have no one to live for, no one who will cry over my death. I then see Bakugo coming out of the school building. I stood up on the wall and yelled, "Katsuki Bakugo." He then looks up at me with a shocked expression which turned to a scared one and yells back, "What are you doing, Deku? Come down here." I then smile and see police coming with news reporters pointing their cameras at me. I yelled, "Why the fuck are you worried? You are the one WHO told me to take a swan dive of the roof to get a fucking quirk in my next life. So yeah, let's see if that fucking theory works." And jumped from there before they can set up the safety net from allowing me to die. My pathetic life flashed to me when I was about to hit the ground, and everything turned black. I suddenly woke up to be in a room filled with white light while I was looking at an old man drinking tea in front of me. I quickly analyzed the situation and realized that I am dead and am now in front of the god. He then said, "Your death was unfair and forced, and you had a great legacy but was forced to jump of your school." I just smiled and replied, "I had no regrets doing that." The god then said to me, "You now have two options. 1. You can live as a ghost just wandering on Earth for eternity, or 2. You can be born in a new world but will forget everything except your name." I immediately answered, "PLS, reincarnate me, since maybe I can live a good life there without these memories." The god then gave a gentle smile and said, "Enjoy your new life, for I am making you a special person there." I was about to ask something, but in an instant everything blacked out. Arceus's POV. While I was looking at the Hoenn region Pokemon, a bright light came and out of it came a baby with green hair and emerald eyes. I was like, how did it get here? A god. What the hell is going on? I then calmed down and transformed to my human female form. I was always interested in raising a baby, so I am gonna take this chance and raise the baby with lots of love. I then teleported to an island with no human, only Pokemon, and made a barrier so no one from outside can enter without my permission. I then constructed a small house where I can raise him. I then proceeded with installing daily utilities. After making a lovely home, I went around the island introducing the boy, who I named Izuku, to other Pokemon on the island. I then took my time learning how to raise a child without using my powers. Time skipped by 1.5 years. Today I am about to pick him from the floor when he suddenly stood up on 2 legs and slowly but steadily walked towards me saying, "Mama. Mama." I was shocked. I just witnessed my child's first word and his first time walking. Still, I wonder how he was able to walk perfectly without even falling once. I guess he is a special child. Times KIP to when Izuku is 5 years old. I taught everything about the world to my child, who is playing with his 5 best friends, a Riolu, a Ralts which has an obvious crush on him, a Flareon, a shiny Phoebus, and a Dragonair which likes cuddling a lot. I also discovered he has strong psychic powers, so I taught him how to use them, which he learnt in only a year. Wow, he must have been a quick learner in his previous life. Today is the day I must leave him, since I abandoned my god duties for 5 years now. He understood the situation easily and told me that he can live on his own in the forest with other Pokemon. His most used ability is Pocket Dimension, where he can store anything. I gave him 100 Pokeballs and he used 5 of them to catch his friends, but quickly released them outside since he insisted as his first 6 Pokemon will always travel with him on foot. I then put him enough Pokemon food to last for years, which he stored in his Pocket Dimension. He then said goodbye to me and I teleported him to Hoenn region, where he wants to train till he is 17 years old, then go on a journey. I did as he told and made my way back to my Hall of Beginning, to begin my duties again. Izuku's POV. Alright guys, we are in the Hoenn Forest near Petalburg City. We will train ourselves for 12 years and set out on our journey starting from Kanto. I said to my 5 best friends, who replied, "Yes, Izuku." I then used my psychic powers to gather wood and make a treehouse, which took me 3 hours and left me completely exhausted without energy to even walk. I then began thinking, this will be tougher than I expected. Today marks my 17th birthday and I can go to Professor Birch and get my trainer license. During this time all my 5 Pokemon evolved to max, so I now currently have Lucario, Gardevoir, Dragonite, Shiny Melodic and my first Pokemon friend Flareon. I am ready to go to Professor Birch to get my trainer license. After I reached Professor Birch's place wearing the clothes I bought recently, I knocked on the main door and waited till Professor Birch opened it. After a minute I heard the door open and Professor Birch saying, "Ah Izuku, you are finally done with your training. Come in, your license and Pokédex along with Pokénav is ready." I quickly replied, "SRY Professor, but I don't need a Pokédex since I know about most of them, but I will gladly take the Pokénav." He nodded and gestured me to follow him. Near a orphanage in Kanto region, third-person POV. We see 2 girls at the age 16 running away from the orphanage with wounds and cuts on their body with old and a bit torn clothes. The girl with black, long hair asked the girl with violet, short hair, "Kyoka, we finally escaped but they will chase us. Where do we go?" The other, whose name we found as Kyoka, replied, "Let's run to the Viridian Forest and hid there till we find shelter. Okay Momo?" The said girl nodded and they started runner faster to their destination. Back to Izuku's POV. I followed Professor to the main lab where I saw the 3 starter Pokemons playing with each other. I smiled looking at them, but when I looked at the fire chick Pokemon Torchic, it came to me and jumped into my arms. Me and Professor looked confused at this sudden behavior. I then turned to Professor Birch and asked, does this happen often?" Professor Birch looked at me and replied, "No, this Torchic never let anyone become its trainer. Even I am shocked at this, but if it likes you then PLS take it, after all you just received your trainer license." I slowly put the Torchic on the ground and looked at it with a smile and asked, "Do you want to come with me, Torchic?" Showing it a Pokeball I took out from my pocket dimension. It just headbutted the capture button and got itself caught. I smiled and released it outside and said, "You can walk with me on my shoulder," pointing to my left shoulder. Torchic happily jumped on my shoulder and nuzzled me with his cheeks. I then said goodbye to the professor and said, "I will now first go to Kanto region." I was about to release my Dragonite to fly on it when Professor Birch said, "Wait, if you are going to Kanto, then can you please deliver this package to Professor Oak, who is in Pallet Town near Viridian Forest?" I smiled and replied, "Sure Professor Birch, I can deliver it to Professor Oak." I took the package and put it in my pocket dimension and called out my Dragonite. Dragonite immediately nuzzled its cheeks with mine and asked, "Hey Izu, need me to fly somewhere? Only I have the ability to understand the Pokemon that I have bonded with. Can you fly me to Pallet Town in Kanto near Viridian Forest?" To which it nods and bent down a bit while I jumped on its back and pat his head to let him know I am ready to let him take off. TIMESKIP to 5 hours. Izuku's POV. Dragonite landed in front of Professor Oak's laboratory. I got of him and returned him back in his Pokeball and put it away in the PD pocket dimension, and then knock on the door and waited for response. The door opened and I saw the famous Professor Oak. He said, "What can I do for you, young man?" I took out the package from my PD and gave it to him, saying, "Professor Birch has given me the task of handing this to you, Professor Oak." He smiled and replied, "Thanks, trainer. Would you like to come inside?" I shook my head saying, "Sorry Professor, but I gotta be on my way to start my trainer life." With a smile, and he told me, "Here is my contact information if you need anything." I took the paper and said, "Thank you Professor, I will give you calls when I discover anything new." I was about to leave when I saw a kid who was 10 years old wearing pajamas. He had raven hair and amber eyes. He then came up to us and said, "OMG, I am SRY Professor Oak. I overslept and woke up late." While panicking, Proc. Oak then led him inside. I was curious of his choice and followed them inside. I then saw him panicking, there not being any start for him. I was about to offer help, but Professor Oak told, "I do have a Pokemon for you, but it has some issues, Ash." The boy had stars in his eyes when he heard this and said, "I don't care if he has issues, I am happy with what I receive." I smiled at his optimism and asked, "Hey boy, what is your name and goal to want to be a Pokemon trainer?" He looked at me and said, "My name is Ash Ketchum and my goal is to be a Pokemon master." I smiled at the determination in his eyes and said, "Train hard and love your Pokemon and you will go far in life." He said, "Thanks for advice, big bro." I chuckled and said, "Izuku." He smiled and replied, "Yes, big bro, Izuku." He opened the Pokeball with a lightning symbol on it. Out came a cute Pikachu. I smiled and said, "Well, time for me to go. Bye, Professor Oak, and good luck, Ash. I am your first rival." I left to go inside Viridian Forest. I wandering inside for one day and pulled out a camping set from PD. And set it and let all my Pokemon out. As soon as I released them, I was tackled my Gardevoir who was in her human form. I then gave a kiss to my girlfriend and gave hugs to Flareon, Melodic and Torchic and a fist bump to Lucario and Dragonite, and we all trained for 2 hours before hearing a girl's voice yelling, "Help." I quickly ran towards the voice, enhancing my body using aura to be as fast as Lucario. I arrived to see 2 beautiful girls who were about to be abducted. My 5 guys wearing black t-shirts with capital R in red color at the center, and I ordered, "Dragonite, Lucario, Melodic, go beat their Pokemon, and Gardevoir and Flareon defend the girls. While I beat these punks." I took of my hoodie and threw it towards the girl with black hair tied to a spiky ponytail and told her, "Cover yourself." She nodded and caught my hoodie. I then quickly spread aura around my body and quickly gave the 5 punks chops on their neck, which enough force to knock them unconscious for an hour, and tied them up together with some rope in my PD. I took their Pokeballs and returned their knocked out Pokemon and put the Pokeballs on the punks' belts. I then went towards the girls, but not too close since they may be scared, and asked, "Are you both okay? Why were they chasing you?" They both looked at each other and nodded, and the one with short purple hair answered, "Thanks for saving us even though you don't know us. I am Kyoka and this is Momo. We are orphans and were sold to an evil organization called Team Rocket, but we escaped to this forest since I had dream." Her eyes quickly widened and she said, You appear in my dreams every night to save us from them." I was shocked at this and said, "I know you might not know me, but I am Izuku. I just started my journey today, and if you want, you both can travel with me so I can keep you safe from the organization," with a smile. They both looked at each other and talked to themselves so I couldn't hear them, and they said, "We accept and we are in your care, Izuku, together." I then opened my PD and took out 2 more of my hoodies, one for myself and one for Kyoka. They both looked at me with shock, and Kyoka asked, Izuku, where do you pull them out from?" with a dumbfounded expression. I chuckled and said, "I have a psychic powers which allow me to create a dimension where there is no time flow. I can store anything there." They both had stars in their eyes, and Momo said, "So Izuku, where are we going first?" "For now, let's go to Viridian City and shop for some clothes since you guys can't wear my hoodies forever." They both nodded, and then Gardevoir tackled Izuku and asked, "Are they gonna be with us, babe?" Gardevoir in human form can speak normally. Kyoka and Momo looked shocked, and Momo asked, "Izuku, who is this?" I answered, "My girlfriend Gardevoir." And then Kyoka questioned, "Isn't Gardevoir a Pokemon?" To which I looked at my GF and gave her a nod. She then turned into her original self, and Momo and Kyoka had their jaw dropped. I chuckled and said, "This Gardevoir is special." I then gave both of them a hand and they took it and stood up. I then gestured them to follow me and we walked back to my campsite. I then proceeded to tie the punks to the nearby tree who were being carried by Gardevoir using Psychic. After tying them up, I pulled out 2 more sleeping bags from my PD since I always prepare myself for emergencies. I gave one of them each and I quickly deployed a ore field of 50-meter radius so I can sense if anyone enters it and wake up. We then talked about ourselves for a while and slept. Time skipped to morning. I woke up and looked at my watch to see it's 5:30 a.m. I got and started doing some exercises like one-hand push-ups, pull-ups, stretching and weightlifting using the weights in my PD. I got done by 6:30 a.m. and proceeded to make break fast before waking up the girls. I made some Pokemon food for my Pokemon and bacon with eggs for me, Momo and Kyoka. After finishing preparing the breakfast, to shook the girls awake and said, "Breakfast is ready. Brush your teeth in the pond 30 meters to your right and come back." They both nodded, still a bit sleepy, but got up and took the toothbrushes I gave them and went towards the pond nearby. They came looking refreshed after 10 minutes. I smiled and said, "Wanna see all my Pokemon?" They both had excited looks and nodded furiously. I chuckled and released all my Pokemon and said, "These are my 6 Pokemon: Flareon, Gardevoir, Dragonite, Lucario, Melodic and Torchic." Momo and Kyoka introduced themselves and my Pokemon warmed up to them RLY fast. After breakfast I put all the stuff in my PD and returned to my Pokemon and turned towards them and said, "Let's go to Viridian City." And they both yelled, "Yeah." We walked in the path towards an open meadow. I looked up in the sky to see the legendary Pokemon Ho-Oh flying above us. I yelled, "Did you see that?" They both nodded but still looked shooketh. I then saw a rainbow feather fall. I ran towards it and quickly caught it and put it in my PD. I then turned to the girls and said, "Let's continue." They both nodded and jogged to catch up with me and we walked to Viridian City. Time skipped to 12 p.m. We just arrived at the Viridian City. I then took out $2,000 and gave them $1,000 each and told them, "Go shop for your clothes and let's meet up at the Pokemon Center at the evening." They both nodded and left together with Gardevoir, who wanted to get to know them. I then suddenly got an idea. Since I am 17 and I have a driver's license, I can buy a car which will make it easy to travel. I said to no one in particular. I then looked up the PokeNav to see that there is a Toyota showroom nearby. I quickly ran to it. After a few minutes of searching I finally found it. I then went inside and went towards the salesman and asked, "Which model is safe to drive in a little rough places?" He replied, "This car is Toyota Fortuner. It is costly but it has great suspension and big tires which allows it to drive smoothly over rough places. It has many features too." The salesman then explained to me all its features and when he finished I asked, "How much for it?" The top-end model with all extra features is $60,000 while the one without extra features is $53,000. I then took out the required money from PD and handed it to the man. I then signed some insurance papers and chose white color. Is it electric? He nodded and I was happy since Dragonite can use Thunderbolt to quickly charge its battery in seconds. And what's more is then we can lean back the seats enough to sleep in them. So no need for sleeping bags. Yay. I then took the keys and went towards the car I selected, which was parked outside. I started the engine and honestly it was so silent, and I drove to the Pokemon Center and parked my car at the parking spot available. People were looking at my car in awe, which I can understand cause most people use cycles or Pokemon for transportation or buses and rarely people buy cars, especially the one as costly as mine. I went inside the Pokemon Center and booked a single bedroom for me and a double bedroom for the girls. I was about to go to the nearby couch to sit, but I saw a male with blue hair and a female with long pink hair and a Meowth walking like a human. WTF and IT talks TOOO. I then noticed that the male and female wore Team Rocket uniforms, so I quickly jumped into action with my aura-infused body and knocked them out and turned towards Nurse Joy and I smiled and said, "PLS call Officer Jenny so she can arrest them." After like 5 minutes Officer Jenny crashed through the door with her Jeep and Nurse Joy. "There is clearly parking available outside," Junie yelled to Jenny, who just scratched her neck and turned to me and asked, "Did you knock them out?" I replied, "Yes," and smiled and handcuffed the 3 of them and put them in the Jeep, and then she turned to Nurse Joy and asked, "Do you know whose that costly looking black car outside is?" Nurse Joy then nodded and then pointed to me. I already knew what she would ask, so I simply showed my driver's license and she then said, "Nice car by the way, cutie." I blushed at her compliment and said, Thanks Jenny." She smiled and left towards the police station in her van. I then turned to Nurse Joy and asked, Are all the Jennies this flirty?" She replied, "Well, with how you look, I think it's natural that girls would flirt with you." I then chatted with Nurse Joy for a while and I honestly liked how she could keep her smile all the time. Time skipped to 6 p.m. I saw Momo and Kyoka enter with like 10 big shopping bags each. Kyoka looked at me and said, "Izuku PLS put them in your PD cause they are really heavy." I chuckled and took the bags from them and put them in my PD and turned to Gardevoir in her human form and asked, "Hey babe, how was your shopping with them?" She replied, "It was fun," and they also admitted that they lee. She was cut off by the girls putting their hands on her mouth and yell, "Don't tell him yet," together with their faces red. I then said, "Oh, by the way, I have a surprise for your 3. They looked at me confused and I said, "Close your eyes and hold my hand while I will guide you to the surprise." They nodded and held my hand and closed their eyes. I then guided them towards my new car and said, "Open your eyes." They opened their eyes and looks incredible shocked, and then Momo said, "No you didn't." I smiled and replied, Yes, I did, and it makes traveling 100 times easier so we can have more free time after earning all 8 badges to sightsee around the major cities. I was then tackled by the 3 girls who yelled, "That's so cool." I then heard Gardevoir say, "Do it, girls." Momo and Kyoka blushed and I was confused and said, "What do you am?" I was quickly cut off by Momo kissing me passionately with her hands around my neck. She immediately pulled away, and before I had any chance to register what happened, Kyoka immediately smashed her lips with mine with her hands on my chest. I was dumbfounded but immediately blushed hard when I realized what happened, and then Momo said, "We love you and Gardevoir has agreed to share you with us." I turned to Gardevoir, who has a smirk on her face. I then sighed and said, "Fine, I must say this, I do love you both too," while blushing like a tomato. I was then tackled to the ground by the 3 of them, who gave me a peck on my lips each and got off me while I was blushing red all over my face. But then Kyoka said, "Wow, Izu, you are packing some serious muscle inside that hoodie." I smiled and said, "I work out alongside my Pokemon." Then we went inside and ate dinner, and I returned Gardevoir inside her ball and we left towards our room and slept for the day. Izuku's paw. Ring ring. I woke up to the alarm on my phone and turned it off. I felt something on my right arm. I turned to see my first girlfriend Gardevoir in her poke form and was quite soft. I shook her a little since it is 6 a.m. and I wanna work out and train my Pokemon. She woke and got of the bed. I stretched a little and popped my muscles to get the stiffness of. I then brushed my teeth and proceeded to the training ground and got all my Pokemon out and we started training. 1. I checked my phone to see it's 8 p.m. I turned to my Pokemon and said, "All right everyone, let's eat some breakfast." I pulled out some Pokemon food from PD and gave everyone their share. After 10 minutes I went to Nurse Joy and asked, "Can I borrow your kitchen?" She looked a bit confused but smiled and said, "You can." I then proceeded towards the kitchen and started making breakfast for me, Momo, Kyoka and Nurse Joy, since I see that the kitchen hasn't been used. After I finished making pancakes, I proceeded to keep them in 4 plates on the table. I saw Momo and Kyoka came down from their rooms talking. 2. I then called, "Momo, Kyoka and Nurse Joy, come to the table, I made some breakfast for everyone." Momo and Kyoka came immediately but Nurse Joy looked a bit reluctant, so I said, "It's fine Nurse Joy, consider it as thanks for letting me borrow the kitchen." She smiled and joined us on the table. We then said our prayer and started eating. When I saw Nurse Joy take her first bite, she looked really happy and said to Momo and Kyoka, "Oh my. You got yourself a handsome keeper, girls." They both blushed hard while me and Nurse Joy chuckled on their expression. After we ate our breakfast, we said goodbye to the Nurse Joy, and when we came out, I took out the car keys and unlocked it, and got in on the driver's side. I then saw Momo get in on the seat beside me and looked back to see Kyoka on the seat behind me. I am glad I got this car because of how spacious it is. 'Cause 7 people can sit comfortably. I started the engine. It made absolutely silent since it is electric, but its accelerating sound is cool. I then activated the map to go to Pewter City using the highway. It says 50 kilometers around the forest between Pewter City and Viridian City. We then got on our way. I was going at 60 miles per hour while listening to Momo and Kyoka sing to different songs and telling some jokes. Time skipped by 1 hour. We arrived inside the city and it 5 minutes to show the officer Jenny of Pewter City my driver license. I then asked the girls, "Sue, let's go to the gym first or do you want me to buy our phones first?" They both looked excited and replied, "Gym first," at the same time. I chuckled and put up the map for Pewter City Gym and started driving there. We reached there in 10 minutes. We got out of the car and I locked it. I then proceeded to the main door and knocked on it. A teen in his 14 or 15 answered the door and he was above average height, had dark tan skin, his eyes were almost shut. He then looked at Momo and Kyoka and had hearts in his eyes. He immediately got on one knee and said, "Hello, I am Brock. Will you 2 beautiful ladies go on a date with me?" Momo and Kyoka immediately hugged me on each side and said, "We're taken, together." I then saw Brock with a dark, depressed aura around his head. I chuckled and said, "I am Izuku and I came here to challenge you to a gym battle." He then immediately stood up and looked serious and said, "I accept your challenge, come with me to the battlefield." We walked to the battlefield and got on each side of the field and Momo and Kyoka went to the audience section and sat down. A teen in his early teens who looked a bit like Brock came to the center and said, "This will be a 2vs2 Pokemon battle and only the challenger is allowed to switch his Pokemon. Trainers, send out your Pokemon." I then saw Brock grab a Pokeball and toss it, saying, "I choose you, Geodude." I smiled and took out a Pokeball from my PD inside my pocket so the others won't be surprised. I tossed it while saying, "It's battle time, Melodic." My Melodic came out and looked determined to battle. I then saw the shock on Brock's face, but it faded quickly. He then said, "Other region Pokemon, huh?" I replied, "Yes, it's from Hoenn." The referee then yelled, "Begin." Brock took the first move and said, "Geodude, use Rule Out." I then quickly said, "Melodic, quickly dodge and use Psychic on Geodude and slam it to the ground." Melodic immediately followed my command and dodged the Rule Out attack and used Psychic, and a blue light wrapped around Geodude and it got lift high and crashed down hard onto the field. I saw that it didn't faint. I then said, "I gotta admit, Brock, that Geodude has been looked after quite well." He smiled and replied, "Thank, Geodude, use Rock Throw." I said, "Quick, use Hydro Pump, Melodic." Melodic's Hydro Pump immediately overpowered Geodude's Rock Throw and got hit and fainted. The referee announced, "Geodude has fainted. The first round goes to the challenger and his Melodic." Brock sighed and said, "Return, Geodude, you did a good job." The referee asked me, "Do you wish to substitute your Pokemon?" I shook my head and Brock said, "Go Onix." A huge snake-looking Pokemon made out of huge rock came out and roared loudly. Referee said, "Begin." I immediately said, "Melodic, let's end it one shot. Use Surf." Melodic immediately summoned a strong and big tidal wave and hit Onix with it, and the Onix has immediately fainted as it couldn't dodge the Atke covering the whole field. The referee then announced, "Onix has fainted. Since both of the gym leaders' Pokemon have fainted, the challenger has won the gym battle." I looked towards Momo and Kyoka, who were smiling and clapping. They immediately ran to me and tacked me in a hug as we fell on the floor with them on me hugging me. I then saw Brock come towards me with a smile and said, "You are stronger than any trainer I battled so far. Here, take the badge, you deserve it," handing me the rock badge. We then talked for a minute and said goodbyes, and me, Momo and Kyoka went outside. I looked at the sky smiling while thinking, "Hey Mom. I know you are busy, but it's been 12 years since I saw you and I still miss the smile. I hope you are proud of me. I found people I care for and protect." I then saw Ash emerging from the forest in front of me. I yelled, "Hey Ash, over here." He then looked at me shocked and came running to me along with a Pikachu on his shoulder. He tackled me to a brotherly hug and said, "Hey brother. I see you won the first badge before me. I will not be far behind." I chuckled and broke away from the hug and gestured him towards Momo and Kyoka and said, "They are my girlfriends, Momo and Kyoka." Momo and Kyoka smiled and waved a little, saying, "Hey Ash." He then introduced himself and then ran towards the gym, leaving us. I chuckled at his enthusiasm and I then looked towards my girlfriends and said, "Hey girls, let's go get lunch at a restaurant and then shop for a smartphone for you too." They immediately replied, "Sure Izu." We then got in the car and I put up the GPS to the nearby good restaurant. After a 15-minute drive, we arrived at the restaurant at 12:30 p.m. We ordered our food and finished eating by 1 p.m. We then went to a smartphone shop located beside the restaurant. We entered the shop. I then looked towards Momo and Kyoka and said, "Choose a phone to your liking and don't worry about the cost." They both nodded and looked around the shop. After 10 minutes they both selected Samsung Galaxy M51. I smiled at their choice. Momo chose a black color while Kyoka chose a shiny violet color ones. I then paid $700 for each and then we headed back to our car. I did the settings on their phones while creating their account. I then put the 5G SIM and added my contact in their phones. It was presently 3 p.m. by the time I was done with their phone setting and teaching them how to use it. I then asked, "Do you guys wanna stay in Pewter City for today or we can go to Cerulean City, which is an hour and a half away from here?" Kyoka answered, Let's go to Cerulean City since it was also past time." And Momo nodded. I looked at the percentage of charge available in the car. There was still 60% left, which is enough till we reach Cerulean City. I then started driving. I put on some nice songs on the radio while Momo and Kyoka were sitting in the middle row of the car playing Uno. I then released Gardevoir on the passenger seat beside me. She was in her human form. "I have a request, Izu. IHM Med in question and Gardevoir said, I wanna be alongside you in human form now. No more Pokeball unless it's emergency. I smiled and said, whatever you want babe. She then pecked my on the cheek and we started chatting about random things. We reached Cerulean City. I saw that it was only 5 p.m. I looked towards the girls who were in the back chatting amongst them. I asked, wanna see how the beach here looks? They all nodded. I then said, let's go by foot. I will park the car at the Pokemon Center which is only 10 minutes away from the beach. They nodded and I parked the car. We got out and stretched a bit to relieve the sore muscles and locked the car. We started walking towards the beach while Momo and Kyoka were holding my arms and Gardevoir was talking with me. When we reached, I immediately noticed a trainer hitting a Vulpix and Eevee with a stick. I then turned to Gardevoir and tossed my phone to her saying, call Officer Jenny while I go and knock him out. I then took out 2 super potions and gave each of them to Momo and Kyoka saying, heal the Pokemon while I deal with him. They nodded. I immediately infused my body with aura and reached the young trainer in a second and chopped him in the neck, knocking him out effectively. I then started tying him out with rope so he won't move while Momo has started spraying Eevee and Kyoka has started spraying Vulpix with super potions that I gave. After the Pokemon have healed they immediately jumped in front the person who healed them and started licking their faces while the girls were laughing and I was chuckling. I then saw Officer Jenny running towards us along with Gardevoir. I then said, Officer, I saw him abusing his Pokemon so I knocked him out and tied him up whereas the girls have healed the Pokemon. Officer Jenny nodded and quickly handcuffed him and said, he will be in prison for a good amount of time for Pokemon abuse and thanks for stopping him. I simply smiled and asked, well, what happened to the Pokemon? Officer Jenny looked towards Eevee and Vulpix who were cuddling with Momo and Kyoka and said, since they seem to enjoy the girls' presence, the girls can keep them, handing the Pokeballs of Eevee and Vulpix from the trainer's belt to Momo and Kyoka who have competed happily. Officer Jenny took away the boy and Momo and Kyoka returned the Pokemon to their Pokeball. We then made our way to the Pokemon Center and I booked a double bedroom since the girls have made a fact clear that they will all sleep with me. We then ate dinner and went to the bedroom. I immediately took a shower first and jumped on the bed while the girls were taking their shower together in the huge shower room. After 10 minutes I felt 2 masses on my hands and a mass on top of my body. I opened my eyes to see Momo and Gardevoir cuddling against my arm while Kyoka was cuddling against my chest. I then turned to Gardevoir and asked, shall I give you a nickname since you will be outside most of the time and I don't wanna call you by your Pokemon name? Gardevoir smiled and nodded. I thought for a minute and said, how about Gardy? Gardevoir immediately brightened up and said, I like the nickname. I then received a peck on my lips by each of them saying good night and we all slept. Izuku's paw. I woke up at 6 a.m. again to get training in. I slowly got out of the bed without disturbing the girls and got out of my pajamas into my training gear. I then went to the training field and called out my Pokemon. I am sparring in an aura battle with Lucario. Flareon is teaching Torchic some moves. Dragonite I training with its Dragon Rush against Gardevoir who is to teleport to avoid the attack and at last Melodic is learning Water Pulse. After training till 8 a.m., Izuku made his way to the kitchen after yet another agreement to provide breakfast for Nurse Joy. Izuku French toast with bacon and kept it on 5 plates and put them in front of Momo, Kyoka, Gardy, Joy who just arrived. We said our prayers and dug into the breakfast. After 15 minutes we finished our breakfast. And we're planning. I said, shall we go to the gym first or shall we stock up some food ingredients? Kyoka said, I say we go gym first or there might be a crowd in the afternoon. And Momo said, I agree and when will you take us on a date mister? With a pouting face and I chuckled and replied, soon my darling, just wait for a week and a half by the time I am done with the gyms and we can spend time to train and go on dates. Momo gave a smile and nodded. Gardy asked, who will you be using? I began thinking since I already used Melodic, I have to choose from Lucario, Dragonite, Flareon and Gardevoir. I then said, I will be using you so I will have to return you to your Pokeball before we enter the gym. Gardevoir replied, it's okay Izu, I know I can't be seen transforming unless you trust them, with a smile. I then pulled her into a passionate kiss with my hands around her waist for 40 seconds and said, return Gardevoir, with her Pokeball in my hand and she went in. I then turned to the girls who were pouting and Momo asked, what about our kiss Izu? I chuckled and pulled Kyoka first into the kiss for a minute and we separated with a blush on Kyoka's face who said, "Wow, that felt good. You are making me want more." I then decided to anger Momo and said, "Come on, let's go to the gym," and was walking away slowly and turned back to see a angry and jealous Momo. She said, "Oh okay, yeah, just forget me, I don't care," and turned her head away. I reached for her waist and pulled her for a kiss. She yelped in surprise and I used the chance to force my tongue in and explore her mouth, dominating for. This went on for a minute and we separated with a thin line of saliva which I licked and said, "As sweet as you, Momo." She turned beet red and stuttered, "AAAF free NNCHKKK kiss SS," and smoke started coming out of her ears. I felt a tug on my shirt and turned to see Kyoka pouting. The sight of her pouting made me think she is illegally cute. Ah, she said, "When will I get a French kiss, Izu?" I chuckled and replied, "Soon my love, soon." I saw Momo calm down and said, "That felt more amazing than a normal kiss. I think I will prefer that every time we kiss, it will be a French," with a seductive smile. I said, "Only when we are with each other without any strangers. If there are people around, then I will only give a peck on the lips," pointing to my lips with a wink, and I saw my both girls with steam coming out of their ears and both said, "So hot." I smiled and said, "Let's go get me second gym badge." I then saw Momo with a face that screamed that she has a question. I sighed and asked, "Do you have a question for me, Momo?" She nodded and said, "Can we release our Pokemon to travel beside us?" I said, "Yes." She gleamed and released her Eevee, who jumped on her shoulder and nuzzled their cheeks together. I turned to see Kyoka and Vulpix doing the same. I smiled warmly at the sight in front of me and thought, I will protect them even if I need to sacrifice my body. We decided to walk since it's only like 10 minutes away. We were talking about some plans on what to do after the gym, whether to go to Vermilion City, which will take us a while, or just stay for the night, do some shopping and leave tomorrow morning. When we arrived, I saw a kid who was tall for his age in a red convertible with a lot of cheerleaders in the back. When our eyes met, he said, "My name is Gary Oak and you have some beautiful women as our partners." I smiled a bit darkly and replied, "Thanks, I am Izuku and these ladies are Momo and Kyoka." They both waved a little. He then proceeded to drive off at high speed. Man, Professor Oak's grandson sure is spoiled. I then went inside the gym and saw 3 tall and beautiful ladies chatting. I then said, "I am here to challenge the gym leader." They looked at me and smiled, and the one with dark bluish hair said, "You can choose one of these 2 since my Pokemon just got beaten by a cocky trainer." I looked towards the 2 and said, "I choose the cute one with pink hair." She blushed a bit and said, "My name is Lily and I accept your challenge." We then went to a water field which has a few floating platform for Pokemon who can't swim. The girl with blonde hair went to referee platform and said, "My name is Daisy and I shall be the referee and this will be a one-on-one match. Both trainers release your Pokemon." Lily said, "I choose you, Seeking." And fish Pokemon with horn and tiger-like skin came out and dived into the water. I looked at it and saw even if it was lower level, it has been taken care of nicely by Lily and has good resistance against its weakness. But I decided to end this in one shot, so I said, "Go Gardevoir and use Magical Leaf." Glowing green razor-sharp leaves came swirling like a storm at Seeking, who dove into the water to avoid it. Lily said, "Use Horn Attack, Seeking." I said, "Use Teleport and Psychic." Right when Seeking jumped out of the water with its glowing horn, Gardevoir teleported away and used Feechik, which made a blue outline which made Gardevoir control Seeking. I then said, "Slam it to the platform as hard as possible." Gardevoir immediately slammed it to the nearby platform, which broke at impact and smoke covered the area. Seeking. Lily yelled, concerned for her partner. When the smoke cleared, there was a fainted Seeking. Then Daisy said, "The gym leader's Pokemon Seeking has fainted, so the victory goes to Izuku the challenger." Lily returned her Pokemon saying, "Good job, partner, you tried but they were strong." She then came forward with a gym badge and gave it to me and put her hand forward for a handshake. But when I held her hand, she pulled me to her and gave me a peck on the cheek. I stood there dumbfounded while Lily giggled and said, "That's a reward for calling me cute before." Momo and Kyoka immediately grabbed my hand and turned to Lily and said, "Ours." Lily giggled and I was dragged out with Gardevoir walking behind us. "Oh yeah, she can turn to human when we get outside." We then went behind the gym where Gardevoir turned to human form and immediately tackled me to the ground and started kissing me aggressive with her hands on my chest. I then wrapped my arms around her hip and kissed back. She then got up and said, "Thanks for the reward." I got up and remembered what I said to Kyoka before the gym match. I held her hand and pulled her to me and caught her by her hips with her chest against mine. I then kissed her and forced my tongue into her mouth and explored her mouth while she was having her hand around me neck. After a minute we separated with a thin layer of saliva which I licked and said, nice taste," with a flirty voice, and she turned blood red and kept hitting my chest playfully and said, "That was out of nowhere but I like it." I smiled and we started heading back to the Pokemon Center since it's 11 a.m. When we reached I saw Ash with Brock and a girl who was slightly taller than Ash with orange hair tied to a short-side spiky ponytail. I then said, "Hey Ash, Brock." They both turned to me and immediately Ash tackled me in a hug and I moved a step back to not fall over. Ash said, "Hey brother Izuku, I see you have got the second badge before me too." I patted his head and said, "Well, I travel in a car which is easier to travel." He released me from the hug and I pat Pikachu who went, "Chaw." I smiled at its cuteness and said to Ash, "Who is your new friend?" He then turned to the girl and said, "Her name is Misty and she is traveling with me since I broke her bike and owe her a new one." I was thinking, traveling with someone just because they broke your bike. "Well, I am not gone comment. She looks scary." I waved to her and she waved back. I then said, "Well Ash, I gotta go to Vermilion City, so bye." I said, leaving the Pokemon Center with Gardy, Momo and Kyoka. We went to the car and they all sat in the middle row together while I saw that we only have 20% left. I then got out and grabbed a Pokeball and aid, "Go Dragonite." As soon as it came out, it looked around and saw that it was not in a battle and came to me nuzzling against me. I laughed a bit and said, "Okay Dragonite, it's good to see you too, but I need you to charge the battery using low voltage Thunderbolt." He nodded and released a small Thunderbolt which instantly charged the car. I then returned it and went in the car and starting driving towards the main highway connecting Cerulean City and Vermilion City. I saw that Vermilion City was 300 kilometers away since we have to go around the sea, so that's why people use boat instead of walking to Vermilion City. After 2 hours, it was 2 p.m. I stopped the car to the side and took out our packed lunches from P.D. and gave the girls their share. I went out the car and took out the bowls and Pokemon food from P.D. and put the Pokemon food in the respective bowls of my Pokemon, and I then grabbed 5 Pokeballs and said, "Come on out for lunch Lucario, Melodic, Torchic, Dragonite and Flareon." They all came out and nuzzled against me and started eating their food. I saw Momo and Kyoka feeding their Pokemon some Pokemon food I kept aside for them. After 30 minutes, we returned all our Pokemon except Gardy and I started driving again. Since road was even wider now, I am able to freely drive at 100 miles per hour. After an hour we reached Vermilion City and went straight to the Pokemon Center and saw that they were extremely busy with a number of hurt Pokemon. I saw Nurse Joy a bit stressed and turned to Momo and Kyoka and Gardy and said, "Let's help her out." They nodded and I pulled out 20 full portion R of PD and gave 5 each to the girls and we applied them on all the Pokemon. The Pokemon fully healed after a few minutes and Nurse Joy came to us. "Thank you so much," she said as she bowed. I grabbed her shoulders and pulled her up straight. "Listen, you always help people, there is no need to bow to anyone." She smiled happily and came closer until she got on her toes and kissed my cheek. I immediately got beet red and jumped back a bit. I found myself someone who was appreciative towards me. She was then pulled aside by Momo, Kyoka and Gardy as they were discussing something, and at the end, they looked at each other and nodded. Nurse Joy then came to me and said, "I am gonna tell you something but you should keep it a secret." I nodded and she grabbed my collar and pulled me to hide and smashed her lips to mine and said, "I love you," and girls accepted me. I was there with a dumbfounded expressions while the trainers around who just got their Pokemon healed were cheering for us. I then smiled and said, "As long as you're happy, but what about the Pokemon Center here?" She said, "My youngest sister who just graduated from medical college was looking for a Pokemon Center to work, and since my dream is to travel different places with my love, I can fulfill my dream while she takes over me." I smiled brightly and said, "You can come with me and travel with me forever," and kissed her gently. I heard people taking photos, videos, cheering, clapping and some being jealous, but I couldn't care much about them as I have Joy in front of me. I then asked, "What is your real name?" She replied a bit sadly, "We don't have any real name, all of us are called Joy, but you can give me a name." I thought for a minute and said, "Rhea." I like the name Ria. She smiled as she hugged me and said, then I am Ria and not Nurse Joy. She paused and smiled seductively. She put her fingers her lips and said, but I can be your personal nurse. I blushed a lot but immediately regained myself and thought, oh, she wants to play that game, huh? I grabbed her by her hip and brought her to me as I flirtily said, well, nurse, I hope you will take care of my heart and body. She immediately let steams from her ears and I looked around to see many girls blushing and some who were ready to pounce on me if given the chance. I wanted to get the attention away, so I got into a thinking pose and said, wait, I remembered that there was a shiny Eevee which knows Thunderbolt in the forest. And everyone disappeared as soon as I said that. Ria then said, I will close till tomorrow, then my sister arrives and we can go on our travel. I nodded and I went to make dinner while the girls get familiar with each other. After 30 minutes I finished cooking and put the dinner on the table and yelled, girls, dinner is ready. I then saw them coming in running and taking a chair each. I sat between Ria and Momo. Then removed the cover on their food and looked shocked. I grinned and said, my special recipe which only I can make. They looked at me and said, thank you, Izu. We said our prayer and dug into the food. The girls had a face of pure bliss and complimented me, and our Pokemon ate a special recipe Pokemon food which is healthy for them. After eating, Ria took us to the biggest bedroom as we were cuddled and slept happily, but not before me giving them a peck on the cheek each. Next day morning, I woke to see it was 6 a.m. and I felt 3 masses on me. I looked to see Gardy in her poke form on the right side of my chest and Kyoka, Momo hugging my arms. I then put Gardy between Momo and Kyoka and got up to do some light stretches. I then went to the kitchen to drink water. I saw Ria talking to a Nurse Joy who I think is her sister she mentioned. I made my way to them and hugged Ria from behind and asked, hey Ria, wanna introduce me? Ria giggled while her sister has an amused expression. Ria said, this is the man I was talking about whom I will be traveling with. Her sister bowed a bit and said, thanks for making my sister's dream come true. Unlike the rest of us, she was a bit forced to become a nurse. Ria then said, that reminds me, I think it's time I remove my dye on the middle part of my hair. I was confused, I thought it was natural. She then said, all the sisters have same hair except me, so I had to dye it, with a smile. I replied, I can't wait to see how you will look. Ria then left to remove her dye. It was an awkward silence between her sister and I broke the ice saying, can I get some tips if I see a stray Pokemon injured? She then explained first aid using a toy Pikachu as an example. I nodded in understanding and asked my questions when I had any doubts. It was 7 a.m. by the time she was done. I smiled and said, thanks for the lesson, I must go train alongside my Pokemon. She nodded and I went to the field behind the Pokemon Center. I then let everyone out. Torchic was learning fire-type moves with Flareon. I was doing hand-to-hand aura battle with Lucario and Melodic was training with her new move Scald. I then saw Gardy coming and train her psychic powers by moving boulders. I saw Dragonite trying to master Dragon Rush. I smiled at my hard-working Pokemon. After 2 hours I went inside to see everyone eating breakfast, but my concentration was on Ria's hair and her clothes. She looked heavenly and I couldn't help but say, wow Ria, you look stunning. She blushed and said, thanks Ash. Even though my parents thought my hair was not good. I said, they must be a bit mental, all I can see is lovely lady with pink hair and blonde highlight. Ria blushed but came to me and pecked me on the cheek and said, thanks for your words Izu. We then sat down and ate breakfast. After eating, we said goodbye to the new Nurse Joy and I then unlocked the car and turned around and said, get in, I will drive till the gym and we will go to Saffron City or Celadon City. I then saw the shock on Ria who said, you never told me you had a car. She said excited. I chuckled and said, so I can go around gyms fast and spend the rest of the time to train and with you guys. She smiled and nodded and we got in the car and I put the location to Vermilion City Gym and started driving. After a 10-minute ride, we reached in front of the gym and it was obvious that it was a Thunder-type gym. We went in and I saw a man and a woman who said, woo, you are packing some muscle kid, I guess you train a lot huh? I said, thanks, I train alongside my Pokemon. They then gestured me to follow and I nodded. We then went to the field and I saw a tall man with bulky muscle wearing a military-themed outfit with a Raichu by his side which looked powerful. The man who wanted me to follow said to the leader, hey Lieutenant Surge, you have a challenger who looks strong. The gym leader raised an eyebrow and said, I doubt they can beat my Raichu, either way. I started to get a bit annoyed at his attitude and said, we will see, in a bit of a dark tone. The women went to the middle as referee and said, this is a 1vs1 Pokemon gym battle between Lieutenant Surge of Vermilion Gym and the challenger Izuku. No time limit and the challenger may choose his Pokemon. Since I was pretty annoyed by his attitude, I was determined to destroy him, so I sent my strongest. Come on out, Lucario, he then said. Go Raichu, we will beat that dog-looking thing. Lucario got pretty angry at that since I can feel it in his aura. I said, full strength Lucario, we will not hold back. He smirked. I heard the referee say, the challenger has the first move, may the battle begin. I said, Lucario, extreme speed and close combat. Lucario vanished immediately. I then heard Surge panic a bit and say, Raichu dodge. But Lucario already appeared in front of it and started using aura-infused punches and kicks. And the Raichu got blown into the wall after the final punch and fainted. Everyone looked shocked while me and Lucario smirked. I heard the referee said, TT the gym leaders are Raichu fainted, so the match goes to Izuku the challenger. I then went to Surge, who held his hand forward. I shaked his hand and said, never underestimate anyone, Surge, and took the badge and went back to the girls, and Momo said, wow Izu, that was the fastest match I have ever seen. And Ria said, I can't believe you are so powerful for someone who recently became a trainer. I smiled and replied, I have been training my Pokemon since I was 8. I had to lie since no one will believe a 5-year-old training his Pokemon. We then proceeded to go outside to the car since it was still 10:30 a.m. I then asked, BTW, are you 18 years old, Ria? She nodded and said, yes, I am 18, and I saw your profile which said you were 17. I then said, you are basically the oldest one here. She looked shocked and turned to Momo and said, but she looks the same age as me. Everyone laughed for a minute and I said, no, she might look RLY mature, but she is 16. She looked more shocked and I looked to see Kyoka pouting and she said, why am I underdeveloped? I pat her head and said, I love you as you are, you don't have to change. She smiled and kissed me for a few seconds and said, thanks Izu. We then got in the car and I started driving towards the Saffron City. After an hour, we reached the outskirts of Vermilion City and the girls wanted to eat, so I pulled over to a small but cozy restaurant. We went in and all of us decided to order curry rice since it was popular according to online reviews. After we finished eating, we went to a nearby picnic spot and released our Pokemon. I then put out bowls for everyone and put the food according to their types while Guardy already ate with us. After eating, Torchic came to me and said, I want to be strong. I haven't battled much and everyone is stronger than me. PLS Izuku trained me for the next gym. I smiled at its determination and got serious and said, we will go on a hell training in the forest. Are you ready? Torchic nodded. I then turned to the girls and said, girls, I have an important thing to discuss. They then came closer to listen carefully. I am gonna go to the forest and train Torchic since he wants to train and he feels left out. She looked a bit sad and Momo asked, how long are you gonna train him? I said, 1 week, and we will be in the forest camping during that time, or we can sleep in the car since 3 people can sleep comfortably in there, but I will training day and night. Then Ria said, but Izuku, it will not be healthy for you to get lack of sleep. I said, I will rest during lunch and breakfast times and eat while I am training him. SRY Ria, but it must be done since it's Torchic's request. Quote. She nodded and I put the car into the PD and we walked into the forest. And I said, oh, and after 1 week, we will walk till Saffron City, since it will also help to train Torchic, so get ready to spend 2 to 2.5 weeks in the wild. And we will travel slowly since we have a lot of time in our hands. Third person Pav. Izuku and gang went into the forest upon Torchic's request to become stronger. They have walked for 30 minutes into the forest and Momo checked her phone to see that is 4 p.m. at the moment. Izuku then stopped and turned around and said, let me bring out the car so you can relax for a while and I will be training Torchic nearby. The girls nodded and Ash placed a huge PD circle on the ground and out came his car. He unlocked it with the keys and the girls went inside. After the girls went inside, he turned on the engine and made Dragonite stand guard at the car. Izuku and Torchic went a few meters away from the car and have started training in Torchic's agility and elemental power for 5 hours. Izuku and Torchic came back to the car and Torchic was fully exhausted while Izuku was only mildly tired. Dragonite smirked looking at Torchic remembering when it was a Dratini and it was also trained for a long period of time but never complained. Ash got into the car and was met by questions from Momo, Jirou and Ria while Gardy already knew what happened. 2. Izuku took out takeaway food which he kept in the PD but Ria asked, "Want the food be cold since it's been a few hours?" Izuku explained that time stops in his PD so they can get it back at the same state it was put in. Everyone ate their dinner and Izuku, Ria, Momo and Jirou slept in the car while Gardy went back to her Pokeball. Next morning, training montage. First day, Torchic was able to power up its moves and increase its agility. Second day, learned Fire Spin. Third day, evolved to Combustion and learned Flamethrower and High Jump Kick. Fourth day, increase in elemental power as well as agility. Fifth day, learned Sky Uppercut and Blaze Kick. Sixth day, increased agility. Training montage and asked. Time, 7 a.m. Third person POV. Izuku just woke up after completing Combustion's 1-week training. Izuku got out of the car and did some light stretches and woke up the girls who reluctantly woke up. The gang woke up and had breakfast and have started to walk towards Saffron City. After a few minutes they encountered a wild Pikachu and Ria seems to like it since she is staring at it. Izuku took out a Pokeball and said, "Combustion, come on out." Out came a Combustion ready to fight. The wild Pikachu immediately started charging thunder. Izuku hurriedly commanded, "Combustion, use Flame Charge." Flames surrounded Combustion whose speed increased and was able to dodge the thunder and hit the wild Pikachu. It was a direct attack but the Pikachu didn't give and rushed towards Combustion with an iron tail. Izuku said, "Combustion, dodge and use Sky Uppercut." Since Combustion was faster, he was able to dodge the iron tail and uppercutted the Pikachu who went crashing towards a tree and lay unconscious. Izuku turned to Ria and said, "Catch it, you seem interested in it." Ria was shocked and said, "Are you sure? I mean you defeated it." Izuku smiled and replied, "Anything for you guys." Ria smiled and pulled out a Pokeball and threw it to the fainted Pikachu and the Pokeball blinked 3 times and the wild Pikachu was caught by Ria. The group has started walking again with Combustion defeating any wild Pokemon which tried to attack them. Time skipped a week and a half. Izuku's POV. We finally reached the outskirts of Saffron City and the girls were exhausted except for Ria and me. We went straight to the Pokemon Center and the Nurse Joy was surprised when she saw Ria and they both started talking while me, Momo and Kyoka went to hit the showers. I came out first from the men's shower and put on some nightwear and went down to get some dinner. I then went to the kitchen. The present Nurse Joy tried to stop me but Ria convinced her that my cooking is good. I didn't want to disappoint Nurse Joy so I started making hamburger steak. After finishing making the hamburger steak, I put it in front of everyone's seat and sat in my own seat. We all said our prayers and took the first bite. I saw everyone with blissful expression, even Nurse Joy, which made me content and I started eating too. After finishing eating, we all said goodbye and went to our rooms. Time sipped to next morning. After my regular morning training, I made breakfast and called everyone and we ate our breakfast while discussing our future. I told them, since our schedule of defeating all gyms in like 9 days was delayed, we will travel on my car faster and do 1 gym at a time and then spend the rest of the time training and a few dates of course. Ria, Momo and Jirou smiled while Nurse Joy looked amused and asked, "Where's your car?" Ash said, "It's in my PD which I created using psychic powers." Nurse Joy looked shocked but said, "I think Sabrina will definitely be interested, she is one of the strongest psychic power holder." I was surprised since though she only had psychic Pokemon but not psychic powers and I also want to learn telekinesis which is the ability to move objects using brain waves which is an advanced psychic technique. I only know how to create PD and communicate with Pokemon using my psychic powers but I have a full grasp on my aura powers. After chatting for a while we said goodbye to Nurse Joy and started walking to Saffron City Gym which is 10 minutes away by walk. After reaching the gym, I was surprised to see Ash leaving the gym and the gym leader saying goodbye to him. He ASW me and immediately made his way to me along with Misty and Brock and gave me a brotherly hug and said, "I am finally ahead of you in gym badges." And grinned. I said, "Well, I took some time to train one of my Pokemon so I had to waste 2.5 weeks. I then saw Misty chatting with Momo and Jirou and Brock looking confused at Ria. I then remembered they haven't met each other and said, "This is Rhea, formerly known as Nurse Joy of Vermilion City." Brock looked shocked and went to a corner and started crying, mumbling, "Even Nurse Joy." I then turned to Misty, who was sighing, and Ash, who was chuckling at Brock, and asked, "So how was your battle?" He then explained how he was able to beat Sabrina and help bring her emotions back. I was proud of him and patted his head, saying, "Good job, Ash. You better get going if you don't want me to catch up to you after defeating this gym." He immediately called his friends and bolted out with them. I chuckled and the girls giggled, and I made my way to Sabrina, who was talking with a man who looked like her father. But since I wanted to surprise her, I used my telepathic power to send a message to her, since she is also a psychic. I sent, "Hey Sabrina, fellow psychic." Suddenly she looked around alarmed, but when she laid her eyes on me, I sheepishly smiled and waved. She also smiled and made her way to us and said, "It'd been a long time since I met another psychic user." I then introduced myself and my companions to her, and we went inside while talking to each other. After reaching the gym, we stood at either side, and her father went to the middle and said, "This is a 1vs1 gym battle between Sabrina, the Saffron City gym leader, and Izuku, the challenger. Release your Pokemon." She pulled out a Pokeball with telekinesis and said, "Come out, Alakazam." I smirked and said, "Come on out, Dragonite." She looked shocked but regained her composure and said, "Alakazam, use Psychic and lift that Dragonite." I immediately said, "Dragonite, immediately use Surf." And as soon as Dragonite released a powerful tsunami, Dragonite got caught in Alakazam's Psychic, but since it is concentrating on Dragonite, it got hit with a full force Surf and it was super effective. Dragonite got released from Psychic, but Sabrina ordered, "Alakazam, use Rest." I immediately said, "Dragonite, quick use Aerial Ace before it uses Rest." And in a blink of eye Alakazam got hit by a strong Aerial Ace and fainted. Sabrina's father said, "Alakazam fainted, so the match goes to Izuku and Dragonite." Immediately Dragonite came and hugged me. Sabrina returned her Pokemon and came to me and said, "Thanks for making my last battle memorable." I was confused and asked, "What do you mean last battle?" She replied, "Well, I now realized my dream to travel everywhere. Before I was controlled by my emotions, but I need to search for a new gym leader before I retire." I gave her a warm smile and said, "Well, can you help me with my psychic powers, Sabrina-sensei?" with a wink. She blushed beet red while I chuckled and said, "That was but I do want to learn more about psychic powers from you, since I will be traveling around the world. We can both help each other with our dream." She thought for a while and answered, "All right, Izuku, I will teach you more and travel with you, but I need a week to search for a gym leader to replace me." I nodded and said, "I will use that 1 week to collect all badged and come back here." She looked confused. We started going out of the gym while the Momo, Jirou and Rhea were talking to Sabrina's father. Sabrina asked, "How will you collect 4 more badges in only 1 week?" I grinned and brought out a big PD circle, and out came my car in tip-top shape. Sabrina looked shocked and paralyzed. I chuckled and said, "Well, that's how." She then looked at me with stars in her eyes and said, "Oh, you have to teach me the legendary pocket dimension." I nodded and she was fully excited. I then said, "It's time for me to if I want to reach the next city." She looked a bit sad but said, "Well, see you in a week," and gave me a hug. I was a bit surprised but returned it even though I was blushing madly. I looked at the girls who were laughing at my reaction along with Sabrina's father. We then said goodbye to them and got in the car, and I started drive towards the highway which leads us straight to Celadon City, where I can battle grass-type gym leader Erika. Celadon City was exactly 70 kilometers away from Saffron City by highway, so I should be able to reach there by afternoon and eat lunch and either challenge Erika or assist the girls in shopping for perfumes, which is another thing Celadon City and Erika is famous for. Third-person POV. We see that our gang has just arrived in Celadon City after hour-and-a-half drive. Izuku drove straight to the nearby restaurant since all of them were very hungry. They soon found a restaurant right next to the Pokemon Center. Izu parked at the car at the Pokemon Center parking area and got out along with Momo, Jirou, Rhea and Gardy, who got out her Pokeball halfway through the journey to Celadon City. The gang walked into the restaurant and were greeted by a waiter who said, "Hello. Welcome to Author Restaurant. I assume you need a table for 5? Izuku smiled and replied, "Yes, please." The waiter bowed and took the gang to a table big enough for all 5 of them and said, "Please ring the bell whenever you guys are ready to order food," and left. The gang settled down and looked through the menu and ordered their food. Izuku's POV. After 15 minutes, we got our order and immediately dug into the food and paid out bill and left to go to the Celadon gym. I returned Gardy and the rest of us resumed walking towards the gym. While walking I noticed the pleasant smell in the air by my aura-enhanced smelling but paid no mind to it as we kept walking towards Celadon gym. After 10 minutes, I am finally in front of the Celadon gym along with my lover and I pushed open the door and we were immediately hit by a wave of the best smelling perfume I ever smelled. Momo and Jirou immediately ran inside while Ria said to me, "Erika is famous for researching these perfumes, even I want to buy some." 3 I smiled and said, "Sure, go ahead." Ria then smiled and went over to Momo and Jirou who were testing a few perfumes. A few shopkeepers were helping them while I went to one and asked, "Excuse me ma'am, may I know where I can find Miss Erika to challenge her to a Pokemon battle?" With a gentle smile. The shop lady then said, "PLS wait for a few minutes, I will call Miss Erika here," and she left for the stairs and I went towards Jirou who looks troubled between choosing 2 different perfumes. I put my head on her shoulder surprising her a bit and said, "Why not let me choose love, I have a great sense of smell." She smiled and showed me the 2 different colored perfume bottles, one was black and the other one was dark violet. I took a sniff of them both and made a decision of which would be better on Kyoka and I came to a decision and said, "The dark violet one suits you better Kyoka." She smiled and went to the cashier with Ria and Momo to pay for the perfume. After the girls purchased their perfumes, we all sat down at the chairs and waited for Erika to arrive here. After a while I saw Erika coming down with the same shopkeeper whom I asked for audience with Erika. I then went towards her and extended my arm saying, "Hello Miss Erika. I am Izuku and I am here to challenge you to a gym battle for the Celadon gym badge." She shook my hand and said, "I will accept your challenge, let's head to the battlefield." We arrived at the battle furlas surrounded by trees, flowers, grass and open sky for grass types to absorb solar energy for certain attacks. Erika and I proceeded towards our battle stations and the referee came in the middle and announced, "This is a 2vs2 gym battle between Erika the Celadon City gym leader and Izuku the challenger. The challenger is allowed to substitute his Pokemon." She then looks towards the both of us and said, "Trainers, bring out your first Pokemon." I took a Pokeball and enlarged it and threw it while saying, "It's battle time, Combusken." My Combusken came out as ready as ever for a battle. Erika had a look of confusion for a moment but it quickly went away as she pulled out a Pokeball, enlarged it and threw it saying, "Come on out Vileplume." Out came a Vileplume looking like. The referee said, "Let the battle begin." Erika commanded. Vileplume used sleep powder. Out of the hole on the top of itself came a silver sparkly gas spreading quickly. I immediately ordered, "Use flamethrower to tear through the sleep powder." Combusken released a powerful flamethrower which didn't allow the sleep powder to spread but Vileplume seems to have dodged the flamethrower. Erika commanded, "Use solar beam, Vileplume." I knew it would take time to charge the attack so I ordered, "Combusken, use dig." I searched Pokédex and it turns out that Combusken can learn dig through TM or training. Combusken immediately dug into the ground avoiding Vileplume's solar beam and I commanded, "Use fire punch Combusken." Combusken shot out the ground behind Vileplume and gave it a full-powered fire punch effectively knocking out Vileplume. After seeing the swirls around Vileplume's eyes, the referee announced, "The gym leader's Vileplume has been defeated so this round goes to Izuku and Combusken." I saw Erika congratulating her Pokemon and returning it while Combusken came towards me and gave me a high five which I returned with same enthusiasm. The referee then announced, "May the gym leader release her final Pokemon." Eric then grabbed a Pokeball and enlarged it and threw it while saying, "Come on out Victreebel." Erika ordered the first move, Victreebel, use Vine Whip. Victreebel immediately shot out 2 vines and hit Combusken with it. I commented, "Not bad, Victreebel is pretty fast." I shouted, "Combusken use quick attack to get close and hit it with sky uppercuts." Combusken immediately closed the distance between itself and Victreebel and hit it 2 times with a powerful sky uppercuts. Erika asked, "Are you okay Victreebel?" Victreebel nodded but a bit weakly and exhausted. Erika commended, "Victreebel use Razor Leaf." I smirked and said, "Combusken burned the Razor Leaf and Victreebel with a flamethrower." Combusken's flamethrower has easily gotten rid of Razor Leaf and hit Victreebel dead on. Victreebel fell down with swirls in its eyes. The referee took a look and announced, "Victreebel has fainted and Erika has run out of Pokemon, so the victor of this gym battle is Izuku." I gave Combuskin a nice fist bump and said, "You are getting a lot stronger, pal, let's keep it up." I saw Erika returning Victory Bell and is coming towards me. Erika said, "You are a powerful and tactical trainer, Izuku. Keep it up," and handed me the Celadon gym badge. I then gave her a huge smile and said, "Thanks for the battle, Miss Erika," and bowed a bit. She chuckled and replied, "No problem," and I then got tackled Y3 masses to the ground and I heard Momo, Jirou and Ria saying, "Congrats Izu, Zuzu, Zuku," and I pat them all on the head for a minute and got up. Gym after saying goodbye to. We left the gym after saying goodbye to Erika and walked towards the Pokemon Center while planning on when to go to Fuchsia City Gym, where the gym leader is a ninja named Koga. After we reached the Pokemon Center, I booked 2 rooms with 2 bedrooms and Ria was chatting with Nurse Joy and I went sent out Flareon so I can brush its tail. Momo and Kyoka were playing with their Eevee and Vulpix while Ria was bonding with her newly caught Pikachu. After spending the rest of the evening relaxing, I asked the Nurse Joy if I can use the kitchen. She gave me the permission, so I am now thinking of what to make. I told him I guess I will make some katsudon. I cheerfully started cooking katsudon with a smile. After 15 minutes, I finished cooking and I yelled, "Girls, dinner is ready." Momo and Ria were first to come down and jump on me and tackling me onto the girl while snuggling into my chest. I chuckled at their clingy attitude and pat their head while I see Nurse Joy taking pictures and Jirou pouting. Momo and Ria got off me and I went to Jirou and gave her a small peck on her cheek while she hugged me and nuzzled into my chest while I started patting her head. After our lover antics, we started eating. Nurse Joy was shocked and asked for the recipe to make it. I said, "Sure, give me your phone. I will save it in your notepad." She nodded and gave me her phone and I wrote the recipe and saved it under katsudon and gave it back to her. She smiled cheerfully and took it back. I looked at the clock and observed that the time was 7:30 p.m. so I went out for a walk with Gardy. We were walking in the nearby park with our hands intervened and a small smile on our faces along with a small blush. We were talking to each other about the recent events and about Momo, Jirou and Ria. I then asked, "Are you unhappy with sharing me? I mean you were the one who proposed the idea but I wanna ask if you were in a way not pleased with it." Gardy looked at me and smiled and replied, "They are like sisters to me and not rivals. I don't regret anything Izuku. The girls are nice and even though I have to stay in Pokeball most of the time, you still show us all equal attention and affection even though it's a bit high towards me." I replied, "Of course it's a bit high towards high. We have been dating since 2 years and you helped me realize so many things and I am really happy that I met you." Gardy smiled and we leaned in and kissed softly. We separated but I held her by her waist and pulled her in for another kiss. This time she wrapped her hands around my neck and stood on her heels as we kissed more passionately. I then opened my mouth a bit and licked her lower lip for entrance. She opened our mouth and I pulled her more towards my chest and had our tongues wrestling against each other as I eventually got dominance and explored her mouth. After 2 minutes, we separated for air with a small string of each other's saliva and she hugged me and put her head on my chest snuggling against it. After a while we separated and I looked at the time and said, "It's 8:30 p.m. I guess we lost the track of time. Let's go back." Gardy giggled and replied, "Yes love, let's go back." We walked as we held each other's hand to the Pokemon Center to sleep. After arriving at the Pokemon Center, we went towards the room I booked and saw that Ria was asleep on her bed. I smiled and looked at the next door to see Momo and Kyoka sleeping peacefully on their respective beds. I then went back to my room and got in the bed with Gardy and I hugged her and she snuggled into my chest and I said, "Good night, my sweet Gardy." I then heard her say, "Good night, my love," and we fell asleep. Izuku's paw. The alarm rang and I woke up and shut it off and looked beside me to Gardy slowly waking up. I started stretching myself a bit to pop my muscles back into place as well as slowly losing the drowsiness. I then turned to Gardy who was now full awake and said, "Good morning my green beauty." She giggled and said, "Good morning my broccoli." I pouted and said, "Hey, I'm not a broccoli." She giggled and gave me a morning kiss which I melted into. After a few seconds we separated and I heard a door opening sound and I looked to see Momo and Jirou pouting while looking at me and Gardy while I saw Ria who was on the other bed staring with jealousy. I chuckled and went to each one of them and gave a morning kiss to them and we then headed downstairs to the kitchen to see Nurse Joy cooking breakfast. I then went to the kitchen towards Nurse Joy and said, "Please let me help Nurse Joy." Nurse Joy smiled and nodded as I took a knife and started cutting some fruits and some vegetables for salad. After eating and complimenting the breakfast, we then said goodbye to the nurse and went to my car. I took out my keys and unlocked the door as I opened for Momo, Jirou and Ria and got in onto the driver's seat and started the car. I took to see I had 60% electricity left in the car battery, which I knew was enough to reach Fuchsia City Gym. 30 minutes into the journey as I was driving at 100 km/h enjoying the smooth roads and good scenery while listening to Jirou singing while Momo and Ria were asleep, I then saw a injured Snivy, to which was shocked considered it's a Unova Pokemon. I immediately applied the brakes and the car skid to a stop, which woke up Momo and Ria while Jirou almost hit her head but was saved by the seat belt. I immediately bolted out the car to the injured and unconscious Snivy. I immediately took out a super portion out of my PD and sprayed it on its injuries while taking out a bottle of water for it to drink in case it's thirsty for water. After swallowing some water, it woke up and looked at me and then immediately got up while tugging at my feet and pointing to a direction. I then said, "I can understand what you speak, Snivy. What's wrong?" The Snivy looked shocked but said, "My friend is in danger. He was protected me and I was forced to run away." I immediately told it to show me the place where she left her protector at high speed as it started running fast. I turned to the girls and said, "Girls, stay here. I will be right back." The girls nodded as I took out my Dragonite and said, "Protect the girls." My Dragonite nodded and I immediately enhanced myself with Aura and took off at the direction where Snivy ran, and I soon caught up to it. After running for a minute, I saw a heavily injured Garchomp battling against a Glaceon and Regice, which were commanded by what looked like two Team Galactic admins. I immediately took our Melodic and Gardevoir's Pokeballs and tossed them in the air and said, "Melodic, use Scald on Glaceon and Regice, and Gardevoir use Heal Pulse on Garchomp." Gardevoir healed Garchomp's injuries and stood in front of him protectively while Melodic knocked out Glaceon and Regice with hot steaming blast of water. I then used my aura and knocked out the admins and tied them up with a rope in my PD. I then turned to Garchomp, who was holding a crying Snivy, and asked, "What happened?" Garchomp turned to us and said, "Those men suddenly turned up out of nowhere and tried to capture Snivy as it knew Hydro Pump. I then escaped with Snivy from Sinnoh region to here, but we were still chased and I was tired, so I was unable to fight back much." I nodded, understanding why they were trying to chase these two Pokemon. I turned to Gardevoir and said, "Gardevoir, use Psychic to drag those deviants beside us till we get to our car." Gardevoir nodded and I turned to Garchomp and Snivy and said, "What you plan since you are very far away from your home region?" Garchomp looked at Snivy and asked, "It's your choice, little Snivy." Snivy then looked at me and asked, "Can you make me strong, mister?" I smiled and said, "I will make sure to train you with love and care." Snivy jumped into my arms as Garchomp looked at me and said, "Please take care of us, kind trainer." I smiled and took out two Pokeballs from my PD and turned to Garchomp and Snivy, who looked confused. I chuckled and explained about my abilities as they understood about my powers. We then walked back to my car and I was tackled, my girls asking me, "Are you okay? Why did you run so suddenly? And, are you injured?" I smiled and patted their heads while saying, "I am Fina. I was just helping this Snivy and its guardian from poachers who were on the floor behind Gardevoir." They nodded as I returned all my Pokemon and put their Pokeballs in my PD pocket dimension, in case you forgot the short form of PD. I then took out my phone and dialed the police number. After a few rings I heard a familiar female voice answering, "Hello 108, what is your emergency?" I answered, "I have captured two admins from Team Galactic, which is an evil organization situated in Sinnoh. I have tied them up and I am presently 30 kilometers away from Celadon City on the way to Fuchsia City." I then heard Officer Jenny reply, "Thanks for capturing such criminals. I will arrive as soon as possible. Please wait for my arrival since I am in Celadon City." After 20 minutes I heard siren and saw to see Officer Jenny approaching at high speeds on her Jeep. When she arrived I said, "Wow, officer, you must have hit the gas pedal hard to arrive this fast." She replied, "I had to push the limits on that Jeep to 140 km/h. She then put handcuff and confiscated the admin's Pokemons and saluted me while thanking me and walked away. I then got in the car and started resuming my journey to Fuchsia City. After an hour we have reached Fuchsia City and are currently in front of the gym, which looks like an old-fashioned ninja castle. I then knocked on the main door and waited. After a minute the door opened to see a man in his 20s in a ninja cosplay outfit, with a younger girl beside him, which I assume is his sister. The man said, "I am Koga, the gym leader of Fuchsia City. I said, I am Izuku and these are my group members as we travel together with different goal but same way to achieve them. He then signaled us to follow him. After walking for a minute, we arrived at a battlefield as the girl who looked to be his sister opted to act as referee. She shouted, "This is Fuchsia City Gym battle between Fuchsia City Gym leader Koga and Izuku the challenger. This is a 2 vs 2 battle, only the challenger is allowed to substitute his Pokemon. Trainers bring out your first Pokemon." I took out a Pokeball and enlarged it and said, "Come on out Flareon." Out came Flareon looking as cuddly as ever. Seriously, it looks so fluffy and huggable. My second favorite Pokemon. Koga said, "Looks like you are well informed about gyms." I replied, "Information is key to battle." He replied, "Well, for a ninja information is important but you seem very unpredictable." Koga then took out a Pokeball and threw it saying, "Come on out Muck." I was a bit on the edge since Muck is not that weak against fire types like other poison types. 1. The referee said, "Let the battle begin." I immediately started with, "Use Flame Charge Flareon." Koga looked a bit confused but said, "Dodge Muck." Muck moved quickly and avoided Flame Charge and I said, "Use Flame Charge till you hit." Koga said, "Stop it with Mud Shot." But Flareon was faster due to the effect of Flame Charge and was able to dodge the Mud Shot and hit Muck head on, which was quite effective against it. Koga then said, "Luck, quick use Sludge Bomb." I yelled, "Flareon, quick dodge it." Flareon was able to dodge a few but was hit by it and poisoned. I then said, "Flareon, use Overheat." And Koga said, "Muck, use Gunk Shot." Both powerful moves hit against each other and rose some smoke on the battlefield. After a few seconds, the smoke was revealed, Flareon still standing but heavily damaged and poisoned, and Muck fainted with swirls in its eyes. The referee then yelled, "Muck has fainted, so this round goes to Ash and his Flareon." I then took out a Poison Heal and Hyper Potion from my PD, which was not noticed by Koga, and ran towards Flareon and gave it the Poison Heal and sprayed her with Hyper Potion. After a minute, Flareon was recovered as the referee said, "Bring out your final Pokemon Koga." 1. Koga took out a Pokeball and said, "Come on out Venusaur." I then took out Flareon's Pokeball and said, "Return Flareon, you did amazing and deserve some rest." Flareon returned to its Pokeball as I put it in my PD and took out another Pokeball and said, "Come on out Dragonite." Out came a Dragonite bigger than usual one. The referee yelled, "Let the second round begin." Koga started it of my saying, "Use Vine Whip, Venusaur." I smirked and said, "Grab the vines and slam it to the wall Dragonite." Before Venusaur could hit Dragonite, Dragonite took hold of the vines and roared, and he swung Venusaur towards a wall, forming cracks on it with impact. Koga then said, "Use Sludge Bomb." I said, "Fly around to dodge it and then use Flare Blitz." Dragonite dodged the Sludge Bomb and immediately used Flare Blitz on Venusaur, which caused it to faint on impact as Dragonite took a little recoil damage from the move. The referee looked at Venusaur and said, "Koga's Venusaur has fainted. This match goes to the challenger Izuku." I then hugged Dragonite and it hugged back and returned it and put its Pokeball in my PD and then went towards Koga, who was waited at the middle of the field with his sister holding a small decorated box. He then said, "You were easily overpowering me with tactics. You deserve the Fuchsia Gym badge Izuku," as he handed me the badge. We then shook hands and I said goodbye to them and went out to see my girls waited for me as they congratulated me on my victory. I looked at the time to be 2 p.m. I turned to the girls and said, "Let's celebrate with a lunch date at a nice restaurant nearby." The girls cheered as we got in the car and I put the location to a restaurant with the best rating in the city and started driving towards it. Third person POV. In the last chapter we saw Izuku defeating Koga and is currently driving towards a good restaurant. Izuku's POV. I was driving towards the restaurant while the girls were in the back whispering to each other, including Gardy. I looked towards them and said, "Hey girls, what's up?" They looked at me and Momo said, "You always spend the night with Gardy. It's decided from now you will be our cuddle bear." I looked confused and asked, "We won't fit though." 1. Ria then answered, "I can ask for an empty room and we can place a bunch of mattresses on the floor to fit." I then said, "Okay, if you guys are comfortable with it." We reached the restaurant and I parked the car outside and got out of the car and opened the door for the girls as we went into the restaurant. We got in a table for 5 and rang the bell. The waiter came and we gave our order with Momo and Jirou along with me asking for Katsudon, and Ria and Gardy ordered some pork noodles. 15 minutes later, Our food just arrived and we said our prayers and started eating while complimenting the taste. We just finished eating as I rang the bell and the waiter arrived with our bill. I paid the money along with a $10 tip and we left the restaurant and went back into the car and left for Cinnabar Island, which is 200 kilometers away by highway, and I want to make it by evening. I then put the location on the map and started driving while the girls put on a video call with Sabrina, which they have been doing a lot. It took me 10 minutes to get onto the highway and it was a 6-lane highway. I wanted to test my car's top speed and I put it into turbo mode and started accelerating. The girls were holding on to the seats or each other, but Gardy came to the front seat beside me with an excited look. I was able to easily hit 120, 130, 145, 180 and 200 km/h. That's the top speed. Sweet, that's pretty good for a large car like this. I then slowed down to 130 and continued driving. My dog is biting my leg. T. 2 hours later, we just reached Cinnabar Island by crossing the underwater tunnel, which was surrounded by transparent material, and it was fun looking all the water Pokemon. I checked into the city and I then put the location to Pokemon Center and started driving according to the directions shown by the Google Maps. The girls were still on the video call by Sabrina, who was cross with me when I hit 200 km/h. After a few turns, we arrived at the Pokemon Center and it is 5:30 p.m. The girls were exhausted and Rhea jumped on my back and told me, "Carry me, babe." I sighed and held her by her legs while she snuggled with my neck. I looked around to see Momo and Jirou pouting in jealousy while Rhea gave me a thumbs up. We got in and Rhea hugged her cousin as well, told Nurse Joy for empty room and mattresses. I then turned to the girls and said, "Since we still have time, I will quickly go to Cinnabar Gym while you girls have rest or do something, and Gardy can train Snivy and Garchomp while I am at the gym." The girls nodded as I took out Snivy and Garchomp's Pokeball and tossed them in the air and said, "Come one out Snivy and Garchomp." Out came Snivy and Garchomp and looked at me awaiting instructions. I pat their head and told them, "Gardevoir here will train you both as I will be going to a gym battle." Snivy nodded and Garchomp also nodded but said, "Please use me in the next gym. I want to see my strength." I nodded since I knew dragon types love battling. I then took the rest of the Pokeballs out of the PD and said, "Come on out Combuskin, Melodic, Dragonite, Flareon, Lucario." They all came out ready for my instructions and I said, "You will all train while keeping an eye out for danger while Melodic and I go to Cinnabar Gym." They nodded as they went to train while Melodic wrapped around me and gave me a hug and went into the Pokeball. 1. I then started running normally towards Cinnabar Gym since it was a kilometer away. After 3 minutes I arrived and went into the volcano, which I think is the gym. I then arrived at the battleground and announced, "I am here for the gym battle." I then saw a silhouette come out of the shadows as he said, "I accept your challenge, trainer, and this will be a 1vs1 battle as I have no one to announce the rules." I then went towards my corner as Blaine was in his. Blaine took out a Pokeball and said, "Come on out Magmar." I smirked knowing it will be a fire type and took out a Pokeball and threw it saying, "Come on out Melodic, it's time to kick ass." Melodic came out ready to battle. Blaine said, "I will take the first move. Magmar use flamethrower." Magmar threw a flamethrower towards Melodic as I yelled, "Melodic dodge and use surf." Melodic easily dodges it and roared as a huge surfing wave appeared with Melodic riding it. Blaine panicked and said, "Brace for impact." Magmar got into a defensive position as the avenue engulfed it and done tremendous damage. Melodic came back flying. Melodic can fly on ground. I checked it on Bulbapedia. To my side, the smoke cleared revealing a Magmar breathing heavily. I am impressed it didn't faint. Must have been trained against water types. Blaine then commanded, "Magmar use Fire Blast." A kanji-shaped fire headed towards Melodic as I said, "Counter with Hydro Pump." Melodic shot out a big blast of Hydro Pump, which countering the Fire Blast produced a lot of steam as the Hydro Pump hit Magmar. The steam faded revealing a heavily injured but still standing Magmar. I looked at Blaine and said, "Let's stop here. I don't think I want to damage Magmar anymore." Blaine smiled and agreed as he returned Magmar while I turned to Melodic and pat it saying, "You did good Melodic," and returned her. Blaine then approached me and said, "You are strong young man and thanks for stopping the battle or Magmar would have sustained a heavy injury." I said, "It's no problem." He then took out the badge from his pocket and gave it to me saying, "This is your badge as proof of winning here at Cinnabar Gym." I said, "Thanks." and took the gym badge and got out and looked at the phone and saw it was 7 p.m. I started walking back while looking at different kids and Pokemon playing with each other, some playing tag, some are kissing, so wait, hold up, kissing. I turned my head to my left and saw a girl somewhat being between 14 to 15 kissing its Scyther. Pokemon and human relations are allowed but some people frown at them. I then continued my walk back to the Pokemon Center. I then saw a kid with black hair and red eyes no older than maybe 7 approach me while pulling his mother by the hand and said, "Hey mister, did you beat Blaine?" I smiled and said, "Yep, I just got my badge." He had sparkles in his eyes and said, "Hey mister, I wanna be strong when I grow up, how should I train my friend Dratini?" I smiled at the boy thinking his Pokemon as friends and said, "Train its moves and bond with it more by spending more time with each other and one day you will be strong and I might battle you." He smiled and jumped around for a while and then said, "My name is Jaden and I will beat you in the future, mister." I smiled and said, "Right mister, Izuku." I smiled and looked at his mother who was smiling and said, "You have a good son. Shout out to little_Jaden who is my virtual little brother, check him out." The mother smiled and said, "Thank you Izuku, I wish you luck in the Indigo League and will cheer for you." I smiled and said, "Thanks ma'am, I will keep your support in my heart." And I started walking towards the Pokemon Center once again. After a few minutes I entered the Pokemon Center and went to the training ground to see Garchomp in a spar against Dragonite while Gardevoir is teaching Magical Leaf to Snivy, Lucario sparing with Combustion and Flareon practicing Overheat by using it against the sky. I clapped and got their attention as Flareon and Gardevoir tackled me onto the floor and the others have gathered around us chuckling at my state. I then got up and pat everyone for their good job and returned them into their Pokeballs and stored them away in PD and went to Nurse Joy at the reception. I said to Nurse Joy, "Which are the girls right now?" Nurse Joy smiled and said, "Room number 104 which is the last door to the right when you enter the first Joy." I thanked her and went to the room and knocked and waited till they opened but I heard a Momo's voice saying, "Who is it?" I then said, "It's Izuku." Momo then opened the door and pulled me in and pushed me down on the mattress my back on the mattress as she then jumped and snuggled into my chest. I smiled at her and hugged her waist and pulled her against me. I then felt 2 weights pressing against my sides. I looked to see Jirou and Ria snuggling against them. I chuckled and said, "We have to go for dinner." I saw Momo whine while Jirou was pouting and held me tighter and Ria was saying, "No, I am comfortable." I chuckled and I got an idea. I then said, "If you let me go, we can have some small tongue action." In almost an instant they all stood up smiling ear to ear. I chuckled as I got up slowly and said, "Who's first?" The girls looked at each other and Ria and Jirou nodded at each other and pushed Momo into my chest. I then lifted her by her chin and leaned and kissed her softly, and after a few seconds, I opened my mouth and pressed my tongue against her lips asking for entrance. As she opened her mouth, we had a battle of dominance, which I won. After a few seconds, I explored her mouth with my tongue. We slowly broke away with a string of saliva between us and a heavy blush on our faces. Momo smiled and snuggled into my chest for a few seconds and moves away with a beautiful smile. Then Jirou approached me and jumped up and wrapped her hands around my neck and her legs around my waist and I held her up by her thighs and she leaned in and immediately attacked me and as the surprise put her tongue into my mouth and exploring my mouth and tongue. I got back from my surprise but I pushed back her tongue and explored her mouth and tongue and we moved away breathing roughly as she smiled and hugged my chest snuggling into it and moved away with a cute giggle. I chuckled at her playfulness. 1. I was then pushed onto bed and Ria slowly crawled up and laid on me and leaned in and kissed me softly for a while as I pressed my tongue against her lip as she opened her lips and we went for a battle of dominance as I was loosing. I then held her by her waist surprising her and turned ourselves with Ria now below me and I started dominating her and explored her mouth and tongue and separated with a string of saliva and she then laid on my chest snuggling for a while and got up. I then pulled out Gardy's Pokeball and released her as she looked around and then changed into her human form and I suddenly pulled her around and kissed her roughly as she opened her mouth in surprise and I completely dominated her and explored her mouth and tongue fully and we both pulled away with a string of saliva. I was about to breath out in relief but Gardy immediately kissed me roughly and inserted her tongue forcefully and dominated me and I submitted into it as she separated from me and said, cinnamon flavor, just how I like it." I blushed heavily. I calmed down and said, "Let's go have dinner." Excitedly as the girls giggles and we went to have dinner which was laid out on the table, I pouted and whined, "Mo, I wanted to help with dinner." Nurse Joy chuckled and said, "Too late." I pouted more and sat down and said my prayer as I started eating and complimenting the chef who just smiled more. After the dinner we back to the room. I laid on the mattress first as HarshaJirou laid on me chest as Momo and Ria took my arms and snuggled against them. I know I will be sour in the morning but work it for their happy expressions. As I slowly fell asleep. Third person POV. Right after Izuku jumped off and died. Everyone screamed and rushed to call the ambulance after seeing the suicide. Some students vomited seeing a few bones and blood splattered everywhere. Bakugo was looking with wide eyes and tears running down with a hand outstretched towards the dead body of Izuku. The truth was most students were neutral towards Izuku Midoriya. He was a sweet schoolmate, always praising others and making others avoid being bullied and making people smile. Only half of his classmates were the true ones who hated and made sure to torment him and make sure to assert superiority on a quirkless freak as they described. There was one girl who was crying loudly, more than others. She was one of the only people who would talk calmly and friendly to Izuku. The others were scared of Bakugo's quirk which can destroy their bodies and his anger issues doesn't help the fact. Nanami Okia was an average girl with a minor telekinesis quirk. She has good grades and good personality. She always had a crush on the poor cinnamon roll. She complained to the teachers who shrugged it off as rough play. Seeing that even some the polices backed off after hearing the quirkless part, she had kept a secret camera on top of the board. Every bullying and illegal quirk use in class for previous 2 years was recorded as well as sometimes when she secretly recorded in her phone. She was gonna take Izuku to Yukyu's agency to inform everything but now. 1. Nanami turned to Bakugo and his goons with angry in her eyes and said, "This is your fault, this is all your fault, why? Why couldn't you just leave him alone? Why does he have to die because of your fault? I hope you suffer for the rest of your life for this, and goodbye to any chance of being a hero." Bakugo Katsuki. She quickly ran away crying while some of her friends ran after her to console her. Everyone turned to Izuku's body which was now wet and the blood was washed away with the rain. Something cream-type substance came from skin. Everyone gasped in horror at the amount of scars on the back of the boy. From blasts to knife cuts, black punch marks, everyone started moving away from Bakugo's squad while saying, "You guys are crazy, what the fuck? OMG, that is so many scars. He was hiding under a cream. Bakugo's gang are the real villains. Stay away from them." Everyone stayed away from Bakugo and his goons as the ambulance took away Izuku's body while the doctor in the van was looking with tears at the amounts of scars. Bakugo's goons quickly grabbed Bakugo who was still crying and in a trance and started running towards Bakugo's house hoping to get help from Bakugo's dad since he is a lawyer. After running while dragging Bakugo, the goons could see everyone staring at them with disgust and rage after listening to what Nanami said on news about the particular group of boys. The group reached Bakugo's home and knocked hard on the door. The door opened to see Bakugo's mom who is seething in anger. The goons ditched Bakugo and ran away like crazy while Bakugo who snapped out of his trance looked and flinched when he looked at his mom's seething face of anger. Mitsuki grabbed Bakugo collar and threw him inside the home into the hall on the floor. Bakugo looked up to see his dad looking at him in pure disgust and disappointment. Bakugo was unable to form words seeing the looks at his father's face. Bakugo was then grabbed by Mitsuki who yanked him up to her eye level. Bakugo for once in his life was unable to look at someone in their eyes. Mitsuki then asked, "Did you really tell Izuku to jump off the roof and hope for a quirk in next life? Is it also true that you were bullying him every day as said by that girl on news which is playing?" Bakugo looked shocked but turned to the TV to see everything was recorded and was being played while everyone was giving their negative opinions. Bakugo then looked down and nodded. Mitsuki started sobbing as she let down Bakugo as she said, "Why? How long has this been going?" Bakugo flinched but said, "Since we were 6. Bakugo was then slapped on his face. He looked to see his father with outstretched hand, a look of pure anger on his face. Mitsuki then started sobbing more as she said, I promised Inko sob at her last breath that I will take care of Izuku sob. But how can I say that my own son is the killer of the one I am supposed to sob *pp protect. Bakugo tried to reach for his mom but Mitsuki quickly hit his arm away and yelled, "Don't touch me, I don't know why you thought it is good idea, no wonder Izuku stopped coming here, oh god, Where did I go wrong raising you? You were lying the entire time saying that you were protecting Izuku in school against others. Bakugo couldn't look anywhere but his feet. His father said, those scars. Katsuki, you were using your quirk on him. Do you how much damage explosions do? Your mom vomited when she saw those scars after the rain which washed away the cream hiding the scars. I don't think I can ever consider you our son again. Bakugo stared, widening his eyes, thinking they are disowning me. A knock then came to the front door, to which Masaru told, that might be the heroes. Go open the door, dear. I will make sure Katsuki doesn't run. Bakugo cried as his own father was thinking him as a villain. Mitsuki went towards the door, wobbling while still crying. She opened the door to see angry faces of Yukio and Maruko, as well as a lot of police outside with media. Yukio then said, Ms. Bakugo, we are here to arrest Katsuki Bakugo, who has been declared a villain for illegal quirk use against others, suicide baiting, leading on others against the deceased Izuku Midoriya, and many more. Mitsuki nodded as she stepped aside and pointed into the hallway. The pro-heroines nodded and went inside as they came upon the scene of the newly declared villain restrained to a chair with his presumed father standing guard. The heroine didn't say a word as they put quirk-canceling cuff and pulled the now arrested villain into the police cop as the police drove away, leaving the two pro-heroines with the Bakugo parents, who are now being surrounded by media. Third person POV. Our group is in the car with Izuku driving towards Viridian City, which is 68 kilometers away from their location. Momo and Jirou are playing Uno on their mobiles with Ria, while Gardy is chatting with Izuku in the front seat. Izuku's POV.bit. I am thinking about what to do at the last gym, run by Giovanni, and in no fixed type of Pokemon to use. I am planning on using my new 3 aka Combusken, Garchomp and Snivy, since Snivy is close to evolution. I then looked beside to see Gardy humming to a song on Poketube. I said, like singing. Gardy giggled and said, I would say it's relaxing. Quote. I nodded as I turned my attention on the road. I saw that the time was 2 p.m. I then parked the car to the side and looked at the girls and said, let's have our lunch now. It would take another 30 to 40 minutes to reach the Viridian City Pokemon Center. They nodded as we all got out of the car and walked a bit to an empty clearing. I then took out a picnic cloth as well our packed lunches which we brought from a restaurant in Cinnabar Island. We said our prayers and started eating. I then turned to the girls and said, after defeating this gym, we will have total 2 months of time till the Pokemon League begins. How do you guys want to spend it? The girls then whispered amongst each other and Momo said, well, all this month, we have been in the car cruising around the region. We did do some shoppings and sightseeing, but I want to go on separate dates, so why don't you take 2 of us on a date in a week and 3 the next week? I smiled and nodded, thanks. I will have time for training too then, which is good for Snivy and Combusken. We resumed eating, and as soon as we were done, I released all my Pokemon, 8 in total. I have permit to carry my Pokemons with mice since I have a PD to carry anything. I put the Pokemon's respective Pokemon food into their bowls and watched as they ate it peacefully. After 20 minutes me and Lucario noticed something as they looked at a bush which seems to be shaking a bit. I then exclaimed a bit loudly, whoever is in the bush, please come out kindly before I force you to. After a bit more shaking, an Eevee with an excited smile came out. She came closer as it said, nice human, you were able to sense me even if I was hidden, and I see you have a lot of strong friends with you. I would like to challenge your Snivy for a battle. 1. I looked at Snivy, who said, why not? Would be a good exercise after eating lunch. I nodded as I turned to the Eevee and said, me and Snivy are ready for the battle. Eevee gave an excited cry as it jumped back to gain some distance, and Snivy came to the opposite side and got onto battle stance awaiting instructions. Eevee started with Swift. A cluster of stars were coming towards Snivy as I said, use Protect and then use Leaf Storm. Snivy quickly deployed a green barrier and protected herself from the Swift and immediately released a Leaf Storm after the barrier stopped all the Swifts. The Leaf Storm hit Eevee, who tanked through it while taking damage. Eevee then came in with a quick attack and hit Snivy, who couldn't dodge it and was launched back a few meters. Snivy got up and I commanded, Snivy use Quick Attack to get close and Leaf Blade. Snivy quickly used Quick Attack to get in front on Eevee, who was surprised at the sudden show of speed and hit Eevee with a Leaf Blade and sent Eevee flying towards the tree. Eevee was already damaged from the Leaf Blade and on colliding with the tree, it fainted. I threw a Pokeball, hitting and capturing Eevee successfully. I then released it and applied some potion spray on it. As I watched it return to consciousness, Eevee then looked at me with a smile and nodded as I understood its demeanor. I then went towards the girls who were silent towards the whole ordeal. Jirou first said, "That was a good battle, Izuku. Snivy has improved a lot." Momo followed up quickly and excitedly, "I agree, it was so fast. Is it close to evolving?" I nodded at Momo's question and turned towards Ria, who said, "Nice job capturing a Eevee, Izu." I smiled as we all went to pack up our picnic material. After 10 minutes, we finished packing as I put all the stuff into my PD and we got into the car and I started driving towards Viridian City. After 20 minutes of speed driving, we arrived at the entrance where an officer checked my license and let me in. I turned on the map and put the location to Pokemon Center and I started driving again while the others are planning the future dates in Saffron City after I finish my last gym battle. After 5 minutes, we arrived at the Pokemon Center and parked the car and we entered through the automatic entrance as Ria greeted the Viridian City Nurse Joy. I gave my Pokeballs to the Nurse Joy, 9 in total with Dragonite, Flareon, Eevee, Snivy, Garchomp, Combusken, Melodic, Lucario, Gardevoir. I went to the couches in the area to wait till my Pokemon are checked and healed while Momo and Jirou are in a call with Sabrina, who has announced that she had found a replacement gym leader for Saffron Gym. Ria is helping the Nurse Joy while I am here just scrolling through Pokegram on my phone. After 30 minutes, Nurse Joy and Ria came back as I went to the counter and Nurse Joy said, "Your Pokemon are in perfect condition. You may take them and please take care of my sister." I smiled as I nodded and placed 6 Pokeballs around my belt and the remaining 3 in my PD. I then went to where Ria joined with Momo and Jirou and said, "I will go for the gym battle while you guys can come with me or go for a little shopping on your own." The girls discussed for a while with each other as they chose to go shopping. I then gave my card and car keys to Ria, who can drive, and started walking towards Viridian Gym, which is 2 kilometers away. Seeing the distance, I started to go into a running speed and I reached the gym in 10 minutes. There were 2 knightly-looking bodyguards at the entrance. One of them stopped me and said, "Please show 7 gym badges in order to challenge Viridian City Gym Leader." I nodded as I took out my badge case and opened it. The guard nodded as he opened the door and let me in. As I arrived at the battlefield, in the opposite corner is a man wearing a orange suit waiting on a throne with a Persian sleeping by his leg. The Persian spoke as it sensed me and I said, "I am here to challenge Giovanni, the gym leader of Viridian City." The man smirked arrogantly as he pet his Persian and said, "Very well, I accept your challenge. BTW Izuku is 1 week earlier than Gary at the gym, which means Mewtwo is not yet complete to be tested." Giovanni stood up as he signaled the referee, who said, "This is a 2-on-2 battle between Giovanni, the gym leader of Viridian City versus Izuku from Hoenn region. Only the trainer is allowed to substitute his Pokemon. Now release your first Pokemon." Giovanni smirked. He enlarged a Pokeball and threw it while saying, "Come on out, Golem." I then took a Pokeball and threw it after enlarging it, saying, "It's time for a battle, Combusken." Both Pokemon appeared on the battlefield looking fiercely at each other while Giovanni said, "A Pokemon not from Kanto, huh? Interesting," and smiled bit darkly. The referee said, "Let the battle begin." I immediately commanded, "Combusken, use Sky Uppercut." Combusken immediately closed in on the distance and punched Golem, sending it towards a nearby boulder as it took a lot of damage from the fighting type move. Giovanni commanded, "Golem, use Roll Out." Golem started rolling towards Combusken at a high speed. I commanded, "Combusken, use Dig." Combusken went inside the ground avoiding the rollout and Giovanni commanded, "Golem, use Earthquake." Golem them jumped and landed, causing an earthquake around the field as Combusken flew out and landed looking damaged from the earthquake while being underground. I said, "All right, Combusken, use Quick Attack and Blaze Kick." Combusken vanished in a streak of white light and coated its leg with fire, giving a harsh kick to the Golem, who sent flying towards the wall and took a lot of damage. Seeing as the Golem was close to fainting, I said, "Combusken, use Overheat." Combusken let loose a roar of huge flames at Golem, who wasn't able to avoid it and therefore fainted. The referee raised the flag towards me and said, "Golem is unable to continue, so the first round goes to Combusken and Izuku." Giovanni sighed as he returned Golem and said, "You are a powerful trainer and quite intelligent to use your Pokemon's move at the right advantage. But let's see you against one of my strongest. Come on out, Nidoking." a Nidoking a bit larger than normal come onto the field and I took out 2 Pokeballs and used one to return combustion. I then enlarged the other Pokeball and threw it saying, "Come on out Garchomp. I can tell Snivy won't be able to handle this so I choose my Garchomp." Garchomp came onto the field and unleashed a roar shaking the arena a bit as it gave an intimidating look to Nidoking who was looking a bit scared. Giovanni said, "Another unknown Pokemon and looks mighty too. You are proving to be quite interesting." With an evil smile which is quite suspicious to me. The referee said, "Let round 2 begin." I started with, Garchomp use Earthquake. Garchomp gave of a roar stomping the ground which gave birth to a mighty earthquake twice as stronger than the one caused by Golem as Nidoking was flung into the air and onto the ground as it released a cry in pain. Giovanni grit his teeth as he commanded, "Shake it off, Nidoking use Hyper Beam." I immediately said, "Dodge using Dig and attack with Dragon Claw." Garchomp dug into the ground avoiding the Hyper Beam which made Nidoking not move as Garchomp came from its behind and struck twice with Dragon Claw sending the Pokemon towards the wall behind Izuku as it struggled standing up. Giovanni with annoyance dripping from his voice commanded, "Get up and use Body Slam, Nidoking." Nidoking gave a cry as it jumped onto the air towards Garchomp as I commanded, "Use Hyper Beam at it." Garchomp unleashed a large Hyper Beam towards the airborne Nidoking who couldn't dodge and got hit full force sending it to the ground unconscious as the referee announced, "All of the gym leaders' Pokemon have fainted, the match goes to Izuku," with the same blank look and emotionless voice. I was suspicious of this, but chose to keep to myself as I saw Giovanni coming towards me with a gym badge as I took it and left the gym. Izuku's paw. After I received the final badge that I needed, I left the gym and started walking towards the Pokemon Center to take a nap since the girls might take a while to be done with their shopping and it's only 5 p.m. right now. I started walking through the street looking around, a few couples on a date, trainers battling in the nearby park I can see. I then see a kid a horsey looking panicked while the horsey looks dehydrated. I jogged towards the boy and asked him, "Is there something wrong? Why is horsey pale and you are panicking?" The boy looked at me with tears threatening to fall and shakily said, I don't know Mr. R. Horsey was slowly getting pale and I didn't know what to do and I started panicking. I then slowly ruffled his hair to calm him down and said, "Quickly take it to the fountain in the park. Pokemon like Horsey who are native to the sea should not be out of water bodies for quite a period of time." The boy nodded as he quickly took off towards the direction of the park. I then resumed my journey back to the Pokemon Center. It was 5:30 p.m. by the time I came to the Pokemon Center. I first went to the Nurse Joy who greeted me, "Hello. Izuku, you seem to be done with your gym battle. Do you have any Pokemon that you want me to heal?" I replied yes as I set the Pokeballs of Garchomp, Snivy and Combustion on the tray placed in front of me by Chansey. I then went towards the room provided as I took of my shoes and hoodie and laid on the bed with black t-shirt and green track pant. Ria's paw. It's 6 p.m. and I just finished parking the car in the parking lot as the girls went inside. We just got back shopping, though we didn't buy anything as it was mostly window shopping, but we did try some local famous snacks which were quite good. I got in through the door as I waved at my lil sis who waved back and I turned to the sofas to see Momo, Jirou and Gardy chatting. I then asked, "Is Izuku back yet?" Momo answered me. Joy said Izuku gave her 3 Pokemon and went to the room. "Why don't you call him here, Ria? It will be time for dinner soon." I nodded as I made my way out room. I reached our room which we all were staying in and opened the door slightly to look at what Izuku is doing. I see his legs on the bed as I think probably taking a nap. Last few days were constant driving and gym battles. I opened the door quietly as I made my way to where Izuku was sleeping. I looked as Izuku was laying down peacefully with eyes closed, mouth slightly open and his chest slowly rising up and down. I thought he looked so peacefully as I slowly leaned in towards his lips in a daze. Right when our lips were about to meet, Izuku suddenly turned over in his sleep. I then get an idea. I climbed on the bed and slowly went over Izuku to the side he was facing and laid down beside him while looking at his face. I then pushed myself closer to his chest as I listened to his heartbeat and slowly lost my vision. Third person paw. We are now 30 minutes in with the time being 6:40 p.m. in the seating area of the Pokemon Center. We now see a confused Momo who suddenly asks, "Hasn't it been half an hour since Ria went to wake up Izuku? Why are they not here yet?" Jirou and Gardy shook their head as Jirou says, "Let's see what they are doing." The trio of Momo, Jirou and Gardy stood up from the couches as they make their way towards their room. Important note. People might think why I spend so much context on moments like this. Where it's picnic, lil moments as couples. The thing is I was a beginner in writing when I started this book, so I rushed the relationship a bit too fast. I wanna make up for that with their bond increasing over these little, cute moments, and I don't wanna fully focus on only battles and gyms. And I know for a fact that gym battles seem short, but Izuku has been training his Pokemon since 12 years, and only training and nothing else. The trio went inside the room as they spot Izuku and Ria on the bed sleeping peacefully, with Ria clinging to Izuku's chest and Izuku having an arm over Ria. Jirou was about to make a comment as Momo and Gardy put their hands over Jirou's mouth and silently dragged her mouth and closed the door. Jirou then says, I was just about to say it seems comfortable and you two just kidnapped me out of the room. Momo and Gardy sheepishly chuckle as Gardy says, well, they seem so peaceful that I didn't want to disturb them. Momo nodded as the trio decided to go back to their plans with Sabrina. Izuku's paw. I slowly woke up as I look at my watch to see it's 7 petameters. I felt something push against me as I looked to see Ria sleeping with her head in my chest and a smile on her face. I warmly smile as she might have came to wake me up but joined me instead. I remove my hand on her and use it to pet her hair slowly for a moment as she opens her eyes and blinks a bit before looking at me. I chuckle and said, someone seems to have a nice nap. Ria smiled as she said, you were in a bliss state and I didn't have the heart to wake you up and I joined you. I then said, come on, let's go to the cafeteria, it's time for dinner. Ria nods as I get up and stretch slightly. I look over to see Ria doing the same as we both adjusted our clothes a bit and went to the cafeteria. I enter the cafeteria with Ria beside me and I look to see the other three eating as they are discussing something. I made my presence known as I said, hey. The girls said their greetings as Ria started eating out food ordered by Momo. After 15 minutes, we all were done eating as and I said, let's take a stroll around the Pokemon Center and then go to sleep. The girls agreed as we went out of the door. TIMESKIP next morning. Third person POV. It's 5:30 a.m. and we look at a bedroom in which people are supposed to be sleeping at this time, but nope. We see the girls ready and Izuku just finished strapping his watch to his wrist. You might be wondering, why so early? Well, in order to get to Saffron City by road, which is 400 km away, they need 5 to 5.5 hours, so the gang decided to start early. The group then lock the room and go to the reception and hand over the room keys to Nurse Joy as Ria gives her sister a hug and all say their goodbyes as our group gets into the car, which was charged last light by Dragonite, and Izuku starts driving. Times KIP 5 hours. It's been 5 hours and Izuku is able to drive at a decent speed without any disturbances. The group ate their breakfast in the car itself cause Izuku had some packed in his PD pocket dimension. Izuku has shown his license to a police as he drove into the neighborhood where Sabrina now lives since she handed over her gym to another person. Izuku parked in the front of the house as Sabrina just came out of the house as she smiled and waved at the group. The girls immediately gave a group hug to Sabrina as Izuku shook hands with Sabrina. Sabrina said, well, there are 3 guest rooms for you guys and one of you have to share. Momo and Jirou looked at each other and gave a nod as Jirou said, Momo and I are willing to share a room. Sabrina nodded as she showed the group around the house. It was 11 a.m. at the moment and all of the Pokemon were released in the huge backyard. Izuku's new Eevee was playing with Momo's Eevee and Vulpix was excitedly talking with Flareon. Dragonite and Garchomp were looking over the young Pokemons. Snivy is conversing with Gardevoir and Lucario is training in hand-to-hand combat with Kamuskin. Melodic is under the shade taking a nap and Ria's Pikachu was on top of Dragoite. Momo, Jirou and Sabrina went to the nearby park to have a girls' talk as they said to Izuku, and Ria was playing with a baby Abra, which I assume is Sabrina's. Izuku's paw. Right now it's lunchtime and I used the kitchen to prepare food and Ria helped set the table. I already gave the Pokemon their food and now me and Ria are waiting for the others to come. The doorbell rang. I got up to open the door. I went to the door and opened to see Momo, Jirou and Sabrina, who said, we are back. I chuckled and said, welcome home. They got in as I said, I prepared the dinner, hope you don't mind, Sabrina. Sabrina shook her head as she said, I don't mind, Izuku, while Momo and Jirou zoomed past me and yelled, Izuku's food, here I come. Me and Sabrina chuckled as I asked her, how was your week, Sabrina? She then said, It's a bit lonely since my father also left to go to Kalos for some reason. I then said, well, I am planning to spend 2 months here then. Sabrina brightened up as she asked, really? I chuckled as I nodded my head as Sabrina hugged me in excitement. The next second she pulled away with a red face and ran to the dining room too. I chuckled as I thought this next 2 months will be fun. And went to have dinner with the girls and Gardy, who came running as she smelled my food. Izuku's paw. During dinner the group discussed what to do with the 2 months training. Everyone decided that each one of them will go on a date once a week and have used lottery to settle the order, which is 1. First Sunday, Ria. 2. Second Sunday, Jirou. 3. Third Sunday, Gardy. 1. 4. Fourth Sunday, Momo. The rest of the time I will train my Pokemon and see if I can catch any more too, which I will go for today. The rest of the week, we decided that if I am not busy, we can hang out as a group too. We finished our dinner as we went to our room to sleep. Since I will wake up early for training of my younger Pokemon, I will make my older ones train at their leisure pace while concentrate more on younger ones. I got a pretty good team with Gardevoir, Dragonite, Lucario, Flareon, Melodic, Combusken, Eevee, Snivy and Garchomp. I got a wide range of Pokemon types while Eevee has shown interest in being Ice type, which I will do after the league. I made a plan regarding the moves I can teach to my young ones and made a chart. Eevee 1. Quick Attack. 2. Improve the accuracy and power of Swift and Quick Attack. 3. Improve the power of Bite. 4. Learn Double Edge from Dragonite. 5. Use TM to teach it Shadow Ball and make Gardevoir help Eevee master it. 6. Use TM to teach Iron Tail and make Flareon help master it. 7. Use TM to teach Dig and make Garchomp help Eevee master it. Snivy 1. Evolve to Servine first. 2. Make Leaf Storm stronger. 3. Make Servine faster in speed and increase its strength in Leaf Blade. 4. Teach Servine Vine Whip and help its training by lifting heavy objects. 5. Use TM to tech Sunny Day. 6. Learn Solar Beam and learn to instantly use Solar Beam while Sunny Day is in effect. 7. Use TM to teach Energy Ball and make it as strong as possible. Combusken 1. Make Flamethrower powerful. 2. Use TM to teach Focus Punch and Focus Blast and use Lucario to help master the moves. 3. Make its Egg move Night Slash stronger and help train Combusken to be faster. 4. Help evolve to Blaziken and teach the move Aerial Ace. 5. Learn Flare Blitz, Fire Blast and if possible Overheat. 6. Help master Flare Blitz, Fire Blast and teach Overheat if wasn't done before. 7. Learn Sky Uppercut and make it stronger by sparring with Lucario. Garchomp 1. Improve its moves Dig, Earthquake, Hyper Beam and Dragon Claw. 2. Teach Dragon Rush and help master it by training with Dragonite. 3. Teach Draco Meteor and use TM to teach Fire Blast and train with Combusken for Fire Blast. 4. Use TM to teach Giga Impact and Shadow Claw and train with Dragonite to master them. 5. Help Garchomp fly faster and increase its power of using Giga Impact, Dragon Rush, Draco Meteor and Fire Blast. 6. Help master its Egg move Iron Head. 7. Spar with Dragonite for battle experience. This is the plan I drawn for my 4 young ones. As you may be confused why only 7 each, well I will say that each number represents the weeks. I have 8 weeks as I have planned the training for 7 weeks and the 8th week will be resting, mild training and battling with wild Pokemon for experience. I finished wearing my clothes as I went down and said bye to everyone as I have already told them yesterday that I will be out for the day to catch Pokemon. I then called out Dragonite as I got onto his back and told him to fly in near the islands surrounding Kanto. I covered myself with a layer of aura as Dragonite started flying at insane speeds. After an hour of flying over the ocean and islands, I sending my aura in small quantities everywhere to sense energies. I then felt 2 special energies and one was flying in the sky. I told Dragonite the direction as Dragonite soon caught up to the Pokemon, which turned out to be a Pidgeotto, which was a bit bigger than usual, meaning ready for evolution and had strong body frame too. I jumped off Dragonite and placed a aura shield where I was falling to stay hovering in the air as the Pidgeotto attacked Dragonite using Aerial Ace. I quickly commanded Dragonite dodge it and use Quick Attack at minimum power. Dragonite obliged as it dodged the fast Aerial Ace and used a normal Quick Attack, which sent Pidgeotto a few feet back as it gave off Cry and used Air Slash. I was impressed at its moveset and I commanded Dragonite. Dragonite counter it with Gust. Dragonite used his wings to produce a powerful gust which neutralized the air slash and the Pidgeotto used quick attack to dodge it. Pidgeotto stared at Dragonite before its eyes showed determination as it used a well-trained and powerful brave bird. I narrowed my eyes as I called out, Dragonite used Giga Impact. The two Pokemon hit each other mid-air as Dragonite was mildly damaged whereas Pidgeotto was having a few bruises and was panting like hell and looked close to fainting. As I saw Pidgeotto was about to lose consciousness, I quickly threw a Pokeball as hit the Pidgeotto and started falling down but Dragonite catches it as the ball shook 3 times in Dragonite's hand. It gave out a ding indicating Pokemon captured. I then jumped onto Dragonite as I instructed it to go to the nearby island fast. Dragonite dived down and landed softly on the same island where I felt the other powerful aura signature. I let out Pidgeotto as it winced in pain but looked at it. I then took out a full restore from my PD and looked at Pidgeotto and said, "You are a powerful Pidgeotto. I will help you train to be more powerful and help you evolve too, but I need your assistance too, if you accept. Then let me use this medicine on you, if not stay there as I will heal you and release you into the wild again." The Pidgeotto looked at me with a hard stare but hopped closer to me and nudged my hand. I smiled as I pet it and started using full restore on its injuries. After a while I sensed the strong Pokemon watching us from when we landed on the shore but ignored it. Pidgeotto fully healed but was still tired as I returned it to its Pokeball. I signaled Dragonite to stay close as I turned towards where the Pokemon was watching us and said, "I know you are there watching. I suggest you come out before I use Dragonite on you to force you out." After a moment of silence, shuffling of bushes was heard as strong-looking Blastoise came out of the grass and it looked at me and gave out a cry which I understood as, "Human, I challenge you to a battle." I was intrigued as I asked, "Any reason why you are so intent on battling me?" The Blastoise then puts on a bit of an angry expression and says, "When I was a Wartortle I had a trainer who wasn't able to train me nicely and put the blame to me that I am not good enough and left me on this island. Since that day, I have been training to show any trainer who comes here my strength and to see if I can find a worthy trainer. I usually just attack the trainers, but since I was able to see your kindness for your Pokemon, I made my approach less dangerously." I nodded as he said, "Dragonite, be ready for battle." Dragonite took his battle stance as Blastoise unleashed a huge Hydro Pump from its 2 cannon thingies. I ordered to Dragonite, "Dragonite use Hydro Pump too." Dragonite also used Hydro Pump which fought against the Hydro Pump from Blastoise and they cancelled out each other. I then instructed, Dragonite use Thunderbolt. Dragonite unleashed a powerful Thunderbolt from the 2 antennae on top of his head which caused major damage to the Blastoise who wasn't able to hide inside his shell in time. Blastoise winced a bit but started coming at Dragonite with a Skull Bash and I commanded to Dragonite, "Dragonite use Giga Impact." Dragonite used Giga Impact as the 2 Pokemon collided. The collision formed a huge amount of smoke and the ground was a bit broken as the smoke cleared revealing a heavily panting and damaged Blastoise and a halfway exhausted Dragonite. Blastoise then looks at me and said, "You are worthy as a Pokemon trainer to be able to raise Pokemon this strong. I am honored to be under your instruction." I nodded as I pulled out a Pokeball from PD and pressed it on Blastoise. Blastoise disappeared inside the Pokeball as the Pokeball shook 3 times and gave off a ding which meant capture complete. I smiled as I then looked at the exhausted Dragonite and pulled out his Pokeball and said, "You have done great my old friend, now take a nice long rest." Dragonite gave a happy cry as it returned into the Pokeball. I then pulled out another Pokeball and said, "Gardevoir, come on out my dear." 1. Gardy came out in her human form as she skipped over to me and gave me a peck on the cheek and said, "Is there anything I can help you for dear?" I smiled as I said, "Yes. I would like you to teleport me to the Pokemon Center at Saffron City but not inside the Pokemon Center please." Gardy gave a small giggle before concentrating as the surroundings changed and I find myself in front of the door leading inside the Pokemon Center. 1. I returned Gardy as I went inside the Pokemon Center and went straight to Nurse Joy who was able to recognize me as she smiled and said, "Hello Izuku-san, need any help to heal Pokemon and how is my sister?" I smiled as I nodded, "Ria is fine. She is now at Sabrina's house and I want to heal these 2 Pokemon," I said as I handed over Blastoise's and Dragonite's Pokeballs to Nurse Joy. Nurse came back after 10 minutes and handed me the 2 Pokeballs and said, "The 2 have been restored to full health. Please visit again soon. I nodded as I waved goodbye and went back to Sabrina's house. I was greeted with Momo and Ria kissing me as they latched onto me while Jirou gave me a warm welcome hug along with Sabrina as I said to them, "I will come on at lunchtime girls, I just need to put up a training plan for my 2 new Pokemon." I went back to my room as I pulled out the training plan I have for my young ones and wrote. Pidgeotto 1. Train to make its wing attack, aerial ace and brave bird and air slash to be stronger. 2. Teach him Hurricane and try to make it as strong as possible in the week. 3. Use TM to teach him Hyper Beam and train with Dragonite to make Hyper Beam stronger. 4. Use TM to teach Giga Impact and train with Garchomp and Dragonite to make it stronger and faster. 5. Teach the move Fly with TM and try to gain as much control and power as possible. 6. Evolve to Pidgeot through multiple battling continuously. 7. Use TM to teach Steel Wing and master it with help of Dragonite. Blastoise 1. Improve the moves Blastoise KNOS in the first week, meaning improve Hydro Pump, Water Gun, Skull Bash and Ice Beam. 4. Use TM to teach Focus Punch and train with Lucario to increase its power. 3. Use TM to teach Blizzard and try to get it as powerful as possible. 4. Use TM to teach Dig and Earthquake and train with Garchomp to master them. 5. Help train its egg move Aura Sphere with the help of Lucario. And before y'all argue with me that Blastoise can't learn Aura Sphere, just search Blastoise moveset and click on PokemonDB.net in result and scroll till under egg moves you will see Aura Sphere. 6. Train on speed and stamina for this week. 7. Train on speed and stamina for this week too. Izuku's POV. The past 2 months have passed in a blur. It was fun, exhausting but was quite memorable. Even though most of the time I was training the younglings, I didn't forget to spend time with the girls either. As promised, I took them on their separate dates with Ria on the first Sunday. It was quite a knowledgeable experience. We went to a fair hosted by the top breeders as they gave many tips and showcases on how to take care of our Pokemon. They have also shown to give massages to our Pokemon to allow their stiff muscles to relax. Ria was very intrigued with this and took notes on every little detail, and aside from that, we even had some fun at the small games provided in the fair. Jirou was next on the dates list. After thinking for a while, we decided to go to a karaoke in the Saffron City. It was my first time singing, so I honestly made an embarrassment of myself while I was in a trance when Jirou sang as couldn't help but shower her in praises. She told me that singing was her favorite hobby. After a few hours of her coaching me on singing, doing duets and just having genuine fun, we decided to have dinner at a ramen stand. That day was the one where Jirou had a smile on her face for the longest period of time. The next weekend was Gardevoir and she surprised me by telling that she wanted to go to a picnic in an area with flowers. I agreed as we went to the botanical gardens in the city as Gardevoir cooked the food herself this time. We decided sat under a tree thinking about our fun times in the past and it was a relaxing experience for me. Gardevoir even said that it was quite a relaxing experience for her and we just spent the time with feeding each other, a little teasing and a lot of laughs. For the last week of the month, it was Momo's turn and I was quite literally dragged by her to the local amusement park. I could see that she was very excited as she mentioned that she had never actually been to one before. We arrived quite early and were able to avoid the normally huge line at the ticket counter. I purchased VIP tickets for the both of us as we enjoyed ourselves at all the attractions they had. We even went to the wave pool where Momo sneaked a few kissed underwater without anyone seeing, after enjoying ourselves thoroughly at the amusement park. We went to a cafe for some evening snacks. It was a Eevee cafe with waitresses wearing Eevee ears. Momo asked if she could try one and honestly she looked really cute wearing them. It was hard to resist the urge to just glomp her. Aside from the dates, Sabrina would choose some free time to just hang out with us or me and show us round town. Aside from the dates and hangouts, the training plan came along better than I expected. Snivy evolved on the second day was able to learn the moves quickly and spent the time training them to a strong level. Garchomp was a beast in training and exceeded my expectations and was even able to learn Flare Blitz. Combusken also took it upon himself to challenge Garchomp in trainer and managed to evolve a week before what I expected and has been absorbing the training given to it at a fast rate and is evenly matched with Garchomp at the end of training. Eevee was the most determined while training since it wanted to be strong before evolving into one of the evolutions. Being small in size, Eevee was trained specially in speed and she learned all the moves in the training plan for her, albeit has trouble with moves like Dig and Double Edge. Pidgeotto's training went exactly as prescribed in the training plan and became a Pidgeot as well, and Blastoise was just a natural at learning and is able to use Aura Sphere properly, although I am still thinking on how to use the move Aura Sphere effectively with Blastoise's lack of speed. For the last week, the Pokémon relaxed most of the time but did training in order to not lose their top shape. I already revised my team for the league. My plan is to go as far as I can with Eevee, Servine and Pidgeot before slowly revealing my big guns, one by one. I also had a few calls with Ash and met his mother during a call as well, but it just made me think on when I will be finally able to see my mom. It is 8 AM right now and I am in the car waiting for the girls to get on so we can finally go to Indigo Plateau. Sabrina has agreed to travel with us as well. The girls finally got in as Guardy is in its Pokeball and Rhea, who was beside me, said, "Let's go Izuku." I smiled as I start the vehicle and started driving. I estimated it to be a 2-day journey since we are going by car means we will be going through a lot of cities, and the deadline is 5 days away. TIMESKIP2DAYS, they just went on a drive while playing some games which only include words. Third person POV. There was a normal crowd in front of the Pokemon Center here. Trainers are standing with different Pokemon to register. The crowd wasn't huge yet since there are still 3 days to deadline. Everyone turned their attention to 2 cars which arrived at the same time. One was a red convertible with some cool design, but the other car was what took the attention. A giant of a car, bigger than a police jeep, black in color with eye-catching design of headlights and body frame. The back doors were open as 4 females step out of the car. One with a body frame which made females jealous, with black hair tied to a spiky ponytail and onyx eyes and beauty to rival models. Beside her was a female a little bit shorter with purple hair with a face screaming hot, as she looked like hat people would say a hot punk girl. After the purple-haired girl is a girl resembling Nurse Joy's but has pink hair with yellow highlights and a huge Onisama aura surrounding her, making the males unable to take their eyes off her. Author. Why am I doing this? Just bored, and since this chapter is just for registration on League, might as well prolong it. The last female was someone who everyone knew. The legendary Ice Queen of Kanto, someone whose smile was seen by only a few people you can count of your 2 hands, and what had everyone's jaw drop at her was that she had a smile on her face while talking with the Nurse Joy look-alike. Looking towards the other red car was when a guy above average in height with brown hair and a cocky smirk got out as his cheerleaders were cheering for him. Looking at that, all just had one common thought: spoilt teen. And deadpanned at him, another door opening sound was heard as everyone looked to see the driver's seat of the black car open as the myth, the legend, the OMN. Ahem asterisk. Yay. I mean, out of the black car stepped out a male who caught the eye of many females aged between 15 to 30, with a sleeveless black t-shirt tightly hung to his body up to his neck and blue denim jeans. I don't own the art, just found it on Google. The females were all appreciative of the eye candy in front of them, while the more hormonal ones were openly drooling and the guys were looking at him in respect. Gary Oak was wondering where everyone's attention was and looked to see Izuku and scowled at the man taking the attention away, but seeing the muscles on the man, he decided to not mess with him. Momo turned to Izuku and said, "Well Izu, while you register, me and the girls will check out the booths. Call us once your registration is done." Izuku smiled as imaginary arrows hit the heart of many female spectators, and Izuku nodded and went to stand in line and saw that everyone's attention was on him. Izuku raised an eyebrow and said, "Anything weird on me?" Everyone shook their heads as they went back to their business, with a few females taking sneak peeks at Izuku. I felt cringe writing that underscore, kill me now. After a few minutes of standing in the line, namely 28 minutes, it was Izuku's turn to register as Nurse Joy said, "Will you please present me with your trainer license or Pokédex?" Izuku smiled and handed his license as Nurse Joy ran the license through a scanner and deemed it to be legit, and then asked, "Please show me your 8 badges in order for me to register you into the league participants." Izuku nodded as he took out a case and handed it over to Nurse Joy. Nurse Joy checked the badges and said, "Trainer name Izuku. No family name. From Hoenn region. Age 17, has successfully registered as a participant into the Kanto League." Your hotel room is 134 and can allow a maximum number of 6 people if you have brought anyone with you. Good luck with your battles." Izuku gave a smile and said, "Thank you," and took back this trainer license and went away. Izuku got outside and called Momo. After a few seconds Momo picked up the call and asked, "Hey Izu, are you done with the registration? We are at the fountain near here, you parked the car." Izuku answered, "Yes, I am done with registration and I will be there in a minute." Izuku put his phone back in his pocket and started walking towards where the girls are waiting. Jirou spotted Izuku first as she waved to him and asked, "Hey Greenie, do you know when your first match is?" Izuku shook his head and said, "No Kyo, the matches will be announced after the opening ceremony, which is at 1 p.m. tomorrow." The girls nodded as they decided to go to their room and nap. The next morning, third person POV. It was 5 a.m. in the morning as Izuku woke up to the alarm and turned it off as he rubbed his eyes and looked around. The girls were in their beds except for Jirou, who was attached to his torso while she was using his chest as a pillow. Izuku gently unwrapped Jirou from himself and got up from the bed. Izuku then slowly took his clothes from his PD and walked towards the bathroom. After spending 10 minutes washing his face, brushing his teeth and adjusting his hair, he finally changed into his normal wear as he checked to see if the girls were asleep and then walked out of the hotel room. Izuku then went to an open field in the nearby forest and took out all his Pokeballs from his PD and released them outside. The Pokemon cheered as they were waiting for their first battle in the international tournament. Izuku looked at Eevee, Servine and Pidgeot as he said, "I hope you three are in your top game today. Eevee, Servine and Pidgeot, I will be using you three till we get past the preliminaries." The mentioned three gave a happy cheer indicating their eagerness. Izuku then said, "We will just do light exercise for this morning. Now let's go," and started jogging as the Pokemon also ran at his speed behind him. It is 7 p.m. now and Izuku and group just got finished with their breakfast as they were heading towards the stadium for the opening ceremony. Izuku then asked Ria, who was walking beside him, "Hey Ria, have you seen Ash by any chance?" Ria thought a little as she answered, "No Izu, I haven't." Izuku sighed as he thought, "Oh well, I will see him in the stadium." Izuku's POV. After arriving at the stadium, I saw that many of the spectators and trainers were already there and waiting with a huge path in middle from central gate to the podium on top of the stairs for the Moltres Flame to be placed. Momo, Jirou and Ria already went to the spectators area while Sabrina is in the VIP section, Gardy is in the Pokeball. After 10 minutes I heard cheering as I saw Ash coming out from the central gate with a smile on his face and the Moltres Flame on the torch which he is carrying. I smiled as I took out my phone and recorded him till he reached the podium on the stairs, and suddenly there was an explosion voice. I quickly looked as I saw a hot air balloon with a Meowth balloon on top in air. Two heads popped out. One was a tall female with magenta hair and other was a tall guy with blue hair. Both had Team Rocket uniform as they started saying, "Musical note Jesse. Prepare for trouble. James. Make it double. Jesse. To protect the world from devastation. James. To unite all peoples within our nation. Jesse. To denounce the evils of truth and love. James. To extend our reach to the stars above. Jesse. Jesse. James. James. Jesse. Team Rocket blasts off at the speed of light. James. Surrender now or prepare to fight. Meowth. Meowth. That's right. Musical note. Lol. Had to do it once at least. The song or so I thought ended with a Meowth on two legs, and it talked. I couldn't help but ask out loud, is this a stage performance? The three on the balloon face planted comically as the female shouted, "This is not a performance, we are here to steal the Moltres Flame." I deadpanned as I said, "You are the most useless thieves if you are trying to steal in broad daylight in front of 256 trainers, 10 gym leaders, Elite Four and Kanto champion." The three ignored me as a robotic arm shot out of the balloon and snatched the flame from Ash, who wasn't able to match the robot arm's strength. I then quickly took out a Pokeball and threw it as I said, "Pidgeot. Use Steel Wing on the arm and balloon." Pidgeot flew with its wings encased in steel as it made a cut on the balloon and cut through the arm as the flame was dropping to the ground, but I was able to catch it without burning myself. I gave the flame torch to Ash, who lit the podium as everyone in the stadium cheered as the flames on podium has indicated the official start of the Pokemon League. A short old man with big white beard then came onto the stage with a mic as he said, "Hello trainers and audience. I am Charles Goodshow and I am the president of League Competition Committee. Welcome to the Indigo Conference. We have a total of 256 trainers participating and there will be a total of 4 rounds for each trainer in preliminaries. The trainer has to win through all of them to get into the top 16 finals, which will be conducted in this main stadium. The preliminaries will be conducted in the 4 smaller stadiums, each with its unique setting. With this, I wish good luck to all the trainers competing today." The audience and trainers cheered at the president's speech as he continued, "Now all matchups will be shown on the big screen. Please head to the respective stadiums for your battles after seeing the matchups. The first matches will begin in exactly an hour." Every trainer and the audience checked the huge screen for the matchups. I saw that my match was first in the ground field. I turned to the girls, who waved and left to go out. I met up with the girls outside the main stadium as Sabrina said, "Better to go quick and get the good seats for me and Ria since Momo and Jirou will be in the battle stands behind you." For some reason Momo and Jirou had a victory smirk as Ria was pouting a little and Sabrina was giving Momo and Jirou a small glare. I thought they must have had a little game. We arrived at the stadium as I am on the field waiting for my opponent. The match will start in 10 minutes. The referee is also ready on the side. The audience were fully filled. I did a little research and saw that my opponent is Kent, a 15-year-old trainer who also does modeling for clothing stores and is decently popular. He mainly uses Wartortle, Eevee, Butterfree, Pidgeotto, Scyther and Beedrill in most of his gym battles. I can already see many banners in his name and I could see a few people supporting me as well. After a few minutes, Kent arrived on the field as the referee looked at the time and gave a signal to the commentator. The commentator announced, "We will officially begin the first match in ground field, which is Kent from Saffron City versus Izuku from Hoenn region. The matches will be 3 vs 3. It seems that the majority of support is for Kent. Who is also a model. Let's see how this goes." The referee then says, "Trainers, reveal your first Pokemon." Kent took out a Pokeball as he said, "It's showtime. Beedrill." A Beedrill came out as I took out a Pokeball and said, "Battle time, Pidgeot." Pidgeot chirped its name with excitement as Kent had a worried face. The referee then said, "The first move goes to Kent." Kent immediately said, "Beedrill use Poison Jab." Third person POV. Beedrill's drills glowed purple as it sped towards Pidgeot as Izuku said, "Pidgeot use Quick Attack to dodge and hit it with a gust." Pidgeot with its superior speed easily dodged Beedrill using Quick Attack and used Gust from its behind, which sent Beedrill onto the ground dealing major damage. Kent worriedly asked, "Beedrill, can you continue?" Beedrill gave a nod as it rose onto the air as Kent commanded, "Beedrill use Pin Missile." Small missiles came out of its drill towards Pidgeot as Izuku commanded. Pidgeot tried to dodge. Pidgeot tried but was finally hit by a few missiles, causing only a small chunk of damage because of its type advantage as Izuku commanded, "Pidgeot, use Steel Wing and Quick Attack." Pidgeot with Steel Wings and speed increased due to Quick Attack directly hit Beedrill as it did its job and Beedrill fainted as Kent sighed and returned his Beedrill after a few encouraging words and took out his next Pokeball as he threw it saying, "It's showtime, Scyther." A Scyther came out as the referee gave the signal to continue the battle as Kent started with, "Scyther use Quick Attack." Scyther used Quick Attack as I hit Pidgeot as Izuku said, "Pidgeot fly up and use Air Cutter." Pidgeot flew up as Kent hurriedly said, "Scyther quick, try to dodge." Pidgeot let out a flurry of Air Cutters as Scyther dodged the first few ones but after getting hit once, which made it slow down and get hit the remaining ones. Kent grit his teeth little as he said, "Scyther use Quick Attack to close in and hit with Grab Hammer." Scyther immediately closed in with a Quick Attack and used its claws for Grab Hammer as it hit Pidgeot straight onto the ground. Pidgeot with a painful chirp got up as Izuku said, "Let's end this with Double Edge." And Kent said, "Use Grab Hammer Scyther." Pidgeot used Double Edge and met Scyther's Grab Hammer head on as the collision brought upon a huge amount of dust. After a few seconds, the dust was cleared to reveal both Scyther and Pidgeot fainted. The referee confirmed it as a draw as he instructed the trainers to reveal their next or final Pokemon in Kent's case. Kent took out a Pokeball as he said, "I choose you Wartortle." Izuku then threw the Pokeball in his hand as he said, "Servine, it's battle time." Izuku's POV. Servine came out. excited for its battle as Kent was confused as he asked, "What Pokemon is that? I never saw it in my life." I smirked as I got the idea of taunting him and said, "OMG, you don't know about Unova's model Pokemon often seen in magazines, my. For a model, you sure are not intelligent in that field." I could see that my tactic was working as I saw ticks on his forehead as he yelled, "Wartortle, use water gun on that Pokemon, show them how unique and strong you are." An impressive water gun came towards Servine as I immediately commanded, "Use Leaf Storm and double it back." Servine let out a tornado of leaves as the moves collided, but due to the rotating force of Leaf Storm, the water gun was absorbed as Leaf Storm grew into a strong AoE attack and headed for Wartortle. Kent, who was initially shocked, snapped out his thoughts and in a desperate voice said, "Wartortle, quick. Dodge it." Wartortle tried to dodge, but the leaf water storm was too big and Wartortle got sucked in, and after a few seconds, the storm died down, revealing a fainted Wartortle. The league referee then raised the flag towards my side and said, "Kent's Wartortle has fainted, so the match goes to Izuku from Hoenn region and his Servine." The announcer also announced the same in a more loud and cheerful manner as I walked towards Kent and said, "Hey man, that was good match, your Pokemon are well trained too. Wish you good luck for your future." Kent gave a weary smile and said, "Thanks for the advice, good luck in your future matches." We shook hands as I walked towards the battle stands as Kyoka gave a wide smirk while Momo was smiling brightly while lightly jumping on her toes as if why. Oof. I faced against a rocket Momo who crashed into my chest while giving a wide smile as she said, "Congrats Izu, that battle was so good and you were in control of everything, even the mind games were good." And Momo was interrupted by Jirou, who said, "Chill Momo, you were gonna ramble again." Momo gave an embarrassed laugh as Jirou bumped her fist to mine as she said, "Nice battle dude, just as expected from my boyfriend." Momo interrupted saying, "You mean our boyfriend, right? Kyo?" With a closed-eye smile as Kyoka visibly flinched and hurriedly said, Yes, I mean our boyfriend." Momo just beamed as Jirou was hiding behind me muttering, "The smiling demon." I laughed as we continued on our way to one of the Pokemon centers. We arrived inside the Pokemon Center to see Rhea conversing with her sister Joy as Sabrina was sitting on a couch nearby drinking tea. Upon seeing us, Sabrina gave us a wave and a smile while Rhea came towards me, enveloping me in a bear hug. Rhea then said, "That was such a good match Izuku, I still wish I was in the battle stands though," ending with a pout. After a few words from Sabrina, I gave Servine and Pidgeot to the nurse as we then went to sit down in the nearby sofas watching Ash's match. After a few minutes, Ash won as he then walked out of the arena while petting his Pikachu. After waiting for Ash to come to the Pokemon Center, we grouped up and went to look around the stands to see what food was selling as it was close to lunchtime. Just as we were gonna enter, I heard an announcement, all the trainers WHO won their first match are expected to be in the main field in 1 hour to see the matchups. I repeat, all the trainers WHO won their first match are expected to be in the main field in 1 hour to see the matchups. Thanks for listening. Third person Pav. The group looked at each other as Sabrina said, "We better get our food quickly before the crowd gathers." Everyone nodded as they ran to their preferred food booths. Izuku along with Sabrina got the same takoyaki and cheese-filled fried chicken. Izuku looked in surprise as he said, "I didn't know we had similar food favorites." Sabrina let out a giggle as she said, "It's a small world after all." They both chuckled as Sabrina and Izuku conversed about various of things with the rest of the girls following behind them as Jirou commented, "Look at them, acting like a married couple, makes me jealous even though Izuku loves me." Brock was letting out tears as he said, "That bastard has so many girls with him and he still takes away the beautiful girls, ah." Misty sighed as she thought, "Wonder if I will have a nice relationship like them." Meanwhile Ash was thinking on what Pokemon he should use next. Momo nodded vigorously, having a pout on her face while Rhea giggled at her fellow girl's jealousy. After a while, the gang finished eating and made their way to the main field as Brock, Misty, Sabrina, Jirou, Momo went to the seats while Izuku and Ash were standing on the field, waiting for the matchups to show on the screen. A few minutes an announcement bell was heard as the announcer announced, "We hope that the trainers have had their rest. The second round of the preliminaries begin. The winners will be placed into top 64. Now, without further ado, let the matchups be shown." The huge screen showing at 128 trainers starting mixing and jumbling the names in a breakneck speed and stopped after a few seconds. Izuku saw that his match was in the water field against a trainer named Riser. He still had a few hours till his match, which was at 6 p.m., so Izuku said good luck to Ash for his match and went away to do a little research on this Razor. Izuku was looking through the system on his opponent and found out one thing: this guy is annoying. Riser, from one of the noble families of the world, Phoenix family, who specialize in potions and control 40% of the potions production. Riser Phoenix is the second son of Lord Phoenix. Razor is known for using fire-type and flying-type Pokémon for his gym battles. His main Pokémon seems to be a Emboar from the Unova region. Izuku turned off the system and started thinking about the Phoenix family, one of the noble families who were said to have received the blessing of the legendary Moltres. There are other royal families like the Cetri family, which controls the medical training of the nurses and owns 40% of the medical training facilities and are in charge of testing the nurses. The present heir to the family is Serafal Cetri, who also appears in one of the favorite kid shows, Magical Girl Leviathan. Then there is the Royal Grimoire family, who are in control of all the police training academies and in charge of the police candidate hopefuls and testing. The present heir is Searsex Grimoire, who is also the leader of the Pokémon Rangers. Izuku thought this match might involve politics behind the scenes dedicated to Riser's victory. Closing parenthesis. Izuku then thought, I wasn't planning on using them. I reached top 16, but the temptation to utterly destroy this dude is real. Aside from the Phoenix name, Riser is known to the public as a general asshole, regarding himself as the top of the food chain. There is also a rumor that Riser was supposed to be married to the younger sibling of Searsex Grimoire, but lost a Pokémon battle to her, which led to dissolving the marriage. Izuku confirmed that his team to himself and saw that he had only 30 minutes till his match. Izuku started making way to the stadium while sending a message in the group chat with him and the girls, and he will be in the stadium directly. The girls sent him good luck texts with a few cheering emojis as Izuku chuckled on how many Momo and Ria sent. Izuku then started walking towards the arena, but something suddenly caught his eye. Izuku, after seeing the item, thought, since I am fighting against a royal, why not? And went inside the store for a quick shop and put upon the item as he went to the stadium. Third person POV. In stadium. In the field we see that the stands are full as the match was conducted in the main field due to its importance. The main hype was, however, the people in the glass stands in VIP seats. All of the core members of the three royal families were present. The lords were chatting with each other as the younger ones just came to each other as Searsex started the conversation saying, "Hello guys, good to see you. It's been a while, hasn't it? I believe the last time was during the battle between my dear sister and Riser." The younger Grimoire and the Cetri siblings chuckled, seeing the tick marks on the Phoenix children's head as Ruvel said, "That may be so. Riser has been training hard ever since, and I am sure he will prevail in this tournament." Ravel nodded, agreeing with her eldest brother as Sona Cetri said, "We shall see. Riser's opponent is not a simple person after all. His match was the highlight of the first rounds. They call him the controller. The whole match was said to be under his control. And it seems like this person has a servine, meaning they must have done a lot of prior traveling and training." Ravel snorted as she said, "It doesn't matter, as I am sure Riser Ni-san will win quite easily. Look, his opponent hasn't even appeared and it's almost time for the match." Rias then commented, "Doesn't mean anything, Ravel-san. After all, heroes don't arrive late or early. They just arrive on time." Just as Rias finished her sentence, a huge amount of cheering was heard as the royal families looked to see Riser's opponent arrive wearing a black tux. The majority of cheering was from the girls. Izuku, wearing the tux he just brought, looked at Riser as he said, "I hope I am not late. Had to dress well since I am against a royal after all." Back in the VIP seats, Lady Grimoire commented, "My, he is a rather handsome young man." Lady Phoenix also nodded as she said, "And surely knows how to clean himself." The lords have also agreed as Rias commented, "Well, he certainly has Riser purely defeated in the looks department." The rest all agreed, even the Phoenix siblings, although begrudgingly. The announcer, after the crowd cheering died down, announced, "Here it is, folks, one of the most anticipated matches of the second round. On the red corner we have Riser Fens from the Royal Phenex family. WHO performed admirably in his first round against Izuku, a first-timer. WHO earned the nickname, Controller of the Field, due to his first match where the opponent wasn't able to surprise him in the slightest. According to the votes by RAUDIANCE, the majority of the VOTES lean towards Riser as the winner. Let's see what happens. Riser looked at Izuku as he snorted and said, "What a waste of a title just for winning one match. Riser advises you to give it your best, you will walk away in shame after all." With a smirk as Izuku just gave a gentle smile stealing the hearts of many as he said, "I thought we are supposed to be battling, so just shut up and talk with your battling skills." Riser grit his teeth as the referee said, "This battle is a 3 vs 3 battle with substitutions allowed. The first move goes to the blue trainer. Now both trainers release your first Pokemon." Riser took out a Pokeball and tossed it saying, "Come on out Flygon, let's show this fool how real battler battles." A healthy and well-trained Flygon came out as it gave a challenging grin towards Izuku as Izuku said, Since you want to show me my so-called place, let me go all out too. Come on out Dragonite." Dragonite came out as she first gave Izuku a tight hug before jumping to the field as it had a determined expression on its face. Referee said, "Let the battle begin." Izuku commanded, "Dragonite, use Dragon Tail." Dragonite flew at Flygon at breakneck speeds to which Flygon was unable to follow as Riser quickly said, "Flygon use Quick At." Riser was too late as Dragonite from above Flygon with its tail glowing with draconic energy smashed Flygon, who was slammed into the water due to the force of the attack. A huge amount of water was splashed around, as Flygon slowly flew out of the water with a lot of injuries as Izuku said, "Ooh, you are lucky this is a water field, that might have been game over for Flygon." Riser grit his teeth with anger visible on his face as he yelled, "That was just a lucky shot, now Flygon, use Dragon Rush." Izuku also commanded, "Use Dragon Rush to Dragonite." Draconic energy covered both Pokemon in the shape of a dragon, with Dragonites being much bigger as both Pokemon shot towards each other and collided in the middle, creating a large gust of wind and a small explosion of power. A second later Flygon was seen falling towards the water. Everyone waited with bathed breaths as a fainted Flygon floated up to the surface and the crowd looked at Dragonite to see it just dusting itself off. The loud went crazy as they cheered while the referee declared, "The red trainer's Flygon has fainted, so the first round goes to Izuku and his Dragonite." Riser grit his teeth, slowly losing to his rage as he returned Flygon. In the VIP lounge, Sona with an impressed expression commented, "My, that is one rather strong Dragonite." The royal families nodded as Rias chuckled and looked at Revel saying, "Riser doesn't seem to be faring well, does he, Revel-san?" Revel shot a glare at her while Rias just laughed. Sirzex also commented, "That was some very impressive speed that it showed." Serafal nodded as she also said, "Must have been trained for a long time. It seems that the Dragonite might just be his ace." Lady Gremory said, "Seems like Riser's battle has gone through a rough start." Lord Phoenix just sighed as he said, "I just wish Riser spent more time on training rather than training half-heartedly and goofing around with girls more. This might teach him a lesson, it seems." The other lords and ladies nodded. With the girls, Jirou with an expression of awe commented, "I know that Dragonite was one of his oldest 5 Pokemon, but I didn't expect it to be this overpowering." Momo nodded as she said, "I never imagined that Izuku can rock a tux this well, he looks just enchanting." Sabrina and Ria nodded as Gardy chuckled as she said, "Oh, you should see him in his swimwear, nothing beats that." With a dreamy expression while the other 4 blushed with various images in their head. Back to field. Riser took out his second Pokeball as he said, "That was just a lucky shot. Riser will show you how weak you are. Come on out Infernape and use Flamethrower." Infernape appeared on one of the platforms on the water as it blew out a big flamethrower towards Dragonite, who just tanked the hit, taking a small amount of damage only as Izuku said, "Dragonite use Quick Attack and Aqua Tail." Dragonite, using the speed of the Quick Attack, appeared over Infernape, used Aqua Tail. Infernape was able to withstand the force by blocking the tail with his hands, but the water-type energy heavily damaged it. Izuku, without wasting a second, said, "Dragon Tail." Dragonite, who was still beside a heavily breathing Infernape, used Dragon Tail as Infernape was went flying towards the outer wall of the field and fell down with swirls in its eyes. The referee announced, "Infernape is unable to battle. That match goes to Izuku and his Dragonite." The crowd cheers and Izuku gave a fist bump to Dragonite, who seems to be still doing good, showing that it will also well trained in regards to stamina. Riser now had an enraged expression as he just couldn't deal any type of real damage to the Dragonite. Riser then yells. Riser doesn't care as he loses anymore. My goal is to see that Dragonite fainted. Come on out, Emboar. A larger than usual Emboar came out thumping its chest with its arms while roaring loudly. The referee looked at Izuku as he asked, will the blue trainer be substituting his Pokemon? Izuku just shook his head no, as referee brought the flags down, signaling the match to start as Riser commanded. EMBOAR use overheat and roast it. Emboar started charging the attack as Izuku said, Dragonite, fly high and dodge it and use quick attack and Aqua Tail. Emboar let out an overheat at the size of a one-story building as Dragonite took off higher in the sky, closely dodging the overheat, but a few small burns could be seen closely due to the temperature of the fire. Dragonite then appeared over Emboar in the same fashion as it did with Infernape and smashed his back with Aqua Tail. Emboar, with not as quick reflexes as Infernape, took the full blunt of the attack, was sent into the water, further enhancing the damage. After a few seconds, Emboar come out of the water with fire aura surrounding it as Riser gave out an expression of glee as he said, that is the Blaze ability, now your Dragonite is done for. Izuku just narrowed his eyes. He looked to see that Dragonite was not intimidated at all due to his ability, Inner Focus. Riser commanded, Emboar use Flame Charge. Dragonite used Dragon Tail. Two moves met head-on, as both Pokemon were damaged with the confrontation as Riser said, EMBOAR use Fire Punch now. Dragonite dodge and use Aqua Tail. Emboar, with the speed boost gained from Flame Charge, tried to punch Dragonite, but Dragonite was able to avoid it due to its superior speed as it gave Aqua Tail to Emboar's head. Emboar just stood still for a few seconds before its Blaze Aura vanished and it fell down fainted. Dragonite came to Izuku's side breathing heavily with minor injuries and burns as Izuku pet its head and said, you were more impressive than usual, Dragonite. The referee announced, the red trainer's final Pokemon has fainted. This match goes to Izuku and his Dragonite. Massive amount of cheers filled the arena as the announcer said, what an interesting and overwhelming match. Izuku, solely using his Dragonite, defeated 3 of Riser's Pokemon, yet again showing complete control over the match like a supreme commander. Third person POV. At VIP stands. Lord Phoenix sighed as he said, I hope Riser will take things seriously from now on and train properly. Lady Phoenix nodded as Sirzex said, still though, to be able to defeat 3 of Riser's strongest ones with only a Dragonite is really amazing. I don't think even I could do that. Riser might slack of a bit, but he trains smart and accordingly, so it's not that Riser is weak but his opponent is just built different. Rias chuckled as she said, oh, definitely built different. Licking her lips a bit as she looked at Izuku, who walked towards the corridor. Sona sighed seeing Rias simping as she said, he was definitely worth the title. He didn't even show any nervousness at all. He just commanded with a smile on his face as if everything was in his control. As the announcer said, he is definitely a supreme commander. The royal family nodded as they decided to observe the future matches since it would be rude to leave halfway. With Izuku. Izuku got out of the stadium and messaged the girl in the GC that he will be resting in the hotel room and to wake him up for dinner or anything important. Izuku then pocketed his phone and jogged as he arrived to his. After changing out of his tux, Izuku put on his pajamas and jumped on the bed, letting out a sigh of relief, and got lost from the world. With the girls. The girls saw Izuku's message and decided that they will go for group shopping. As they were walking, they were all thinking about Izuku's battle except for Gardevoir as Sabrina broke the silence first, saying, I didn't expect that Izuku's Dragonite would be so powerful and fast. The girls except Gardevoir nodded as Gardevoir chuckled and said, actually, that level of strength is same to Izuku's 5 oldest Pokemon. We stayed in the wild for 12 years honing our strength to as much as we can. Battle experience with real trainer is the only aspect that Izuku lacks. The girls were shocked as they stared at Gardevoir with their eyes open as Jirou said, well damn. No wonder Izuku is rock solid. The girls blushed remembering the feeling of his muscles. They did used to hug him frequently after all. The girls went around doing some window shopping while rarely buying anything. After a while the girls returned to their hotel room content with their bonding time and saw Izuku peacefully sleeping. Suddenly the sound of speakers turning on was heard as the announcer announced, hello folks. The matchups for the third round will be shown in the stadium at 8 p.m. I repeat, the matchups for the third round will be shown in the stadium at 8 p.m. Thanks for listening. Momo looked at the time and saw that it was 7 p.m. and she said, "Let's wake Izuku up. We will have some light dinner and go to the stadium." The girls nodded as Sabrina went towards Izuku as he shook him lightly and said, "Wake up Izuku." Wah? Sabrina was cut off by Izuku pulling her into the bed as he snuggled to her and in sleep told, "Let me sleep more Jirou, it feels warm right now." The girls giggled at looking at a sputtering red-faced Sabrina who was just too flustered to even move. After a few minutes of enjoying Sabrina's suffering, the girls pulled her from Izuku, after which Izuku rolled around a bit and eventually woke up yawning and said, "What's up girls? Is it time for dinner?" Jirou chuckled as she said, "Yay, let's get some dinner." The announcer said the third matchups will be shown at 8 p.m. Izuku nodded, rubbing his eyes, and looked around. He blinked when he saw Sabrina and said, "Do you have a fever, Sabrina? Your face is tinted red." Sabrina strutted as she said, Nothing Izuku, it's just hot in here, yeah hot." Fanning herself as she turned away from Izuku, who just shrugged and went to the bathroom with his regular clothes to get dressed. Izuku came back and the group went to the stands to get some snacks as dinner and went towards the stadium afterwards. Izuku met up with Ash as he greeted, "Yo lil bro, how was your second match?" Ash smiled excitedly as he said, "Definitely easier than my first one, but big bro, your match was the highlights. You easily won against someone from the royal family with only one Pokemon." Izuku just waved it off as they both started chatting until they heard the speakers turn on. The announcer said, "Thanks for gathering at the stadium late at night. We decided to show the third matchups early so we can complete the third and fourth rounds faster and the top 16 will have more time to relax. Now please look at the main screen for the match UPS." 64 names appeared on the screen as they danced and jumbled around and stopped after a few seconds as Izuku saw that his match was first and he was against someone named Gary Oak. Huh? Must be someone in Professor Oak's family. Ash turned to Izuku and said, "Looks like your match is with Gary brother, good luck. He might be arrogant but he is a good trainer too." Izuku raised an eyebrow and asked, "Someone you know, Ash?" Ash nodded as he said, "Yay. We both are rivals since a long time. We used to compete in almost everything but Gary started becoming more and more arrogant." Izuku nodded and said, "I see, well then. Good night Ash." "Good night brother." Izuku returned to his group as he told them about his match. All of a sudden Sabrina sighed as she said, "I remember that kid. He was so arrogant. He stated that if he wins during our gym match, I will have to go on a date with him. After he lost, he just stated it was luck and left with a cheerleading squad behind him." Izuku sighed as he said, "I wonder how someone as humble as Professor Oak has a grandson like this." The girls also agreed and they all went back to their rooms to sleep. Time skipped to next day morning. Izuku woke up to his alarm set at 5 a.m., got out of the bed, went to the bathroom and changed into his gym wear and went to a nearby field and called out his Pokemon. Izuku looked at his Pokemon and said, "I will use Eevee and Servine for my third match and if it comes to it then I will use Blastoise." The Pokemon nodded as they started jogging behind Izuku for their usual stamina training. Back in the room, it was 6 a.m., and Izuku finished showering and changing to his normal clothes for battle. Izuku only made them run for about 20 minutes to freshen up his Pokemon. Izuku then nudged the 4 girls who woke up and went to get ready while Izuku went to the ground field for his match. Izuku arrived at the stadium 40 minutes before his match and can see a few people in the seats who gave him a cheer and wave as Izuku also waved back and decided to talk to some people to spend time. Izuku went towards the stands and a few teens and kids surrounded him as they asked for autographs, pics and question about training. Izuku answered their questions and spent some time with the kids, which made the parents smile as they thought Izuku could be quite a good father. A few minutes later, 10 minutes before the match, people started filling up the seats as Izuku went down to the field so as to not get too crowded and waited for the referee and his opponent to come. In 4 minutes, the referee arrived and gave a nod to Izuku, who nodded back, and they started hearing cheerleader cheering and saw coming out of his end with an arrogant smirk on his face while his cheer group went to the stands and started cheering loudly, scaring off some of the crowd near them. The referee then explained the rules and said, "Both trainers let out your first Pokemon. The red trainer gets the first attack." Gary took out a Pokeball as he said, "Nidoking, let's crush this guy, come on out." A tall purple Pokemon with a horn on its head came out excited for a battle as Izuku thought a bit and took out a Pokeball and said, "Servine, come on out." Servine came out with a look of concentration on her face. Gary sneered as he said, "Where is your Dragonite? Are you underestimating me?" Nidoking was horn attack. Nidoking with its horns shining a white energy dashed towards Servine as Izuku commanded calmly. Servine used Vine Whip to deflect Nidoking and then used Sunny Day. Two vines came out of Servine's shoulders, one blocking the horn and other wrapping around Nidoking and threw it to the ground with big difficulty before Gary dealing quite a bit of damage and used Sunny Day to make the sun shine brighter, making Servine feel much better. Gary with agitation in his tone said, "Nidoking, shake it off and use Mega Punch." Izuku then said, "Servine, wait till the right moment and use Solar Beam." Nidoking dashed towards Servine with a shining right fist, who immediately hit Nidoking at point blank with a Solar Beam, which effectively knocked it out. The referee then declared, "The red trainer's Pokemon has fainted, please bring out your next Pokemon." Gary fumed as he yelled, "How? He must have cheated. Solar Beam needs time to charge." The referee shook his head, knowing about the effects of Sunny Day, and said, "There was no cheating done, now please send your next Pokemon." Gary, not wanting to argue with the referee, pulled out another Pokeball and said, "Come on out, Dodrio." Dodrio came out with its three glaring heads as Izuku returned his Servine while saying, "You did a good job, Servine. I will let you have the last one. Let Eevee shine against this one." Izuku then pulled out another Pokeball and threw it, saying, "It's time for a battle, Eevee, come on out." Eevee came out, excited for its first league battle as Gary said, "Dodrio, use Tri-Attack." A beam of fire, lightning and ice was charging in his three mouths and Izuku said, "Eevee, use Dig." The Dodrio released their attacks but missed since Eevee went underground. Not wanting to risk, Gary ordered, "Dodrio, circle around the field at your top speed to avoid getting hit by that Eevee." Izuku was a bit impressed at Gary's quick thinking but said, "Eevee, use your ears to sense the vibrations and attack with Iron Tail." After a few seconds, Eevee was able to determine the pattern and came out of the grounds and smacked Dodrio's three heads with Iron Tail. Losing balance, Dodrio slipped and fell to the ground, slowly getting up, being heavily injured. Gary in panic said, "Dodrio, use Double Edge." Izuku sighed as he said, "Eevee, use Dig again." Eevee dodged by using Dig as Dodrio fainted from the recoil of the attack. The referee declared, "The red trainer's Dodrio has fainted, bring out your final Pokemon." Gary was fuming at being defeated so easily without even damaging his opponent's Pokemon, took out his starter's Pokeball and threw it, saying, "Come on out, Blastoise, we still have a chance at this." A Blastoise came out as it roared out his name as Izuku exclaimed, "Well, isn't this something? Looks like your Blastoise just evolved recently." Gary nodded as he said, "It just evolved yesterday night." Izuku then pulled out a Pokeball, returning Eevee, and took out another Pokeball and threw it, saying, "Come on out, Servine." Servine came out determined to win as Izuku said, "Servine, use Razor Leaf." Servine let out a stream of half-moon-shaped leaves spinning towards their target as Blastoise just retreated to its shell, avoiding the attack, only losing minor health as Gary said, "Blastoise, use Skull Bash." Izuku quickly followed up and said, "Dodge it with Quick Attack, Servine." Blastoise at a surprising speed attacked Servine, who tried to dodge but still got hit on the tail, letting out a small cry as Izuku said, "Quickly use Vine Whip." Still being near Blastoise, Servine wrapped Blastoise and smashed him on the ground twice before jumping back and gaining a distance. Blastoise slowly got up, showing signs of damage as Gary then said, "Use Hydro Pump." Servine used Solar Beam. Servine quickly formed a Solar Beam since Sunny Day was still in effect and shot it towards Blastoise, who shot out Hydro Pump from its guns. The both moves collided, creating an explosion, damaging both of the Pokemon. The both Pokemon got up with difficulty as Izuku and Gary commanded at once, "Blastoise, Servine, use Skull Bash, Leaf Blade." Both Pokemon shot towards each other and collided in the middle, uplifting a lot of dust. Everyone were waiting in anticipation for the dust to clear. The dust clearing showing both Pokemon are fainted, the referee declared, "Since both Pokemon have fainted and the red trainer has no Pokemon left, this match goes to Izuku from Hoenn region." The crowd cheered loudly as Gary grit his teeth and returned his Pokemon and walked away with his cheer group behind him. Izuku smiled as he returned Servine and said, "You did a fantastic job, Servine, have a nice rest." Third person Pav. The day has passed. Izuku won his fourth match with Eevee and Pidgeot, finishing the preliminaries. Ash also got into the top 16. It was time for the announcement of the top 16 and their rules moving forward. Trainers gathered as Mr. Goodshow come out as he said, "Alright trainers and audience, we will reveal the top 16 and the rules of the matches going forwards." The crowd cheered as Goodshow continued. "And here are our top 16, and points at the screen showing 16 names. Izuku, Ash were included." Izuku looked towards Ash and sees Ash giving a look-alike a high five. Izuku just thought, "Small world huh?" Mr. Goodshow tapped the mic getting attention and said, "From here on all the matches will be conducted in the main stadium and out Kanto Elite Four and Kanto Champion will be watching." The crowd cheered as Elite Four namely, Bruno, Lorelei, Agatha and Lance. And the Kanto Champion Red Ketchum, also Ash's father. One Izuku looked at Ash who was solely facing towards his father which was the same for the father too. Mr. Goodshow then said, "The top 16's first match will be 3-on-3 and from quarterfinals, meaning top 8. The matches will be full on 6 vs 6. The top trainers will have 3 days of rest before their first match but the matchups will be shown now." The screen shuffled the names. Izuku saw that his was the fourth match and looked to see Ash was against his look-alike in the first match. Izuku could see that both trainers were shocked. Izuku just sighed and walked away. Seeing Izuku leave, the girls also got up from the seats and left too. Izuku thought about his match. His opponent is the previous league's runner-up in the finals, meaning this that the trainer is definitely strong. Izuku decided on his Pokemon and met up with the girls at the Pokemon Center. Izuku turned to them and said, "I will be away till day after tomorrow's afternoon. I need to do some small training." The girls nodded seeing that Izuku was serious about it too as Izuku went to his room and packed some food, a pair of clothes and a sleeping bag. Putting it in his PD, Izuku set out to the forest at breakneck speeds using aura to boost himself. After 10 minutes of running, Izuku pulled out all his Pokemon, giving them instruction and then looked at the last 3 and said, "We will be having some special training." Time skipped 2 days. Izuku felt pity for Ash who lost because his Charizard was not listening to him. Izuku hoped Ash's friends can help him recover from it. It was almost time for Izuku's match. Izuku then thought, "It's time to be serious, no more holding back, I am going with everything I have." Izuku heard the announcer calling for the participants of the fourth match. Izuku let loose everything, his presence burst out and aura raised to the max. At the stadium, people cheered looking forward to the match between the previous Kanto League's runner-up and the Supreme Commander's battle. Suddenly a heavy pressure descended on the battlefield. In the Elite Four and Champion Chamber, Lance and Red flinched and were shocked. Lance looked at Red and said, Red, is this?" Red nodded and said, "I had my suspicions but looks like I was right, this man is more than what he showed in the preliminaries." Everything was silent, there was no noise in the stadium. Everyone felt a pressure and couldn't talk. Footsteps were heard as Izuku entered the battlefield. There was something new about him, something strong. One thing everyone noticed was Izuku is not smiling. Jason knew he was in for a tough match and prepared himself in every way. When he felt this pressure in the stadium, he thought, what is this? I can't even talk, is this what I am up against? Jason grit his teeth staying strong. Izuku arrived in his place and gave a nod to the referee, snapping the referee out of a trance. The announcer who finally found his voice said, "Here it is folks. The anticipated match between the Supreme Commander Who isn't smiling and the previous league's runner-up Jason." The crowd were silent. The pressure was still in the air. Everyone had their utmost attention to the match. The referee then said, "This will be a 3-on-3 battle. The first move goes to Jason. Reveal your Pokemon." Izuku took out a Pokeball and threw it without saying anything as the Pokeball opened and out came a Blastoise. Larger than most ever seen. The Blastoise itself looked very intimidating due to Izuku's aura being all over the place. In the stands, even the girls were shocked. Sabrina then finally said, "So he is one after all. An aura master." Back on field, Jason took out a Pokeball and released it saying, "Come on out Victreebel." A Victreebel came out raring to battle as Jason first commanded, "Victreebel use Vine Whip." Izuku just said, "Get in." The voice sent chills in everyone's hearts. It felt so strong. And dominating and confident. Blastoise retreated into his shell and Vine Whip hit the shell but didn't do anything. Izuku then said, Skull Bash. Blastoise in speed not known for its species covered itself in white energy and dashed towards Victreebel. Jason tried to command Victreebel to dodge but it is too late as it was hit head-on and blasted to the walls. Spider web cracks appeared on the wall as Victreebel got up slowly with extreme difficulty. Jason grit his teeth and said, Victreebel, you got distance. Use Solar Beam. Hydro Pump. Victreebel fired an enormous solar beam as Blastoise also shot 2 ginormous Hydro Pump from his turrets. The moves battled for domination but the solar beam lost as Hydro Pump hit Victreebel, smashing it back on the wall, damaging it more as Victreebel fainted. The referee, who retreated to a much safer distance, declared, since Victreebel is unable to battle, this round goes to Izuku and his Blastoise. Red TRRAINER. Bring out your second Pokemon. There was nothing but pure concentration of everyone's faces as they looked at the match, they just couldn't speak. It felt like the pressure would increase more if they speak. Jason returned his Victreebel as he whispered, SRY Victreebel, I couldn't win with ya. Don't worry, we will train more. Jason took out another Pokeball as he said, come on out Raichu. Izuku just returned Blastoise, whispering a small praise as he took out another Pokeball and threw it. The Pokemon revealed itself as it sent fear into many hearts with just its glare and looks. It was a Garchomp. Jason for his life knew which Pokemon this one and knew he should be very careful. Izuku started with Dragon Pulse. Garchomp charged a Dragon Pulse as Jason quickly commanded, Raichu, use Quick Attack to dodge and hit it with Iron Tail. Garchomp fired the Dragon Pulse as Raichu, with the high speed from Quick Attack, dodged ASND, ran towards Garchomp to give Iron Tail, but Garchomp just jumped high and floated in the air looking at Raichu. Jason grit his teeth and said, use Electro Web. Brick Break. Raichu fired as Electric Web towards Garchomp in air, who tore through it with Brick Break and with speed came beside Raichu and hit it with another Brick Break as it launched Raichu back, who flipped through the air and managed to land on its legs even though a bit wobbly. Jason then said, Raichu, Thunderbolt. Izuku said nothing as Raichu fired a powerful Thunderbolt which hit Garchomp, revealing 0 damage due to being part ground type, which Izuku trained fiercely. Izuku then said, Earthquake. Garchomp let out a wide grin as it covered its fist in ground-type energy and smashed both his fists to the ground as the whole field shook and craters rocks were lifted up, even the stadium as a whole shook. The audience were staring in complete awe at the power. The smoke then lifted, revealing Raichu to be fainted. The referee then announced, Raichu has fainted, this second round goes to Izuku and his Garchomp. Knowing about the name of the Pokemon due to the announcer telling him in his earpiece. The announcer then said, what an amazing power, the field shook, chances are not looking good for Jason, while the Supreme Commander reigns the field once more and seems to be completely serious about it too. Jason shook his head. In his match he looked at his opponent and only saw a complete poker face. Jason knew that this person is completely serious about this match as he was smiling before the top 16 in all his matches. Jason, even though felt sad about his match, respected that he just didn't lose to someone going easy on him. Jason took out his final Pokeball as he threw it, saying, come on out Typhlosion. A Typhlosion appeared at it, roared towards its opponent as Izuku, without saying anything, returned Garchomp, giving it a silent praise as he took out another Pokeball and threw it. A tall Pokemon revealing the stance of a fighter came out. It was Blaziken. Blaziken just bounced on its toes, raring to attack as Jason started with, use Eruption. Typhlosion jumped high with its back, aiming Blaziken as it let out a large eruption towards Blaziken as Izuku said, high jump kick. Blaziken jumped high towards Typhlosion, easily jumping over the eruption move as its legs shone with white energy, and it hit Typhlosion twice mid-air towards the ground. Typhlosion hit the ground heavily as it slowly got up and roared towards Blaziken as a huge flame aura appearing around it, dancing wildly. Jason grinned as he said, all right. Let's go Typhlosion, use Overheat. Izuku, with having a small smile on his face, said, Flamethrower. Both powerful flames shot towards each other as it caused a huge explosion in the middle as Overheat passed and hit Blaziken, launching it to the wall. Izuku clapped as he said, that is a very powerful Typhlosion, but it's time to end this. Izuku continued, Blast burn. Blaziken roared as it hit the ground hard as several flame pillars started erupting towards Typhlosion as Jason said. Shit, use overheat. Typhlosion fired another powerful overheat but couldn't stop the incoming blast burn as Typhlosion was hit as it screamed and after a few seconds, fell over fainted. Finally Izuku stopped releasing his pressure as the audience who were silent till now cheered loudly. Jason sighed as he shook his head and smiled a little and returned Typhlosion as he said, "Looks like we still got a long way to go, my friend." Izuku smiled and waved at the audience as the announcer announced, "What an exciting battle. Our Izuku seems to surprise us with every match. Now for the next match." Izuku tuned him out as he finally got out of the stadium and released a breath. It was exhausting maintaining the aura pressure for that long. Izuku. Izuku turned to the left as he was tackled to the ground by an excited Momo and Ria as Jirou said. "That was so cool, Izu. That pressure was so much. I couldn't take my eyes off the match or even talk." The girls agreed as Sabrina said, "I am hurt you didn't even mention you were Aura Master." Izuku laughed nervously as Ash's gang caught. They all praised Izuku and everyone went back to the stadium to watch the remaining matches. Third person POV. It was 5 p.m. and the final top 16 matches just finished as the announcer called rest of the participants down to the field. The 8 remaining trainers including Izuku and Richie arrived at the field as Mr. Goodshow arrived on stage and said, "You all are the top 8 trainers of the 256 that entered. From here on, the matches will be full on 6 vs 6. I wish good luck to you 8 trainers. Now let's look at the matchups." The 8 names shuffled and 4 pairs were shown. Izuku looked to see that his match is the second and is against Richie. Izuku med as he thought, "Interesting, so I am battling Ash's smarter version." Meanwhile the Richie looked as pale as a ghost. Richie let out anime tears as he thought, "Whyy me Arceus ymee." The surrounding players pitied Richie as they let out a cheer in their mind. Izuku turned towards where Richie was and gave a smile as he said, "Let's do our best." Richie gave a robotic nod as Izuku turned around and left the arena. Ash chuckled seeing the look on Richie's face as his mom who was beside him asked, "Ash, that must be your big brother, right? Izuku if I remember the name." Ash nodded as he said, "Yes mom, that is Izuku, he is a really cool trainer, I admire him the most." Delia's sweat dropped as her husband's place in Ash's top trainers to be admired list has been taken. In the Champions Lounge, Red who was drinking some juice suddenly got a dark look on his face scaring Lance as Red broke the glass and said, "I suddenly feel the urge to strangle that Izuku kid." Lance's sweat dropped as he said, "If you can even lay a finger on him, good luck with that." Red also sweat dropped as he thought, "I know I am in Oranide League. Surely I will be able to land a hit on someone at Aura Master's level, right? Not too troublesome." Back with Ash. Ash said goodbye to his mom who just left to go home along with Professor Oak and went to look for Richie. Ash looked around and saw Richie talking to his 6 Pokemon. Richie who just took out all his Pokemon said, "Okay guys, tomorrow we are up against most probably the toughest trainer in the league. We just perform our best tomorrow, let's review his previous match." The Pokemon looked worried as Ash came up from behind Richie and asked, "Hey Richie, what are you doing?" Richie looked at Ash and said, "I'm looking up Mr. Izuku's previous match so I can have a rough idea of his battle style." Ash's sweat dropped and asked, "Wouldn't it be better if you come up with a battle plan first?" Richie can see sense in what Ash has said and sighed as he said, "You are right Ash. Come on guys, let's think over a plan." His Pokemon agreed as Ash left them. Ash met up with Misty and Brock as they asked, "So Ash, are you staying or are you gonna go home?" Ash thought for a bit and said, "Big bro always came to my matches, it's only fair I stay till big brother Izuku's matches are over." The group agreed as they saw Izuku walking about in the area. Deciding to greet him, the group ran over as Ash yelled, "Hey, big bro." Izuku hearing Ash's voice looked and saw Ash's gang coming to him as he said, "Hey Ash, what's up?" Ash just said, "Well bro, I was just talking to Richie and saw you're walking about, so I came here." Izuku remembered about Ash's Charizard as he said, "Hey Ash, let me battle your Charizard." Ash with clear doubt in his face said, "Are you sure big bro, he doesn't at all listen to me?" Izuku shook his head as he said, "It's not your fault Ash, you are a good trainer, it's just that Charizard being evolved into its final stage without much training has developed arrogance. That should be taken care of." Ash just nodded his head. Behind the bushes. Red was hiding in the bushes about to approach Ash to give him advice and to help tame his Charizard, but his plan was destroyed by that Izuku again. Red was chewing his nails in frustration as he thought, no, it was finally my chance to shine in front of my son. Damn it. Back to Ash and Izuku. Ash and Izuku just arrived at a field as Ash threw a Pokeball revealing Charizard, who looked around and saw no opponents, snorted as he laid on the ground. Ash then in desperation said, "Come on Charizard, please get up. You are up against my brother, you must listen to me if you want to have a chance." Charizard annoyed blew a flamethrower at Ash which stopped mid-air. Izuku with his eyes glowing blue stopped Charizard's flamethrower with Psychic as he said, "You must be thinking yourself as a hotshot. You dare try to injure my little brother." Izuku seeing Charizard responding, brought out a Pokeball and threw saying, "Come on out Melodic, we have a rogue Pokemon here." Melodic came out as it looked at Charizard and nodded at Izuku as Izuku said, "Use Water Gun." Melodic let out a huge stream of water which hit the not-caring Charizard and blasted towards a tree. Charizard, who was suddenly blasted towards the tree, got up even though hurt and roared as he shot a flamethrower towards Melodic. Izuku scoffed as he said, "You called that a flamethrower? Melodic, use Bubble." Melodic let out the weakest water-type move which cancelled out flamethrower, shocking Charizard and hit in the chest. Ash yelled, "Charizard, you gotta listen to me, please. Fly and use Wing Attack." Charizard ignored Ash as it charged up a Dragon Breath and fired it at Melodic. The move hit Melodic and revealed no damage as Izuku said, "Ice Beam Melodic, freeze it up except the tail." Melodic fired a powerful Ice Beam which instantly froze up Charizard except his tail. Ash looked at Izuku in shock as he said, "Bro, isn't it a little too far?" Izuku shook his head as he said, "Ash, I remember you telling me how you met your Charmander. It seems that Charizard forgot its roots. This is your chance Ash, talk to it." Ash had tears as he wiped them and nodded towards Izuku and ran towards Charizard with Pikachu in tow. Izuku looked at them and turned around as he thought, "Ash, let's see if you can cross this hurdle. Your dedication as a trainer depends on it." Red, who was watching everything, thought, "Ash, this is a hurdle you can only pass on your own." But that Melodic. It was strong. As strong as his Dragonite which he showed against the Phoenix Royal. "I wonder what else you are hiding." Izuku from Hoenn. Time skip. The next day. The first match was just over. Richie and Izuku stood on the field ready for their match as the announcer said, "Here is another one of the anticipated match between two trainers who are participating in this event for the first time. Even as first-timers they both came to top 8. Let me present Richie from Frodomar City and Izuku from Hoenn region." The crowd let out cheers, not feeling the pressure which was yesterday at Izuku's match. The field was a mix between ground and water. The referee said, "Trainers, this is a 6 vs 6 match with substitutions allowed. The first move goes to Richie, now reveal your Pokemon." Richie took out a Pokeball as he said, "Come on out Octo." A Tentacool came out as it let out noises as Izuku took out a Pokeball and said, "Come on out Servine." Servine came out ready for battle. Servine came out looking more determined than usual, which Izuku noticed and smiled. Richie ordered, "Tentacool, use Mud Shot." Servine, dodge using Quick Attack and use Leaf Storm. Servine shined white as it jumped high in the air, avoiding the blobs of mud as it released a huge leaf storm. Tentacool wanted to dodge but not have enough space and the water was swept up in the huge leaf storm. Tentacool fell on land as it slowly got up and gave angry noises at Servine. Richie then said, "Tentacool, use Acid." Tentacool spit out green-colored acid which flew at high speed towards Servine as Izuku said, "Use Protect." Since Servine has just learned Protect, it took a while for it to use the move as a few parts of the acid hit it, making Servine scream as it hissed in pain. Izuku seeing this said, "Use Vine Whip." Servine used Vine Whip as it slapped Tentacool twice before grabbing it and throwing it away. Tentacool landed hard, making it lose consciousness as Servine huffed at it. Izuku's sweat dropped knowing how angry Servine is at feeling pain. The referee seeing Tentacool fainted announced for it to be fainted as Richie took out another Pokeball and said, "Let's go Eevee." An Eevee came out battle ready as Izuku was about to return Servine, but seeing as Servine was intent on battling, decided against it as he took the first move saying, "Servine, use Swift." Servine let out a stream of stars towards Eevee as Richie said, Eevee use quick attack and dodge them. Eevee used quick attack and dodged getting hit but saw the stars homing at it as it ran around but finally the move caught up and hit Eevee. Eevee then shook it off as Richie said, Eevee used double edge. Servine used leaf blade. Izuku's quick response was heard as Eevee dashed towards Servine with green energy surrounding it and Servine spun in air preparing momentum to hit Eevee. Both moves collided causes a mini explosion as both Pokemon were blasted back. Servine was breathing heavily but still had injuries from the attack. Meanwhile Eevee, who first stood up shakily, fell down fainted. The referee then said, since Richie's Eevee has fainted, the round goes to Izuku and his Servine. Izuku looked worried as he asked, do you want to rest, buddy? The acid has affected you quite a lot. Servine shook its head as it looked determined at Izuku and let out a few noises as Izuku understood what it said. Richie returned his Eevee as he thought, man, that is one powerful Servine. I thought to maybe injure each Pokemon before using the next Pokemon to defeat it to at least make him down by a few Pokemon, but each of his Pokemon are in a league of their own. Richie then took out another Pokeball as he said, come on out Happy, it's time to battle. Butterfree came out as it spun in air as Richie said, use sleep powder, Servine, send it right back with Leaf Storm. Izuku's famous lightning quick counter came as Servine spun and released a Leaf Storm against the oncoming sleep powder. The Leaf Storm absorbed the sleep powder as the color of air in Leaf Storm changed to purple as Butterfree was hit with full force. Butterfree was tossed to the ground as it fainted from being attacked in multiple angles in the storm in a sleepy stage. The crowd went crazy as Servine was breathing more heavily due to constantly using a powerful moves whilst being damaged. The acid was still there as it slowly drained her health. The referee then said, Richie's third Pokemon has fainted, this round again goes to Izuku and his Servine. The announcer then announced, what a powerful move. Izuku took advantage of the sleep powder and reversed it back, defeating Butterfree in one move. Since 3 on Richie's Pokemon has fainted, we will change the arena while the trainers are given a minute break to heal their Pokemon. Servine came limping towards Izuku as he first sprayed antidote to Servine to get rid of the poison. Izuku then gave Servine a big hug as he whispered, I am very proud of you Servine, you showed the whole world that you are strong. Now let's give you a super potion. Izuku sprayed the super potion on Servine, making it recover most of its health but is unable to get rid of its exhaustion. The arena was changed to a rock-type field full of boulders as Servine went back on field as Richie took out a Pokeball and said, your Servine did very well, but I will end its streak, come on out Zippo. A Charmander came out as it gave an excited cry as Izuku said, Servine, use quick attack and leaf blade. Servine used the speed from quick attack as it dashed towards Charmander. Richie quickly said, Zippo, try to hold your ground and use flamethrower. Servine hit Charmander with a lead blade but wasn't able to launch it away due to being exhausted as Charmander unleashed a flamethrower as Servine was hit point blank and was sent back by the blunt force. Servine had multiple burns as Izuku in worry said, come on Servine, please return. I know what you want to achieve but there are more ways for it. Servine just shouted as it suddenly glowed while in blue. Servine grew very long in size, loosing its arms as it grew, tails grew as they coiled. Servine has just evolved to Serperior. Izuku smiled widely as he said, congrats Serperior, you finally achieved it. Serperior smiled towards Izuku as it was still breathing a bit heavily. Izuku wasn't surprised. The evolution must have taken quite a bit out of her. Richie, who also noticed, said, Zippo, it's still exhausted, use Flame Wheel. Charmander rolled towards Serperior with flames surrounding it as Izuku said. Serperior ended with Leaf Blade. Serperior, a bit struggling with its new body, managed to jump towards the incoming Charmander with its tail ready to strike. Both moved collided as they produced a small explosion and a lot of smoke. After a few seconds, the smoke was gone, revealing both Pokemon are fainted. The referee announced, both Pokemon are fainted. Trainer Richie is down to 2 Pokemon while Trainer Izuku still has 5 more. The announcer also spoke, unbelievable, it seems like, for the second time someone was able to defeat one of Izuku's Pokemon in the league even if it ended in a draw. The crowd cheered as Richie took out another Pokeball as he said, come on out Fearow. Fearow came out as it let out a mad, arrogant crackle. Izuku deadpanned as he asked, same as Ash's Charizard? Richie sighed as he nodded and said, I wish he would listen to me, but he just does whatever he wants. I hope this match can teach him a lesson. Izuku nodded as he said, come on out Pidgeot. A large Pidgeot came out and it looked at its opponent. Both bird types, seeing their arch enemies, glared at each other as Izuku first said, Pidgeot, use aerial ace. Richie, knowing about the attack, said, Fearous. Richie was interrupted as Fearo flew forward with wing attack. Pidgeot at Mach speed attacked Fearo with aerial ace while avoiding the wing attack at the same time. Fearo fell down to ground and slowly got up as it gave angry bird noises towards Pidgeot as it used Gust. Pidgeot deadpanned at the idiot Fearo while she maintained her balance through it as Izuku commanded, Pidgeot, just finish it with Brave Bird. Pidgeot with blue flame energy surrounding it attacked Fearo, who wasn't able to dodge due to being slower than Pidgeot, and fainted as Pidgeot winced a bit at the recoil. The referee declared, Richie's Fearo has fainted. This match goes to Izuku and his Pidgeot. The crowd cheering, seeing the powerful flying type moves as Richie sighed and looked at his partner on his shoulder and said, well, you are up buddy, let's go Sparky. The Pikachu with a bit of its fur standing up near its right ear jumped onto the field as its cheeks sparked in excitement. Izuku, looking at Pidgeot, mentally asked, do you want to continue Pidgeot? Pidgeot looked at Izuku as it shook its head yes as Izuku started, use aerial ace. Richie quickly commanded, use quick attack and get on its back. Pidgeot dashed towards Pikachu at high speeds and tried to hit it, but Sparky, having his speed, managed to time his quick attack nicely and jumped and landed on Pidgeot's back. Richie then smirked as he said, let's go, now use Thunderbolt. Sparky let out a strong Thunderbolt as Pidgeot screamed in pain as Izuku said, Pidgeot, use Brave Bird and shake it off. Pidgeot resisted against the Thunderbolt as it covered itself in blue flame-like energy as Pikachu stopped using Thunderbolt from the pain it felt and quickly jumped off. Seeing Pikachu still on air, Izuku quickly said, aerial ace. Let's go. Richie was unable to do anything as Pidgeot with its quick speed attacked Pikachu, sending it to the ground, lifting up dust. Pidgeot landed in front of Izuku as the dust cleared, revealing a fainted Pikachu. The crowd cheered madly as the referee declared, all of Richie's Pokemon have fainted. This match goes to Izuku from Hoenn region. The crowd cheered Izuku name as Izuku pet Pidgeot on its head as he said, you were amazing pal. Pidgeot chirped happily as Richie sighed but still smiled as he returned his Pikachu and walked away. Ash also got up from the audience and ran towards where he knows Richie will come from. Izuku, after hearing the announcer's praise, left the field while giving good luck to the passing by next match's trainer and went to the Pokemon Center, smiling gently along the way. Third-person POV. The media surrounded the two parents with the heroes there, making sure that boundaries are not crossed. One reporter asked, have you two known about what your son was doing in school? Masaru answered, no, we didn't. The school only sent positive remarks regarding his behavior. We know our son can get angry due to his quirk's nature, but we never knew this was going on. Another reporter then said, do you know about the individual named Izuku Midoriya? Mitsuki held back tears as she answered, of course, we are his present godparents taking care of him after his mother's death. The reporters were shocked at the reveal as a few media at news station commented on the new reveal. Maruko, who was as shocked at the reveal, asked, have you never seen him flinch or anything indicating fear? I mean, his scars were all over his body. Masaru answered, we visit him every 3 days. He always receives us happily and cheerfully like he always does since he was a child. Izuku never showed us any signs of being a traumatized person. We did notice our son refusing to come with us, but we didn't think much of it. Ryukyu then commented, must have been a very good actor to be able to deceive people close to him too. Another reporter then asked, are you gonna try to protect your child during his case trial? The Bakugo pair shook their heads as Masaru said, no, we don't, but we would like to know why the school sent us wrong reports. Masaru knew that the school was also involved with this and skillfully put the attention to the school, showing his lawyer career knowledge. Maruko nodded at Ryukyu, who quickly high in air and transformed in air and flew towards the school. The news also packed up the gear and drove quickly toward the school. Maruko then looked at the pair and said, I can't pick lies in anything you said, so I am glad to know at least the kid had some positiveness in his life. Don't expect your son to be let off easily. I am sure your husband knows how protective government are towards the quirkless. Masaru knew. As anything related to quirkless abuse or murder quickly becomes a Supreme Court case, with some been sentenced to death immediately. Maruko stayed outside to watch over the family for a while. As Masaru and Mitsuki went inside and turned on the TV to know what is going on now. With Ryukyu, Ryukyu landed on the school field. The school was empty. Ryukyu quickly walked inside to go to the security room. After asking some directions from a teacher, she arrived at the door as she heard a voice say, "Come on, come on. Why won't it delete faster? If these footages get out, we're doomed." Ryukyu quickly barged in as she said, "Halt, stop everything. Cancel the deleting. You will be placed under arrest for destroying evidence." A few of Izuku's teachers who were there tried to run away but were knocked out as a few police came in and arrested them. Ryukyu saw that except a few deleted videos, there are still a lot of videos under the file named Bakugo Katsuki, our golden ticket to be more famous. Ryukyu opened the folder seeing thousands of videos, some dated back to even kindergarten. Ryukyu copied and pasted all videos into a USB and told the police to submit it in the court. Ryukyu then went to the rooftop to relax herself. Ryukyu was shaken by the event. The number of suicides are almost 0 per annum due to the hero's work. The one today and the suffering behind made her feel like there are still places that heroes have to reach. Ryukyu arrived at the roof and saw 2 shoes and a letter. Ryukyu ran as she picked up the letter. As she guessed that this is the suicide letter. Ryukyu looked down seeing the media and decided to read the letter online before it was taken away as evidence. The media arrived as some of the staff were being escorted to prison vans as the reported seeing Ryukyu approaching them asked her, "Hero, Ryukyu, what is happening here?" Ryukyu steeled her voice as she answered. The principal and a few teachers were found trying to destroy possible video evidence. So we have arrested them to be in investigation. One of the reporters then asked, "Has there been any more leads regarding this matter?" Ryukyu then said, "I found a letter on the rooftop with the boy's name. I will read it out now." The camera was focused on Ryukyu as she with conviction read. "Why? Just why? Why can't anyone say, you can be a hero even if you are quirkless? I hung on to life to hear someone say that to me. My mother died 6 years ago when I was 11 years old. I was bullied by childhood best friend just because I am quirkless. KACC wait, he doesn't deserve that name. He told me to take a swan dive of the roof and I still respect him. Fuck that. That asshole deserves to be in jail with how many people I saw him using his quirk on. My last hope to live was All Might, who I thought would say I can be a hero, but nope. Even he tells me the same damn reason, that I am fucking quirkless. I have no one to live for, no one who will cry over my death. I am sorry Aunt Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru, I just wasn't able to tell you about Katsuki. He put so much fear in me. I have even tried to report to some local policemen. They just ignored me. This society is unfair for the weak. I no longer want to suffer more for it. It makes me ill thinking these are the people I wanted to protect when my dream was to be a hero." And that's the letter. Tears welled in Ryukyu's and the reporters' eyes as they switched the camera to the reporters who started commenting on the situation. Third person POV. Izuku arrived in the Pokemon Center and got his Pokemon healed. Izuku then headed to the audience and after spotting his group, Izuku went there as he said, "Hey girls, how's the present battle going?" Momo gave Izuku a wave as Ria said, "It's going quite evenly. Both the girls lost 2 Pokemon and are now at their 3rd. Izuku sat beside Jirou as he asked, "What are the names of the trainers?" Jirou answered, "Rosalina and Merle are their names." Izuku nodded as the group continues watching the battle. After 20 minutes, the match was finally won by Merle and her last Pokemon Typhlosion, possibly her starter. The gang also watched the last match and after 30 minutes, the match ended with Anthony as winner. The announcer then said, "The semifinals between the top 4 will be conducted tomorrow. Now we will call upon these top 4 to congratulate them and decide tomorrow's match pairings." The crowd clapped as Izuku, Merle, Anthony and Assunta walked onto the field. The announcer Hen said, "NOW, Mr. Goodshow will come to on stage. Everyone please be silent." Mr. Goodshow arrived on stage as he looked at the 4 trainers and took a mic and said, "These are our top 4 trainers. From here one the trainers eliminated in the semifinals will share the 3rd place, the one eliminated in finals will get the 2nd place. All the top 3 positions have special prizes and medals. Meanwhile, the top 16 will also have a medal representing that they have got into the top 16. Now the matchups will be shown on screen. 4 pics of the top 4 trainers appeared as they started shuffling around. The pictures stopped as the first match was between Merle and Assunta. The second match is between Izuku and Anthony. Izuku turned around and left after seeing the matchups to do research on his opponent. Sorry if you guys want to see the semis, but I am skipping it since I want to finish the finals and go to Johto quickly. I have an original movie planned for this book. In the Johto region, Ash won't be there much since he will travel Orange Islands before Johto, so you can say Ash will be a month behind Izuku. Time skip 1 day. The referee declared, Assunta's Venusaur has fainted. The match goes to Izuku and his Blaziken. The crowd cheered as Izuku fist bumped Blaziken and the announcer said, another dominating match by Izuku. He has SWEEPED Assunta's team using his Garchomp and Blaziken. Izuku has made it to the finals. Izuku and Merle got onto the field as Mr. Goodshow appeared on the stage and took a mic and said, we got our top 2 trainers of the league. The finals will be conducted tomorrow. The trainers will be escorted by police officials to the match. Let's all clap in applause for our top 2 of the league, Merle and Izuku. The crowd cheered as both trainers faced each other. Merle chuckled a bit nervously as she said, this is honestly my second league. My first was in Johto and I went till quarters and lost, so this is a bit overwhelming for me. Izuku also nodded as he said, it's the same for me too. I never really communicated much with many people. I just trained my Pokemon all my life. All I know about people are what I read from books. This is my first time in a league too. I am also very nervous of any accidents I make in front of people. Assunta was shocked as she exclaimed, WOW, it's your first time and you are already so strong. You must have trained really hard. Izuku nodded as he said, like I said, I trained all my life since I was 5. Izuku looked at the sky wondering what his mom was doing. She has visited him many times in the forest, but it's been 3 years since he saw her last. Merle then put forward her hand as she said, let's handshake on for a good and fair match. Izuku smiled as he shook her hand and said, good luck Merle, let's give our best. Both trainers turned around as they went through separate exits as Izuku met up with the girls and they all went to have lunch in a restaurant. Izuku thought about whom to use. Izuku could feel, his oldest 5 are itching for a battle. It's evening right now and the girls except Gardevoir went out for shopping. Izuku went to a nearby forest and after sensing no people in the vicinity, Izuku pulled out 5 Pokeballs and released them. Out came Dragonite, Flareon, Gardevoir, Shiny Melodic, Lucario. I looked at the 5 as I said, well guys, it's time for finals. Nice Izuku. We are finally here. Let's show our strength to everyone. We will claim the top spot. Lucario was the last on who asked, who are you using for the finals? The other 4 stopped cheering as they stood up straight, shaking a bit in excitement and hope in their eyes that they will get chosen. Izuku smiled and said, I will use you all for the battle. 1 opponent each for each of you and no holding back. We gotta show our full power and make a mark in the world. Everyone let out a cheer as I said, now come on. Let's have a small training session. Don't want you all to be a bit rusty tomorrow. The Pokemon nodded as Izuku led them by running first. Time skip the next day. Izuku and Merle stood on the opposite ends of the field. Izuku and Merle were both escorted by a police parade. It showed the importance of the finals of a league. Mr. Goodshow come onto the stage with a mic as he said, welcome ladies and gentlemen in Pokemon. It's finally time for the finals of the Indigo League. The winner will be given the League Cup and eligibility to challenge the Elite Four, and if they also get past the Elite Four, they will be given a chance to battle the Kanto champion for their title. The crowd cheered on as Mr. Goodshow continued, and now, let me present you with the special guests, the champion of Johto region and the top 1 of our Elite Four of Kanto, aka Lance. We also have our other Elite Four members who are Bruno, Lorelei and Agatha. And to finally finish it off we got our very own Kanto champion, Red Ketchum. The crowd cheered as the 5 appeared on stage with Mr. Goodshow. Mr. Goodshow then continued, and that is not all folks, we also have the renounced champion of Hoenn region here. Everyone welcome Stephen Stone. The crowd, mainly the female section, went wild as a decently tall man with a handsome face, have light blue hair and eyes wearing a black suit appeared. Steven was only interesting in coming here because one of the finalists was from his region, Steven no Izuku. Meeting him a few times in the big forest near Petalburg City. Steven has idea of how strong Izuku might be, but all those broke when he heard Izuku was a finalist in the Indigo League, and what's more, this is his first league. Steven had to come here after hearing that. Izuku smiled seeing the familiar face of Steven. After the cheering died down, the announcer began. A&D, we will finally begin the finals of the Indigo tournament. The audience casted their votes and it seems that Izuku is their favorite to win currently. We will see the end result in a moment. The referee then said. The rules are same as the previous 6-on-6 battles. Trainers release your Pokemon. The first move goes to trainer Izuku. Izuku took out a Pokeball and threw it saying, "It's time to reveal yourselves, my friend. Come on out, Lucario." A Lucario came out on the field. Lucario was a bit more bulkier and taller than the usual ones, revealing its unique training efforts. Merle took out a Pokeball as she exclaimed, "That is not a Pokemon I have ever seen, but I will not back down. Come on out, Heracross." The Bug-type Heracross came out. Izuku, who has the first move, said, "Lucario, use Power-Up Punch." Lucario dashed forward, activating Power-Up Punch in both hands as Merle said, "Use Counter Heracross." Izuku's lightning-quick reply came as he said, "Form a Aura Sphere and hit it to disable the counter. Then Power-Up Punch." Izuku's strategy worked as counter was disabled by the Aura Sphere, which dealt a considerable amount of damage to Heracross, making it a bit dizzy as Lucario took the punch and used the Power-Up Punch to the face, sending Heracross launching back. Heracross slowly got up as Izuku said, "Use Bone Rush." Merle found opportunity as she said, "Use Endure and Mega Horn." Heracross used Endure to not faint due to Bone Rush and immediately hit Lucario with Mega Horn, launching it to the other side of field. Izuku whistled a bit as he thought, interesting. Merle, seeing that Heracross is exhausted, decided to bet on one move as she said, "Hyper Beam, Heracross." Izuku smirked as he said, "Use Aura Shield and Aura Sphere." Lucario made a Aura Shield, effectively blocking the Hyper Beam, and immediately formed a Aura of Fear and launched it at the immovable Heracross as it just used Hyper Beam. Heracross, having no chance, fainted as the referee declared, "Trainer Merle's Heracross has fainted. The first round goes to Izuku and his Lucario." Izuku gave a fist bump to Lucario as Merle returned her Heracross, whispering complimentary words as she took out another Pokeball and threw it as she said, "Come on out, Steelix." Onyx's evolution. A large scary snake-like Pokemon came out as Izuku said, "Lucario, use Return." Lucario, being the tamest Pokemon on Izuku's team, dealt a considerable amount of damage with Return as it pulled itself back in the Pokeball as Izuku took out another ball and threw it as he said, "Come on out, Flareon." Flareon came out as it looked at the Steelix, not being intimidated in the slightest. Merle started with saying, "Use Rock Tomb." Steelix summoned huge rocks, firing them towards Flareon as Izuku commanded, "Use Quick Attack and avoid them." Flareon vanced as it ran across the field in a streak of light as reached Steelix as Izuku said, "Use Flamethrower." Flareon fired a huge flamethrower, hitting Steelix dead center as it fell down from the impact. Merle then commanded, "Steelix, use Dig." Izuku smirked as he though. Bingo, Flareon quickly overheat into that huge hole. Flareon let out gigantic volumes of scorching hot flames in the hole. The whole field started burning, being bright red. Everyone in the stadium was sweating at the temperature. Steelix came out of a hole and fainted. The referee then said, "Steelix has fainted. This round goes to trainer Izuku and his Flareon." The crowd went mad as the commentator said, "That was unbelievable. Such power packed into such a cute Pokemon. This shows, size doesn't matter in contest of power." Merle sighed as she returned her Steelix as Izuku also returned Flareon. Merle took out another Pokeball as she said, "It's time to battle, come on out, Skarmory." A Steel and Flying type took the stage as Izuku threw a Pokeball as he said, "It's time to dominate, Dragonite." Dragonite came out and took off into the sky in a show of blinding speeds which Skarmory could barely keep up. Merle started off by ordering, "Use Steel Wing." Izuku then countered saying, "Dragonite, use Dragon Rush." Skarmory's wings shone with steel energy as draconic energy formed a giant dragon head around Dragonite. Both moved hit each other, revealing Skarmory to be injured by the attack as Dragonite had no visible damage. Izuku then said, Dragonite, Dragon Claw. Huge green claws formed on Dragonite's hands as Merle quickly said, Skarmory Flash Cannon. Skarmory fired off a Power FL Flash Cannon which Dragonite with its vastly superior speed easily dodged and striked Skarmory on its head, bashing it to the ground. Izuku could see Skarmory trying to get up and said, Finish it with Dragon Breath. A mix of blue and pink and purple breath shot out from Dragonite's mouth as it hit Skarmory, who was still trying to get up. Skarmory promptly fainted as the referee said, Trainer Merle's Skarmory has fainted. The round goes to Izuku and Dragonite. Dragonite gave Izuku a big hug which Izuku returned. The commentator then said, Since 3 Pokemon of one of the trainers have been defeated, the field is gonna change to a new one. The trainers will be given a 5-minute break. Third person POV. Izuku moved to the stands for the break. A person sneaked behind Izuku and gave him a tight hug. At first, Izuku was alarmed, but feeling the familiar aura, Izuku quickly turned around as the person cheerfully said, Hello, Izu-chan. Izuku had tears in his eyes as he hugged the person tightly as he said, Mom, why did you disappear for 3 years? I missed you so much. Izuku was now openly crying a bit as Arceus pat his back, still in her human form. Arceus then pulled back a bit, and after making Izuku bend forward, she placed a peck on his forehead as she said, I am sorry Izu-chan. I was very busy these years. There was a huge panic in Galar region. I had to contain it behind the scenes, which took me this much time. Izuku nodded as he wiped his tears as he said, I will talk to you again after the match, Mom. I got some people to introduce to you. Arceus laughed a bit seeing how excited Izuku was right now. Izuku is always known to be a calm person. But when it comes to his mom, he is always a little kid. Arceus left to stand amongst the audience while Izuku returned since the break was over. Everyone was a bit stunned looking at Izuku, who had a wide smile and cheerful aura around him. Sabrina was so lost in that smile, she didn't notice her friends grinning behind her back. Even the gym leaders and VIP guests were stunned. Izuku was known to be calm and give small, nice smiles. It's the first time anyone saw a smile that big on his face. Merle commented, You seem to be in quite a cheerful mood. Izuku let out a small laugh as he said, Someone whom I love a lot has come here to watch me. I am very happy right now, but let's continue our battle. Merle nodded as she took out a Pokeball and tossed it as she said, Let's go Snorlax. A strong Snorlax came out awake and ready for a battle. Izuku also took out a Pokeball as he tossed it saying, Let's go Gardevoir. Gardevoir came out as she gracefully landed. Gardevoir sensed a familiar energy, used telepathy to ask, Izuku, is she? Gardevoir received a quick response as Izuku replied, Yes, Mom's here. A gentle and excited smile made its way onto Gardevoir's face as Merle started the battle by saying, Snorlax use Body Slam. Snorlax jumped high as Izuku thought, Gardevoir, teleport to the Avoid and use Psychic. Just as it seems like Snorlax will Body Slam Gardevoir, Gardevoir suddenly teleported 5 meters to the right. Gardevoir's body gained a blue outline as Snorlax was suddenly floating with a blue outline as Gardevoir flicked her hand, sending Snorlax crashing to the wall at high speeds. Due to its huge body, Snorlax was able to tank half of the damage as Merle ordered, Snorlax use Mega Punch. Snorlax ran towards Gardevoir at decent speed as Izuku thought, Gardevoir, go to the right and use Fairy Wind. Gardevoir teleported to the right as Snorlax lost his balance and fell face first. Gardevoir then released strong fairy winds which caused multiple injuries all over Snorlax's body. Merle, seeing no other option, said, Snorlax, use rest and heal a bit. Izuku was quick on the attack. Gardevoir, use Psychic, quick. Snorlax was a quarter way through rest before it disrupted as Snorlax was thrown into the wall again with more force than the first time. The wall had a giant hole as Snorlax slowly slid down with swirls in its eyes. The referee announced, Trainer Merle's Snorlax has fainted. The round goes to Izuku and his Gardevoir. Gardevoir teleported next to Izuku, who pat her head as he said, Good job Gardevoir. You are as fast and strong as ever. Gardevoir let out happy sounds as Izuku returned her as took out the next Pokeball as he tossed it saying, It's time to show your beauty. Come on out Melodic. A shiny Melodic came out as she danced gracefully around Izuku, who petted, and it went to the field ready to battle. Merle sighed as she was getting dominated in the Pokemon battle. I see you pervs thinking about the other dominating. Merle took out another Pokeball as she tossed it saying, let's go Jolteon. The electric Jolteon came out excited and raring to go as Merle starting the round with, Jolteon, use Thunderbolt. Izuku expecting it ordered. Melodic, protect. A green protective barrier formed around Melodic, protecting it from the Thunderbolt as Izuku said. Use Ice Beam on the field. Melodic floated a bit as it released powerful Ice Beam all over the field. Jolteon was too busy dodging the large ice beams threatening to freeze it. Jolteon, now on a field full of ice, was trying very hard to even stand in one place. Merle grit her teeth as she yelled, use Iron Tail on the ice. Izuku grinned as he said, use Psychic and send it sliding. Before Jolteon was able to hit the ice with its Iron Tail, Melodic used Psychic and lifted Jolteon off the ground and sent it sliding to the walls. Due to icy surface, Jolteon was not able to slow down or balance itself as it hit the wall, making a dent on it. Jolteon with all its will stood up in a wobbly manner as Merle as a final attempt said, Jolteon, use everything you have. Thunder. Jolteon let out a loud cry as thunderclouds gathered as Izuku said, Melodic, use Blizzard. Melodic let out a soothing voice as a very large and strong blizzard hit the field. The power was such, thunder broke apart before even reaching Melodic. Jolteon was frozen solid and unable to move. The referee looked carefully and after seeing the swirls in its eyes, the referee declared, Trainer Merle's Jolteon has fainted, so the round goes to Trainer Izuku and his Melodic. The field has a layer of snow on the ice. Melodic was floating about Izuku, happy on her win as Izuku pet her smooth body. Izuku said, you have improved a lot, Melodic, good job. Melodic did a twirl in air and made a smile as many people were in awe in witnessing the most beautiful Pokemon. Izuku returned Melodic as he thought of who to use. Izuku got an idea as he took out a Pokeball and tossed it saying, it's time to shine, Garchomp. The intimidating Pokemon was back on the field. A few of the kids in the audience were a bit scared. Garchomp, being excited, activated its ability, Sand Veil. A sandstorm spread over the field which made it not easy to observe the battlefield. Garchomp and Izuku had no problem with it though. Merle shook her head helplessly as she took out her last Pokeball and tossed it saying, if I am going out, I will go out with a bang, let's do this Typhlosion. Typhlosion roared as it appeared on the field. Typhlosion was a bit confused about the sandstorm and could hardly see its opponent, but no, its opponent was massive in height. Izuku started this off as he said, Garchomp, use Earthquake. Merle quickly said, Typhlosion, use Earthquake as well. Both Pokemon with a roar stomped the ground as the field shook, but Garchomp's Earthquake was dominant as Typhlosion was affected and thrown about cause of it. Merle then commanded, use Flamethrower. Izuku quickly said, use Flamethrower too. Both flamethrowers clashed as they neutralized each other. Izuku then quickly commanded, use Dig and then use Dragon Claw. Merle panicked a bit but said, Typhlosion, use Earthquake and bring it out. Typhlosion was about to stomp the ground but Garchomp came out from below Typhlosion and launched it upwards, and after surrounding its claws with draconic energy, Garchomp flew up to the now falling and helpless Typhlosion and hit it with the Dragon Claws, launching it down with more velocity. Typhlosion hit the ground hard and let a cry of pain. Garchomp flew and returned towards Izuku's side. The battlefield was full of craters with the ice broken apart and the snow melted. The sandstorm was affecting Typhlosion because of sand constantly hitting its wounds. Typhlosion's eyes went red as it roared loudly. Typhlosion activated Blaze ability. Merle knew Typhlosion was hurting but still wants to fight hard. Merle then commanded, Typhlosion, use Overheat. Typhlosion let out large amount of hot flames which moved very fast, and before Izuku had a chance to say anything, Garchomp was engulfed and thrown towards the wall. The ice melted from the hot temperature of the move. Izuku had a grin on his face. The smoke cleared as Garchomp stood with a battle-hungry glint in its eyes as Izuku commanded, Garchomp, use Dragon Rush. Merle quickly knew the dangers of the move, seeing it in Izuku's previous match, commanded, Typhlosion, use Flame Wheel. Both Pokemon collided as a huge explosion of power and smoke appeared. The smoke cleared as Garchomp was seen in the sky and Typhlosion was injured on the ground as it slowly got up. Merle grit her teeth as she yelled, let's end this with our last move, use Eruption. Izuku, being far too into the battles, yelled, Garchomp, show then the real power of your Fire Blast. Typhlosion let out a high amounts of concentrated firepower towards Garchomp, who in return let out a huge, wide and powerful kanji-shaped flame towards Typhlosion. Both moves collided, and after a power struggle, Fire Blast defeated Eruption and hit Typhlosion, releasing quite an amount of smoke. The smoke cleared as Typhlosion was fainted, as Garchomp was breathing heavily, close to fainting due to using all its power in that move. Izuku ran as her gave Garchomp a huge hug as he said, "That was so awesome, Garchomp. That had to be your most powerful move I have seen." Garchomp grinned as he hugged its trainer back and let out a huge roar of domination. Merle slowly made its way to Typhlosion as she whispered, "You did your best today, Typhlosion. We will train hard from now and challenge the league again." Typhlosion was a bit awake now, let out a weak whimper of agreement, and Merle returned it. Izuku, seeing Merle retuning her Typhlosion, made his way to her as he put forward a hand and said, "That was a very fun battle, Merle. Your Typhlosion is quite a powerful monster." Merle let out a chuckle as she said, "It was a lot of fun and educating battle for me too, Izuku, but you Garchomp is the real monster here. I have never seen a fire-type move that powerful in my life." Both trainers shook hands as everyone in the stadium cheered and clapped for the duo. In the stands, the Elite Four and the champions were shocked at the power of the Fire Blast. Red let out a comment as he said, "I don't think even Moltres had a more powerful Fire Blast when I battled it." Lance nodded, witnessing the event where Red had to battle a rampaging Moltres on Orange Islands. In the stands, the girls clapped as Momo said, "That was so powerful, I could feel the heat all the way here." Jirou nodded as she said, "Garchomp sure outdid itself in the battle. Man, Izuku won the league." The girls cheered as they high-fived each other. The announcer then announced, "What a powerful battle it was. Both trainers gave it their all. But Izuku emerged victorious and won the Indigo League. The top 16 trainers will be given 5 minutes to gather the field for the awards ceremony." Izuku, with a big smile on his face, remained on the field as looked at his mom as he gave her a toothy smile and a thumbs up. Arceus had tears in her eyes. Izuku had grown strong in her absence. She was guilty that she wasn't able to stay more with him. But she will make up for it now. The trainers gathered on the field as they congratulated Izuku and Merle on their battle. The trainers were looking at Merle and Izuku as idols. Mr. Goodshow, Steven, Lance, Red, Bruno, Lorelei and Agatha walked onto the stage as Mr. Goodshow took a mic and said, "That was one of the most intense matches I ever witnessed. I congratulate both trainers on their match. Now, without any further wait, the top 4 will receive their medals through the champions." Mr. Goodshow then looked at Red, who held the trophy and a gold medal, and said, "The winner of the league and the golden medal and the 10 million poke dollars prize goes to trainer Izuku from Hoenn region." The trainers and audience clapped as Izuku walked over to Red, who smiled and gave the trophy to Izuku and put a medal on him as Red said, "You have trained your Pokemon very well. They were all unique and powerful. I look forward to the day you challenge me." Red also handed over the permission letter, which is given to the league winner to challenge the Elite Four and the champion for the title. Izuku smiled as he said, "I won't challenge you guys now. My aim to win all the leagues before challenging the champions." Izuku gave a smirk which Red mirrored as Izuku stepped down the stage. Merle received the second-place medal and 1 million poke dollars as her prize, which she received from Steven. Anthony and Assunta got the third-place medal from Lance and the prize of 250,000 poke dollars each. The rest of the top 16 received the honorary top 16 badges and certificates. After the award ceremony was over, Izuku stored the trophy in his PD along with the letter and went outside with the golden medal proudly on display. Izuku was greeted with his mom, who ran towards him and gave him a huge hug as she said, "Oh my Izu-chan. I am so proud of you. You won the league on your first try. You Pokemon were lovely and strong too." Izuku hugged his mom back too. "Izuku." Izuku heard 3 voices and turned his head as he was tackled to the floor by Momo, Jirou and Ria. They were all praising him and crying in happiness as Izuku shared a kiss with 3 of them. Arceus chuckled knowing about Izuku's love life, as they did use her breaks to watch him after all. The girls got up and Izuku saw Sabrina, who smiled as she said, "Looks like you did win as you promised, Izuku." Izuku went over as he held Sabrina's hand and said, "You know, Sabrina? I made another promise to myself to win this league so I can finally do one thing I have been wanting to do all month." Sabrina held Izuku's hand more tightly as she stepped forwards, closing the distance as she asked, "What is it, Izuku?" Izuku let out a small breath as he asked, "These feelings I developed for you over time when we were together for 2 months. I loved all our hangouts together. I loved how you have the most beautiful smile I ever seen. I can honestly and proudly say this, Sabrina, I love you." Sabrina smiled as she let out tears of happiness as she closed the gap between them and gave Izuku a long kiss, which Izuku reciprocated with equal passion. Sabrina pushed back from the kiss as she panted for a bit and said, "I love you too, Izuku. Please accept me as your girlfriend." Izuku smiled as he said, "I hope I will be a great boyfriend to you as well." The girls and Arceus cheered as they clapped for the couple. Ria, Momo and Jirou were happy that Sabrina finally confessed. Gardevoir, who was observing from the Pokeball, let out a smile too. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now we will see you in the next video.